हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं एक नया नॉवल स्टार्ट करने वाला हूँ गाइस। तो बिना किसी देरी के चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। और स्टार्ट करने से पहले मैं एक बात बताना चाहता हूँ गाइस। तो मैंने इससे पहले एक एप्लीकेशन को दिखाया था गाइस कि उससे आप रिडीम कोड्स या फिर यूपीआई में ले सकते हैं पेमेंट, और एकदम ओरिजिनल ऐप है गाइस। और मैं ये प्रमोशन नहीं कर रहा हूँ गाइस, ना ही मैं स्पॉन्सरशिप हूँ। मैं बस आपको बता रहा हूँ क्योंकि उसमें से बहुत से यानी मेरे जैसे प्लेयर्स होंगे जो यानी कि टॉप अप करने के लिए पैसा नहीं निकाल पाते होंगे। तो वो लोग है ना अपना इसमें से कुछ आवर्स वर्क करके अपना टॉप अप तो ज़रूर कर सकते हैं गाइस। यानी कि आप एक वीक में आराम से एक वीकली निकालने का पैसा कमा सकते हैं। अगर आप और अच्छा कमाएंगे तो गाइस, तो मेरे ख्याल से आप मंथली हर एक मंथ में आप एक मंथली वीकली सिप मार सकते हैं। तो मैं बस यही कहना चाहता हूँ। अगर आपको एप्लीकेशन चाहिए होगा तो आप मेरे डिस्क्रिप्शन में से जाके
Chapter 1, Grandmaster, you must take my wife as your disciple Tilda. System, did you say that taking just one disciple will instantly promote me to a level 99 limit Douluo? Ding, yes, host, as long as the disciple you recruit meets the system's assessment requirements, you will immediately gain the strength of a level 99 limit title Douluo. Is that for real? Absolutely guaranteed, host. If it's not, I'll smash my head against a watermelon and kill myself on the spot, leaving you, a system, to grow old all alone. Come on, explain the system's requirements. Ding, system's disciple recruitment criteria. 1. Potential to become a god. 2. Top tier talent. 3. Superb looks. Damn it, do you know that my spirit is a wooden stick and I'm a waste born with zero spirit power? You're asking me to take such a top-tier genius as a disciple. Is this on purpose or an accident? Ding, host, I am merely the system's initial guiding intelligence and will fade away after you recruit a disciple. I cannot interfere with the system's rules, so it was intentionally accidental. You have 10 days left to recruit a disciple. If you fail, you will be deemed an absolute piece of shit tier waste, and the system will abandon you to find another host. Please keep trying, host. Fuck. Please use civilized language, host. Yangqing traveled through the elements to reach the outskirts of Soto City. Looking at the exotic-styled city with its high and thick walls in front of him, he mumbled incoherently with an unknown leaf in his mouth, constantly spewing highly offensive, civilized language at the system, his gaze gradually growing distant. Recalling the past, his legendary life should be traced back to a certain night 18 years ago. He vaguely remembered fighting 18 buxom foes all by himself back then, battling bloodily for 5.5 hours, wielding his wild dragon to fight the phoenix, and finally barely emerging victorious. However, the buxom foes were simply too numerous and their onslaught too fierce. Although he won, he died of sheer exhaustion. When he woke up again, he had arrived in the current Douluo continent world. Yangqing had naturally read the Douluo continent novel, and he thought he would be greeted by a life of soaring to the heavens like a cow riding a rocket, absolutely mind-blowing. Who would have thought that at the age of 6, envied by the heavens, he would suffer a crushing defeat, only awakening a little wooden stick spirit and level 0 spirit power. At that time, he was extremely indignant. Even if he was so outstanding that he was envied by the heavens and victimized by a conspiracy, his spirit shouldn't have been just a little wooden stick, right? Did this fit his style? No, it didn't. At the very least, it should have been a big wooden stick, a thick wooden stick, or a fire poker. This little wooden stick was simply going too far. From then on, he remained disheartened for 2.5 years. Yet, no matter how hard the heavens tried to cover up his excellence, they could only cover the surface, they couldn't obliterate his dazzling, gold-like essence within. And so, the system arrived. And it was a system that bragged to high heaven during its self-introduction, claiming that as long as he took one disciple. No need for 99 years of cultivation. No need for 88 years of cultivation. No need to brave life and death. He could painlessly walk away with a full set of level 99 titled Douluo cultivation and equipment. Yangqing then began the next 10 years of his life, a mere trifle of wind and frost, dedicated to finding a disciple. And then, he was successfully kicked out of the village and the city by his parents in the village Andes. Yangqing still remembered the reluctance of his designated disciple number 365, who was only a 2-month-old fetus in his 7th aunt's belly before his departure. All of which was expressed through the wildly flapping lips of his 7th aunt and 7th uncle. Thus, carrying his parents' reluctance, his fellow villagers' expectations, and his only possession besides 10 bronze coins, a map, he traveled on foot for half a month, crossing mountains and sleeping in the wild, until he arrived outside Soto City. During this time, he had not forgotten his grand ambition to recruit a disciple. Unfortunately, everyone he met was an uneducated rustic who failed to recognize a dragon in the shallows, short-sightedly rejecting him. But he did not blame them, he only felt pity for them, having missed what was likely the greatest opportunity of their lives. However, given that some people, though they rejected him, still had enough foresight to make a small investment in him. Yangqing was a grateful person who repaid kindness, and he decided that once he succeeded in the future, he would definitely repay them. Now, there were only 10 days left before the system would detach from him and brand him as a piece of shit tier waste. Yangqing had never been one to resign himself to fate. His gaze sharpened and grew serious. He spat out the remnant leaf in his mouth, stood up valiantly, and with his head held high and chest puffed out, took stride after stride toward the gates of Soto City. Damn it, let's take a gamble and turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. At worst, I'll just reincarnate again. 3 days later, a simple but not shabby carriage stopped outside the gates of Soto City. Soon, a young girl wearing a simple white dress stepped down from the carriage. She had neat, ear-length short hair and stood a little over 1.6 meters tall. Judging from the skin on her neck, her complexion was excellent, extremely fair and tender. After politely paying the carriage fare, the girl in the white dress walked gracefully into Soto City. As soon as she entered Soto City, she was drawn by the rich exotic flavor and the dazzling array of shops and street vendors. Before long, she was carrying various large and small bags in her hands. The girl's looks were exceptionally outstanding. As she skipped through the bustling market, she was like a butterfly fluttering among flowers, drawing a great deal of attention. Clearly, she had long been accustomed to being the center of attention and did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort. But soon, the girl's attention was caught by a fortune-telling stall, the first of its kind she had ever seen, located 50 meters from the south gate of Soto City. About 3 minutes ago, the girl had already found wandering around Soto City a bit dull. As the young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, Ning Rongrong, what had she not seen? She had simply never been to Soto City before and was temporarily intrigued by its exotic flavor. After walking around for a while, Ning Rongrong felt it was just average. Her purpose in coming to Soto City, a small city in the Balik Kingdom, a vassal state of the Heaven Do Empire, was to enroll in the Shrek Academy that had piqued her interest. Thus, after asking around for directions, she was surprised to find that it was actually located outside Soto City, but she still made her way to the south gate, intending to head out of the city to register. Then, she heard two sudden, loud clamors. Wow, Grandmaster, Grandmaster, you truly are a divine fortune teller. 3 months ago, you said my posture was wrong, which was why my wife couldn't get pregnant. After going home and trying to conceive with the posture you suggested, it actually worked on the first try. She's pregnant now, thank you so much, but my wife is naturally weak. I want her to take you as her master and serve you for the rest of her life, just so you can ensure my unborn son is delivered safely. Tilda. You are very thoughtful, lay Buddhist, but your wife's pregnancy was destined to happen in your life anyway. This humble Taoist merely used a small trick to predict the posture that would get your wife pregnant that night and told you in advance. There is no need for such grand formalities. Besides, this Taoist only accepts those destined to be my disciples. You only need to leave a small token of wealth and be on your way, lay Buddhist. Tilda. No, Grandmaster, if you don't take my wife as your disciple, I won't feel at ease. You must. PFF. Chapter 2, The Rigid Mindset. PFF. A crisp giggle came from beside them. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong truly couldn't hold back her laughter. Holding numerous bags, she stood to the side of the stall, staring for several seconds at the wooden sign inscribed with the 8 grand characters meaning, knowing all things like a god and foreseeing the unknown, then looked at the honest man kneeling on the ground, and finally looked at the young man sitting upright with the demeanor of an expert. How should I put it? With a scam so obviously fake at a glance, even beggars at the entrance of the 7 treasure glazed tile school wouldn't fall for it. She walked with graceful steps up to the stall, and right in front of the fortune teller, spoke bluntly to the honest customer. How can a person like you be so stupid? The honest man was stunned. Ning Rongrong tilted her head, her tone overwhelmingly sincere. I've only ever heard of people being afraid of others stealing their own wives, but this is the first time I've seen someone actively pushing their own wife out to someone else and begging to take someone as a master. Aren't you afraid that before long your wife will get pregnant again? As her voice faded, the air fell silent for a moment. You. The honest man's face flushed red, and he abruptly stood up, shoving Ning Rongrong until she staggered. Who are you? His voice raised by 3 pitches. I'm warning you, if you don't understand my affairs, don't meddle. Don't ruin my good fortune. He turned around, pointing at Yangqing with a look of reverence. Do you understand what kind of divine person Grandmaster Yang is? Several times before, my own divination readings were predicted completely accurately. Who are you? Don't anger Grandmaster Yang, or I won't be polite with you. Ning Rongrong staggered a step before steadying herself. She lowered her head to look at the shoved wrinkled sleeves of her white dress, her face darkening. She was, after all, the young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. From birth until now, not to mention being pushed, there were barely a few people who had even spoken to her in a loud voice. Now she had been shoved by an ordinary person who wasn't even a spirit master. And she was even looked down upon. She knew that right now, as long as she gave a single abnormal look, this fellow would have to be carried back horizontally today. But then she recalled the smile she had practiced 37 times in front of the mirror before leaving the house. Shrek Academy, lady persona, gentle and elegant. Bear with it. Ning Rongrong glared fiercely at Yangqing, who was sitting over there watching the show with a beaming smile, and then turned to the honest man, her tone suppressing her anger but still somewhat patient. I am helping you, how can you fail to recognize a good person's intentions? Her finger poked right in front of Yangqing's nose. This guy is obviously a scammer. You still believe it was him who guided you with some crappy posture to get your wife pregnant? Under heaven, how could there be such a thing as foreseeing the future? Even the titled Douluo I've seen don't have this kind of ability. Getting your wife pregnant in 3 months is definitely your own ability. The more Ning Rongrong spoke, the more certain she became, wearing an expression that said, I am well-traveled and knowledgeable while you are all fools. I've seen plenty of these swindlers. They just use words to fool you into going back to try your luck. If your luck is good, it's his merit. If your luck is bad, he'll have run off long ago. After finishing, Ning Rongrong lifted her chin, waiting for the scene where the honest man suddenly came to his senses and was moved to tears of gratitude towards her. Then she waited for an old peasant. Make way. An old man wearing coarse cloth short garments squeezed in from the crowd, the wrinkles on his face practically blooming with smiles. He forcefully squeezed Ning Rongrong to the side and lunged in front of Yangqing's stall. Grandmaster, Grandmaster, the old peasant's voice was shaking with excitement. You truly are a miraculous divine diviner. I actually found a large bag of gold coins at the corner of my back door by turning 2 steps left, 3 steps right, and walking forward 5 steps. It solved my child's enrollment problem. As he spoke, the old peasant dropped to his knees. I want to take you as my master, Grandmaster, and serve you for a lifetime. Yangqing cast a smiling glance at Ning Rongrong. That glance carried 3 parts smugness, 3 parts innocence, and 4 parts of the meaning. What was it you said just now? Afterwards, he still waved his hand with unhurried poise. Hey, no. That bag of gold coins you picked up was originally something you would obtain in this lifetime. This poor Taoist merely guided you to acquire it early. This originally belongs to your fortuitous encounter. There's no need to perform such a heavy courtesy. Moreover, this Taoist only takes those fated as disciples. This lay practitioner, you should still leave. Ning Rongrong widened her eyes. The honest man beside them turned his head at the right time and spread his hands to her. Little girl, what else do you have to say? Grandmaster didn't just help me alone. He pointed at the old peasant. This person was also helped by Grandmaster, right? The old peasant nodded repeatedly, pressing his palms together and bowing over and over to Yangqing. Many thanks indeed to Grandmaster. Many thanks indeed to Grandmaster. My son has money to attend a Spirit Master Academy now. Grandmaster is simply a living deity. Yangqing narrowed his eyes towards Ning Rongrong's direction, the corners of his mouth turning slightly upward as he slowly waved his hand. No matter how one looked at that action, it looked like a demonstration of superiority. Ning Rongrong was furious, a faint flush rising on her cheeks. She pointed at the old peasant. That bag of gold coins must have been buried by himself as well. To trick you. Hey. Yangqing spoke up. His voice was not loud, but it happened to catch right at the halfway point of Ning Rongrong's words, effortlessly deflecting 1,000 pounds with 4 ounces. Young lady, Yangqing looked at her with breezy detachment, his tone even carrying a hint of tolerance. If you say other matters were guessed by me blindly, I can choose not to bicker with you. After all, you don't understand. The ignorant are not at fault. He paused. But you saying that I buried gold coins to trick this old gentleman, this I cannot tolerate. Ning Rongrong tilted her head. Why? Yangqing smiled. That smile was extremely open and honest, extremely sincere, and even carried a trace of self-deprecating detachment. Because for every divination I calculate, I only collect 1 bronze coin. He raised an index finger, waving it in front of Ningrongrong. 1 bronze coin. How could I possibly go and bury a whole bag of gold coins for this old gentleman just for this 1 bronze coin? Young lady, do you think I look like someone who does losing business? After he finished speaking, he specifically glanced at the old peasant. The old peasant slowly nodded to Ningrongrong. Indeed, Grandmaster only collected 1 bronze coin from me. Ningrongrong opened her mouth, instantly dumbfounded, and for a moment couldn't even find words. Her brain spun rapidly. The divination fee of 1 bronze coin versus the cost of a whole bag of gold coins, no matter how one calculated this account, it was a loss. But she still didn't believe it. HMPH, Ningrongrong raised her chin once again, her willow-like eyebrows twisting into a pretty knot, her tone certain. You might not necessarily be doing it for money, you might be doing it to build a reputation. If you bury gold coins for this old man and he helps publicize for you everywhere, later on everyone in Soto City will come to find you for divination, won't you earn it back then? Taking a loss to shout and attract business, I've seen plenty of these tricks in Heaven Do City. After she finished speaking, she crossed her arms over her chest with a posture of, let's see how you talk your way out of this. Yangqing didn't move. He leaned against the back of the chair, resting a cattail leaf fan on his knees, narrowed his eyes to look at Ningrongrong for 2 seconds and then smiled. Young lady, he extended a finger and slowly waved it, have you ever calculated an account? 1 gold coin is equal to 10,000 bronze coins. My divination fee is 1 bronze coin per time. According to your theory of taking a loss to attract business, I would have to continuously perform tens of thousands of divinations just to break even. He tilted his head, his tone overwhelmingly sincere. This Soto City has only this many people in total. Whether there are even 10,000 people willing to come find me for divination is still up for debate. Do you think I look like the kind of person willing to gamble such a large capital just to bet on an uncertain outcome? Ningrongrong's lips moved. She still wanted to say something, her pretty brows furrowing even tighter. Reason told her that this entire matter exuded an indescribable oddness. Those seeking children, those seeking gold, each and every one of them looked as if they were written out of a storybook. Before her eyes, this young fortune teller, whose appearance wasn't particularly good-looking nor absolutely ugly, with facial features mediocre to perfection, had the 2 words, swindler, written all over his entire body. Yet she simply couldn't find the needle that could puncture it. Because her train of thought had been boxed in right from the start. Yangqing was a swindler, and those 2 people were victims. She couldn't think of a third possibility. Watching Ningrongrong's appearance of clearly being unable to swallow this breath yet having nowhere to sink her teeth into, Yangqing was crystal clear in his heart. 10 years of experience in taking disciples, he could see right through a person down to the cracks of their bones. Therefore, he had custom-tailored this disciple recruitment banquet specifically for Ningrongrong. Of course, up until now, if he wanted to successfully take Ningrongrong as a disciple, the chips he had accumulated were still not enough. For such a proud daughter of heaven, the more you begged her, the more she would look down her nose at you. It had to be done in reverse. Once the foundational chips were enough. Finally, add 1 more heavy chip on top. He yawned, shook his cattail leaf fan, and leaned back against the back of the chair. All right, if you guys have nothing to do, disperse. He waved at Ningrongrong, his tone as casual as swatting flies, and as for this little miss, if you aren't getting a divination, leave first, this poor Taoist should also pack up his stall. Chapter 3. I know how the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda can turn into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. As expected. Ningrongrong's eyes immediately narrowed. In her entire life, the 2 words she couldn't stand the most were, ignored. If you argued with her, she thought it was normal, if you knelt before her, she thought it was only right, but treating her like air. Slap. An exquisite gold silk cloth bag was slammed heavily onto the divination table, making a heavy, dull sound. Ningrongrong's pretty eyebrows stood up vertically, a playful smile lifting the corners of her lips, her voice crisp and elevated. I have business. Since you are so capable, Grandmaster, why don't you help me tell a fortune too? Yangqing raised an eyebrow. He reached out unhurriedly, took the gold silk cloth bag, untied the drawstring, and glanced inside. Gold coins. A full bag of them. He looked for 2 seconds, then turned his gaze back to Ningrongrong, half asking, half stating, it seems the young lady is from a wealthy family. Pausing, I remember you mentioned the title Douluo earlier. Hearing him bring this up, a trace of smugness finally appeared on Ningrongrong's exquisite face. She crossed her arms over her chest, kept her waist and back straight, raised her chin slightly, and looked at him with full playfulness. Grandmaster, do you not dare? Yangqing chuckled and shook his head. He pinched out a gold coin from the bag, deftly retightened the bag's opening, and pushed it back in front of Ningrongrong. It's not that I don't dare, it's that the young lady gave too much, and I can't make change. He held up that gold coin and spun it between his fingertips. Since the young lady is from a wealthy family, I'll just take 1 gold coin. In return, I'll help the young lady answer a few more questions, ensuring that this gold coin of yours is well spent. Ningrongrong let out a scoff, too lazy to even disguise it. Then I hope Grandmaster keeps your word. She stared at Yangqing, a trace of chilliness seeping out beneath her gentle face. Otherwise, this young miss is not someone easy to fool. Yangqing naturally felt the thorns in those words. But his expression remained completely unchanged. He started waving his cattail leaf fan, leaned back against the chair back, and his posture was excessively leisurely. Speak, what do you want to calculate? 1 gold coin is enough for me to reveal quite a bit of heavenly secrets. Seeing this posture of his, a surge of anger shot straight to Ningrongrong's crown. Maintaining a dignified and gentle expression on the outside, her roots of teeth were already itching with bite. Fine. She took a deep breath and began. Since you are so great, Grandmaster, then help me calculate what my name is, how old I am, what my identity is, what my hobbies are, what my background is, and what I came here to do. Her speech became faster and faster, popping out string after string. What my father's name is, and what my father does. Finally, she stopped, tilted her head to look at Yangqing, her playful and cute posture carrying a blatant, intentional difficulty. And also, guess what this young miss will do to you if you fail to calculate it or get it wrong. She curved her eyes. Guess what this young miss will do to you. Finishing this, Ningrongrong crossed her arms and waited with absolute confidence. The 12-year-old girl was certain the other party wouldn't be able to answer. 1 second. 2 seconds. Yangqing didn't respond immediately. Ningrongrong's smile deepened. In her heart, she was already plotting how to deal with this scammer after he failed to answer. Then she saw Yangqing raise his right hand. His index and middle fingers together, he made a light pinching motion in the air, making a fortune-telling gesture. So pretentious. Extremely pretentious. But immediately after, he spoke. His tone was flat, just like reading out a menu. The young lady's surname is Ning, given name Rongrong, 12 years old this year. Ning Rongrong's smile froze. As for identity, the daughter of 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School Sect Master Ning Fengji. Speaking up to here, Yangqing deliberately paused for a moment. He put on an expression of just right astonishment, the waving of his cattail leaf fan pausing for half a beat, and his voice lowered a bit intentionally, carrying solemnity. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Whoa. Then he continued. Amidst Ning Rongrong's wide-eyed, stunned gaze, he recited it down like chanting scriptures. Hobbies, pranks, being a support-type spirit master, yet always wanting to be an attack type. Background is one of the 3 great sects under heaven, the only 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School that is truly rolling in wealth. Ning Rongrong's breathing grew noticeably rapid. Purpose of coming here, to enroll in a, well, unlicensed academy named Shrek. When he said the 3 words, unlicensed, he even nodded slightly, his expression extremely agreeable. Your father, Ning Fengji, the contemporary sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. If I hadn't calculated it, without you even having to tell me, those things your father gave you. Enough. Ning Rongrong suddenly spoke up to interrupt. Her face darkened. Completely darkened. Because she could already feel the gazes of the onlookers around her falling on her one by one. Her identity, her sect, her father's name. Having these things shouted out loud by a fortune teller in public was equivalent to stripping her bare. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath. The gentle and proper demeanor she had previously maintained on her face had vanished completely. Replacing it was a cold, prey-inspecting solemnity. She stared dead at Yangqing. You know me. Not a question, but a statement. Yangqing shook his head. Or. Ning Rongrong lowered her voice, her exquisite little face leaning closer to the table, her waist leaning forward until she was almost right in front of Yangqing. She carried a slight fragrance when she spoke, but the words she spat out were wrapped in chilliness. It was my father who sent you. Yangqing still shook his head. He still squinted inscrutably, his smile undiminished. I just calculated it myself. Miss Ning Rongrong, if you really don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. That tone even carried a bit of helplessness. The kind of helplessness that makes people extremely angry. Ning Rongrong's pupils constricted slightly. She completely reined in all her playfulness and cuteness, her entire aura changing in that single instant. What the 12-year-old girl displayed at this moment was the side that everyone in the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School in Heaven Do City called the Little Demon. Then there's only one possibility left. Her voice was extremely light and low, suppressed within a range only the 2 of them could hear. You are a scoundrel who has been plotting this for a long time and waiting for me here. She stared into Yangqing's eyes, word by word. If you confess now, I can pretend nothing happened. Pausing for a beat. Otherwise, don't blame this young miss for being impolite. The exquisite smiling face at close range exuded real, solid chilliness. Yangqing felt it. To be honest, Ning Rongrong guessed correctly. He indeed was a scoundrel who had been plotting this for a long time and waiting for her here. But so what? Regardless of whether this expression meant Ning Rongrong had indeed cleverly figured out the truth, or if it was mixed with broken defense emotions intending to overturn the chessboard directly. The bargaining chips Yangqing wanted had all been accumulated. His expression remained completely unchanged, as calm as usual, and he even had the mind to appreciate this genuinely good-looking face at close range. Then he asked a counter question instead of answering. Then how does Miss Ning Rongrong think I can make you believe I'm not a fraud? The cattail leaf fan gently swayed. Or rather, how can I prove to you that I haven't lied to the young lady? Ning Rongrong's gaze grew completely cold. In the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School in Heaven Do City, she was someone everyone called the Little Demon. Those who provoked her never had a good end. She was about to speak. Yangqing took a step ahead. His tone remained as flat as if he were discussing the nice weather today. Or rather, if I told you, I know how the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda can turn into the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. Chapter 4. Fraud, do you know what you are talking about? The air froze. Ning Rongrong's pupils suddenly contracted. Fraud, do you know what you are talking about? Ning Rongrong's voice wasn't loud, but every word sounded like it contained crushed ice. The layer of carefully maintained gentleness and dignity on her face shattered completely the moment those words fell. It was replaced by a chilling coldness that she herself hadn't even realized. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda turning into 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. To others, these 7 words might just be empty boastful talk. But to Ning Rongrong, this was her father Ning Fengji's lifelong obsession, the ultimate pursuit for which successive sect masters of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School had gone forward wave upon wave and remained steadfast unto death for over a millennium, an obsession carved deep into her bones ever since the day she awakened grade 9 innate spirit power at the age of 6. Something the entire school couldn't accomplish in 1,000 years. Was casually spoken by this roadside vendor in front of her in a nonchalant tone. It was as if he were just talking about how the weather was nice today. Ning Rongrong narrowed her eyes and stared at Yangqing. She narrowed her eyes when she was angry, but those eyes were still excessively pretty, like 2 crescents covered in frost. Yangqing secretly gave himself a thumbs up in his heart. Pretty, truly pretty. This fiercely cute look was much more pleasing to the eye than her previous fake gentle appearance. As expected of the system certified super beauty, even her anger was pleasing to the eye. The matter of taking an apprentice had become a bit more stable. But on the surface, he remained completely motionless. The cattail fan was still waving listlessly in his hand, his body still leaning against the back of the chair, his eyelids slightly lifted, looking at Ning Rongrong with a gaze carrying an almost tolerant calmness. This poor Taoist naturally knows what he is talking about. His tone was definitive. Pausing for a beat, he tilted his head to look at Ning Rongrong with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. Or could it be that eldest Miss Ning Rongrong cannot understand this poor Taoist's words? Ning Rongrong's expression sank even further in that instant. She didn't speak immediately. The air fell silent for 3 seconds. Yangqing acutely captured the dangerous signal within this silence. He knew Ning Rongrong was probably wavering between 2 options at this moment. First, continue talking with him. Second, directly summon the guards in the dark to deal with him. He had to bet that she would choose the first one. Take a gamble, and a bicycle turns into a motorcycle. Yangqing maintained outward composure, but his heart had already stretched tight like a taut string. Fortunately, he had been acting for 10 years, and his thick skin and acting skills had long broken through human limits. Ning Rongrong sized him up back and forth. That gaze scraped across his face almost inch by inch, carrying scrutiny and conjecture. Finally, she spoke. Do you know what the consequences for deceiving this young miss with this? Ning Rongrong's voice returned to calm, but that calmness made one's spine chill even more than anger. If you take back these words now, this young miss will treat it as your brain not being clear and won't haggle with you. She paused for a moment. If you insist on deceiving this young miss with this matter. The little girl tilted her head, revealing a very sweet smile. This young miss guarantees that within the entire Heaven Do Empire, you will have no path to heaven and no door to enter the earth. After hearing this, Yongqing hardened his heart. He only had 10 days left in his entire life. 10 days later, either he becomes a titled Douluo, or the system runs away and he goes back to continuing his good-for-nothing trash. Either way it was a dead end, so what was there to fear from threats? Therefore, he laughed. It wasn't the unfathomable smile from before, he suddenly threw his head back and laughed out loud. The laughter echoed in front of the stall, causing several passers-by to look sideways. Ning Rongrong was dumbfounded by his sudden laughter, her willow eyebrows twisting into a dead knot. Having laughed enough, Yongqing lowered his head, looked at Ning Rongrong, his tone carrying a bit of helplessness and a bit of amusement. Eldest Miss Ning Rongrong, did you think wrong? He waved his hand. I said I knew how to turn the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda just to casually corroborate my own ability. He raised a finger and waved it in front of him. This is not included in your 1 gold coin service. Ning Rong was stunned. Yongqing continued, his tone breezy, whether you care if it's true or false, what does it have to do with me? Rest assured. He stood up and began packing up the sign that read, omniscient and omnipotent. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you. Ning Rongrong's expression changed instantly. You. A single, you, slipped out of her mouth, but the subsequent words were stuck in her throat. Yongqing gave her no chance to respond at all, briskly beginning to dismantle the stall, saying as he dismantled, the service for 1 gold coin has been completed, Miss Ning. This poor Taoist divination quota for today is full, and I am closing up the stall. He didn't even look back. Walk slowly, Miss Ning. Ning Rongrong stood in place, her expression changing 4 times within 3 seconds. Astonishment, anger, resentment, hesitation. She watched with her own eyes as Yongqing turned his back to her and stuffed the things on the table into his bundle one by one. After turning around, Yongqing deliberately slowed down every movement by 3 times. Folding the cloth leisurely, putting away the brush leisurely. A thin layer of sweat seeped out of his palms. He was gambling. In his conception, Ning Rongrong developing an interest in this question and continuing to press further was the scenario with the lowest risk and highest return. If Ning Rongrong turned around and left right now, there would definitely still be opportunities to hook her later, but there would be far too many variables. At most in a day or two, today's conversation here would be transmitted word for word into the ears of Ning Fengji thousands of miles away. By that time, the one coming to find him might no longer be this cute yet fierce little loli, but Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, or even Ning Fengji himself. Then he would really have to reincarnate and start over. Quickly call me back, hurry up. Yongqing chanted silently in his heart. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Stop. Ning Rongrong's voice came from behind. An explosion sounded in Yongqing's heart. It's secure. But his physical reaction was nothing short of perfection. His movements paused slightly, as if somewhat surprised, and then he slowly turned his head back. His face wore just the right amount of confusion. Huh, does Miss Ning still have business? He blinked. Do you feel this poor Taoist service just now wasn't enough? Looking at Yongqing's expression of clearly doing it on purpose yet pretending not to know, Ning Rongrong's tooth roots itched so much she could grind out sparks. She seriously suspected this person was doing it on purpose. But she endured it. Because uncontrollably flashing through her mind were a few images. That old farmer really did find the gold coin, that old man's wife really did become pregnant, this person really did rattle off all her information in one breath, and even new secrets she had never told outsiders, like her wanting to become an attack-type spirit master. What if? What if it's true? What if he really knew how the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda turns into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda? This, what if, pierced into her heart like a thorn, unable to be pulled out. Ning Rongrong gritted her teeth. Smack. That gold silk cloth bag was slapped onto the table surface for the second time. The method to turn the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. She stared into Yongqing's eyes. How many gold coins? Inside, Yongqing was already so happy he had turned several somersaults. But on his face, he revealed a look of difficulty. Shaking his head, his tone was as breezy and light as ever, yet carried a hint of helplessness. Miss Ning, this question cannot be solved with gold coins. Chapter 5 Successful Disciple Recruitment. Ning Rongrong's expression instantly sank. What do you mean? Yongqing sighed and sat back down on the chair, even though half of his stall had already been dismantled. My fortune-telling skills are passed down from my family. His tone was slow, as if he were talking about a very heavy matter. Calculating things for others leaks heavenly secrets and will incur heavenly retribution. I only collect soul coins as a small compensation for myself, and I only dare to do a few readings a day. He paused and looked at Ning Rongrong. The transformation from the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda to the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda involves top-tier spirits, top-tier sects, and even the changing winds of the continent. The heavenly secrets within are too heavy. With my endurance, I cannot afford to calculate it, nor am I willing to. His gaze drifted away slightly. The price is too high. Ning Rongrong stared at him intently, unable to tell whether these words were true or false. Just as she was pondering what to say next. Then she heard Yongqing speak again. Unless. The trailing sound lingered for a moment. There was no continuation. Ning Rongrong waited for 2 seconds, and seeing that he didn't speak, the fire in her chest surged up again instantly. Unless what? Yongqing put on a hesitant expression. My lineage, fortune-telling for those close to oneself has a smaller price. He spoke slowly, as if weighing his words. I don't plan to marry and have children, and I probably won't have descendants in the future. So I've always wanted to find a disciple and pass down my skills. He looked at Ning Rongrong. If it's my disciple asking me to calculate this, I might just make a move and try. Stopping for a beat. Otherwise, after calculating it, I wouldn't have many years left to live. The air fell silent for a full 5 seconds. Then Ning Rongrong laughed. It wasn't that kind of polite smile, but rather the kind of smile after being driven to the extreme of anger. So. Her voice rose by 3 degrees, and the gently maintained gentle image shattered completely at this moment, not leaving a single fragment. From the beginning to the end, you just wanted to take me as a disciple. She pointed at Yangqing, her hand trembling. Couldn't you just say it straight from the beginning, going such a huge circle? She took a deep breath and spat out a sentence. You damn swindler, do you deserve it? Hearing these words, Yangqing knew the act had come to an end. Pretending any further had no meaning. In his heart, within a few short seconds, he forcibly suppressed the surging nervousness, and a magnanimous, smiling expression floated onto his face. Whether I deserve it or not, I don't get to say. He looked at Ning Rongrong, his tone suddenly becoming a bit more serious. Miss Ning Rongrong, are you willing to be my disciple? He raised a finger. You sign, and I will immediately tell you how the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda turns into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. I will tell you on the spot. Ning Rongrong originally had everything under control, but she couldn't help but have her chest heave with anger again due to his shameless yet magnanimous attitude. What if it's fake? She stepped closer. What if the method you gave is nonsense? Do you know what the consequences of deceiving me are? Yangqing smiled slightly. I know. He narrowed his eyes, his tone leisurely. It just depends on whether you, Miss Ning Rongrong, dare to take a gamble. Within those eyes, there was a blatant provocation. As for what my ultimate consequence will be, there's no need to trouble Miss Ning. Ning Rongrong's pupils constricted. She was provoked. She, the dignified young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school in the little devil of Heaven Do City, when had she ever been provoked by the 3 words, do you dare? You. Or could it be, Yangqing leisurely added a knife, that the esteemed Miss Ning doesn't dare? Who doesn't dare? Ning Rongrong's voice almost blurted out. The moment the words left her mouth she regretted it, but in front of Yangqing's smiling face, she couldn't swallow this breath. Sign then sign. Yangqing moved. His hand reached into his bosom at an incredibly smooth speed, pulling out a roll of rough paper, a writing brush, and a piece of red ink pad. The 3 items were neatly placed on the tabletop. The rough paper was unfolded, and all the terms of the master-disciple contract were already written on it. The master's column clearly filled in the 2 characters, Yangqing, and next to it was pressed a bright red fingerprint. The ink was already dry. Looking at this scene, Ning Rongrong suddenly sobered up by 30%. Quote. She stared at the contract, then looked at Yangqing, her gaze full of, are you sick in the head? How come your movements are so fast? She retreated half a step. How come your equipment is so complete? She retreated another half a step. You couldn't have used this routine to scam many people before, right? Yangqing's expression reached the extreme of sincerity. The first time. He said it decisively. Definitely the first time. Ning Rongrong looked at him half-believingly. Sign quickly, Yangqing urged, tapping his finger on the blank space of the contract. After signing, I will immediately tell you the method. Cash it out on the spot, absolutely no delaying. Wait. Aren't you going to enroll in that Shrek? Yangqing picked up the words extremely fast. Rest assured, taking a master doesn't affect you doing anything. I am just taking you as a disciple, not restricting your freedom. You want to go to school, go to school. You want to go shopping, go shopping. Sign and I'll tell you. 7 treasure turns to 9 treasure. A millennia-old puzzle, revealed on the spot. Ning Rong's mind was left buzzing by this series of urging. She lowered her head and looked at that contract. As if possessed by a ghost, she picked up the writing brush. Dipped in ink. Wrote down her name. Pressed her fingerprint. The moment the tactile sensation of the red ink pad printed on the paper surface was transmitted to her fingertips, Ning Rongrong suddenly sobered up entirely. She looked at the bright red fingerprint on the paper, then looked at the 3 characters, Ning Rongrong, written by her own hand beside it, leaving only a single thought in her mind. What am I doing? How did I, inexplicably take a roadside fortune-telling swindler as my master? A proper master-disciple relationship on the Douluo continent was just like that between father and son. If word of this got out, the dignified young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, the little devil of Heaven Do City who made people tremble in fear, was tricked into becoming a disciple on the streets of Sodo City by a street vendor who didn't even know if he had spirit power. Her face. Where would she put it? Ning Rongrong's complexion turned red, then white, and then cyan at a speed visible to the naked eye. Hey. She suddenly raised her head, her voice raising to its highest point. I renege, this doesn't count, give me back the contract, I want to tear it up. I don't want to know about the 7 treasure turning to 9 treasure matter anymore. However, when her voice reached Yangxing's ears, it was as if separated by a layer of water. Because at this moment, all of Yangxing's mind was occupied by a series of prompt tones suddenly sounding in his mind, leaving him no time to care about Ning Rongrong's speed of light reneging. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully taking a disciple, Ning Rongrong. Ding. System judgment. Godhood potential, meets minimum standards. Top tier talent, meets minimum standards. Super appearance, meets standards. Ding. Conducting task evaluation. Evaluation complete. Ding. Due to detecting that the host's first disciple guideline compliance rate is 80%. Limit Douluo strength starting to be sealed. Yangxing's pupils suddenly dilated. What kind of joke is this? What is going on here? And you're even sealing my cultivation base. You even look down on Ning Rongrong. Are you out of your mind? Tilda in the end, she actually became a god. You damn system, stop right now. Yangqing only felt his entire person panic in great alarm, but the system's footsteps would not stop for him. Ding. Sealing successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the mission reward. 99th rank limit title Douluo cultivation set details. 1. Custom spirit ability. 2. Normal state 90th rank title Douluo strength. 3. Unseal 99th rank limit title Douluo strength for 1 minute every month. Ding. Mission reward has been deposited into the backpack. The host can claim it at any time. Fearing someone might be dissuaded by this chapter, let me state the settings for the male lead in advance. On one hand, Ning Rongrong's aptitude is indeed insufficient for realistic reasons. On the other hand, there is no intention of restricting the protagonist's strength. 1 minute of 99th rank strength, as long as the protagonist chooses some spirit abilities that allow him to control the execution of abilities at the millisecond level, similar to time typer control type 1s, it will be fine. 1 minute is enough for the protagonist to use it a few thousand or 10,000 times. Simply put, it's point-blank assassination. The protagonist just needs to use the 99th rank strength at the exact moment he casts the skill or hits the opponent with his fist. In fact, each attack takes only a fraction of a millisecond. 1 minute is way more than enough to spend, absolutely impossible to run out. Chapter 6 Impervious to Reason. Hey, did you hear what I said? Ning Rong's voice had already been raised to a quite impolite pitch. She stood 3 steps behind Yangqing, her chest heaving violently, her almond-shaped eyes wide open, and her delicate face flushed red. Ever since signing the contract just now, she had shouted, "Cancel the contract," at the back of Yang Xing's head no less than 10 times. Not once did she get a response. Not even once. This man acted as if he were deaf, standing there motionless with his face turned toward the south of the city, like a wooden stake erected by the roadside. Ning Rongrong had never been ignored like this before. Never ever. In the 7 treasure glazed tile school, when she spoke a single word, 30 servants rushed to answer. In Heaven Do City, if she frowned, the people around her would practically kneel and ask her where she felt uncomfortable. And now, a roadside fortune teller tricked her into signing a contract, and then turned around, treating her like air. What about her face? In front of so many people. As the dignified young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, no one paid attention after she shouted at someone's back more than a dozen times. The gazes cast by the onlookers around her poked into her back like needles. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath. She could not take it anymore. She could not endure it. Putting aside any image of a lady for now, she was going to go up and grab this swindlers. She lifted her foot and took a step forward. Then she stopped. Because she saw something. Yang Xing's shoulders were shaking. It was not the shaking of anger. It was that kind of tremor as if holding something back. Ning Rongrong tilted her head, suspiciously walking around to the side to get a clear look at his expression. Then she froze entirely. Yang Xing was crying. It was not wailing, but a silent kind of crying where 2 lines of clear tears flowed down his cheeks. His eyes gazed into the distance, his focus scattered as if looking at something very, very far away, his lips pressed into a thin line, and his entire expression was filled with 4 characters. Too devastated for tears. It was that extreme pain of having treasure stolen, heirloom items lost, and a wife running away with someone else. Ning Rong's footsteps were nailed to the spot. She opened her mouth, her belly full of anger solidly blocked by the scene. That feeling was very complicated. It was like rolling up your sleeves to viciously beat someone up, only to turn around and find the other person shedding tears. Raising her fist was not right, and putting it down was not right either. Quote. Hey. Ning Rongrong's tone unconsciously softened by a few degrees, but it still carried a full 10 parts of bewilderment and 3 parts of annoyance. What are you crying about? She crossed her arms, her chin slightly raised, her tone wrapped in an indescribable awkwardness. I have not cried even after being scammed by a swindler like you, yet you, someone who has taken a massive advantage of this young miss, what are you crying for? Yang Xing finally reacted. He slowly turned his head. 2 tear stains hung on his cheeks, shimmering in the afternoon sunlight. Paired with a face that was not top-tier handsome yet had a bit of delicate refinement, it unexpectedly produced a sort of inexplicable sense of desolation. It is nothing. His voice was hoarse, as if squeezed out from the depths of his throat. I just remembered, my wife at home is pregnant and about to give birth. Ning Rongrong blinked. I cannot rush back to take care of her. Yang Xing wiped his face, his voice muffled, so I am sad. 3 seconds of silence. Swish. Ning Rongrong bounced back a large step like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, almost tripping over her own skirt. Her face was full of suspicion, her gaze sliding from Yang Xing's face down to his feet and back up again, sizing him up and down several times. Wait. She extended one hand, palm facing Yang Xing, her voice full of disbelief. Swindler, you do not look that old either, you already have a wife and kids. Yang Xing lifted his eyelids to look at her without speaking. Ning Rongrong's brain spun at top speed. Wrong. She began to shake her head, shaking it like a rattle drum, and started muttering to herself. No way, you already have a wife and kids. If I really become your apprentice, would I not inexplicably end up with a master's wife over my head? And worse, maybe a junior marshal brother. The more she thought about it, the more absurd it felt. As the dignified young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, she took a roadside fortune-telling swindler as her master, only to have a pregnant master's wife waiting at home for her to address respectfully. And then a few months later, a little junior brother would pop out. Did Ning Rongrong want her dignity anymore? Once this thought arose, Ning Rongrong's gaze changed. She gracefully took a few steps over to Yang Xing, forced to tilt her head up due to the height difference, and then reached out one hand, fiercely grabbing Yang Xing's collar. Give me the contract. Her voice was bossy, popping out word by word, her tone so resolute that it allowed no rebuttal. Cancel it, now, immediately, right away. Yang Xing lowered his head to look at the fair, tender little hand clutching his collar. Then a very miraculous thing happened. The tears on his face just vanished like that. Like a magic trick, he casually wiped his face with one hand, and not even tear stains remained. The previous second he was as grief-stricken as if his own father had died, and the next second his facial expression flattened. Completely blank. It was not unfathomable, nor was it feigning coolness, but a wooden stake-like blankness that completely failed to convey any emotion. His eyes were half open as he looked down at Ning Rongrong, his lips moving slightly. No. 2 words. Popped out like they came from a tree hole. Dry, without any temperature, and without any room for negotiation. Ning Rongrong was utterly thrown off by this face-changing speed, stunned for a split second. Refused. Yang Xing added another word. Then his expression remained the same, his facial features were neatly placed on his face, but put together they exuded a feeling of, no matter what you say, it is useless, I have already shut down. The corners of his mouth neither turned up nor down. His eyes were open neither too wide nor too small. Just like a statue placed by someone on the roadside, it had facial features but no soul. Ning Rongrong's temple twitched. My contract with Miss Ning has already taken effect. Yang Xing's tone was as bland as reading a menu. If Miss Ning wants to know the method for turning the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, I can calculate it for you right now. Ning Rongrong's gaze shifted slightly. 7 treasures turning into 9 treasures. Those 4 characters were like a hook, precisely snagging a certain string in her heart. For a split second, she felt tempted. Truly, it was only for an instant. But immediately after, she clenched her back teeth, swallowing that bit of wavering back down alive. I do not want it. She shook her head, shaking it decisively. I do not want any 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. I want you to cancel the master-disciple contract with me. Yang Xing looked at her. He shook his head. Ning Rongrong widened her eyes. You must agree. She lowered her voice, carrying a hint of threat in her tone. Yang Xing shook his head again. The same expression, the same amplitude, the same wooden blankness. Like a machine that only knew how to execute the command of shaking its head. Ning Rongrong's chest felt like it was stuffed with a ball of fire, burning her internal organs in pain. Do you know who I am? Head shake. Do you believe I can beat you up right now? Head shake. I am going home right away. I am not going to the academy either. I will find Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Jiu to beat you up. Ning Rongrong took a step forward, her finger almost poking the tip of Yongxing's nose. Do you know what kind of strength my Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Jiu possess? Title Douluo. Do you understand what a title Douluo is? They can crush you to death with just a single finger. Yongxing looked at her. There wasn't even a trace of fluctuation on his face. Then, he shook his head. Impervious to reason. Completely impermeable. Impregnable. Ning Rongrong felt that all the anger she had accumulated in her entire life didn't amount to as much as this single moment today. Ever since she was a child, whether she acted spoiled or aggressive, there was no one she couldn't handle. In the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, with its thousands of people up and down, who wasn't at the beck and call of a single word from her. Now she ran into someone like this. She couldn't find words to describe this smelly, stubborn stone in front of her. Soft tactics didn't work, so she could only. Wah. Ning Rongrong abruptly squatted down on the ground. Her white dress spread across the ground, her hands covered her face, and her shoulders began to twitch. You are bullying me. The voice squeezed out from between her fingers, carrying a crying tone, wrong to the extreme. I came here to enroll in Shrek. I left home all by myself, ran such a long way, and I don't know a single person. Her voice grew more and more miserable. The carriage bumped around for 3 days on the way, and I was carsick to death. When I got here, I was unfamiliar with the place, and on the very first day, I got scammed by a swindler like you. Her shoulders trembled even more violently. I'll be laughed to death when I go back. I am a young lady of noble birth, yet I inexplicably took some roadside fortune teller as my master. How am I going to face people in the future? The crying was intermittent, with tears streaming down her face. Saddening to anyone who heard it. If one ignored the fact that she secretly glanced upward several times while squatting on the ground. However, when Ning Rongrong stole another upward glance for the 4th time, she discovered a problem. There was no sound. It wasn't the kind of silence of watching her cry quietly. It was truly silent. She exposed one eye from between her fingers. Yongxing's stall was empty. That wooden post-like person had unknowingly retreated several meters away silently. He was bending over to pack up his sign that read, omniscient and omnipotent, his steps as light as an oil-stealing mouse, sneaking toward the alley entrance. Ning Rongrong petrified entirely for 0.3 seconds. Then her eyes widened to their maximum limit. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? She was crying here. He was sneaking away. You stop right there. Ning Rongrong catapulted up from the ground, flicked her white dress, and dashed behind Yongxing in 2 or 3 steps, grabbing tightly onto the back of his clothes with both hands. You are not allowed to leave. Her voice was shrill and sharp, and her face still bore the tear tracks from her fake crying earlier. Paired with her angry and anxious almond-shaped eyes, she looked precisely like a little bully holding up someone on the road for robbery. Cancel the contract. Having his clothes grabbed, Yongxing paused for a moment. He turned his head, looked at Ning Rongrong's face covered in both tears and anger, and sighed. That breath came out from his nasal cavity, carrying a genuine sense of helplessness. Miss Ning. He turned around, softening his tone by a few notches. You can just pretend that contract doesn't exist. I won't restrict your freedom anyway. Go ahead and enroll, go ahead and shop. Won't it be fine if you just treat me as non-existent? Ning Rongrong's hand gripping his clothes did not loosen. No. That contract was handwritten by myself, and it has practically no binding effect at all. It's just a piece of paper, it really doesn't matter. No. As long as you don't want to acknowledge me as your master, I won't tell anyone. Nor will I appear in front of you. I will vanish without a trace, it really won't affect you. No. Ning Rongrong's willow-like eyebrows stood upright, her gaze nailed to Yongxing's face, refusing to back down even a single word. Watching her impervious appearance, Yongxing suddenly found this scene somewhat familiar. It looked extremely similar to how he had shaken his head to reject her just moments ago. Retribution came far too quickly. Are you worried that I will take this contract to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School to take advantage of you? Ning Rongrong nodded. I promise I won't. I will definitely not go. Ning Rongrong nodded again. But the hand gripping his clothes still didn't loosen by even a fraction. It must be torn up. Yongxing looked at this stubborn little face, which still carried a few tear tracks, her brows furrowed and lips pressed tightly together, looking like a little stubborn donkey that refused to turn back once it locked onto a direction. His gaze shifted away from Ning Rongrong's face and swept around their surroundings. Oh no. At some unknown point, a thick circle of people had surrounded them. Men, women, old, and young were pointing and whispering. There were vendors joining in the excitement, wagon drivers who had put down their cargo and stretched their necks, and several aunties cracking melon seeds with great gusto. Look quickly, that little girl is crying. Did that kid bully her? I don't think so, it seems to be about some master-disciple contract. The little girl is quite pitiful. The corner of Yongxing's mouth twitched. He lowered his head, looking at Ning Rongrong who was still gripping his clothes with a stubborn expression so fierce she looked like she was about to crush her teeth, and lowered his voice. Miss Ning. He gestured toward the surroundings with his eyes. Look around you. Ning Rongrong's gaze finally moved away from Yongxing's face and swept a glance around. Then her face turned from pale to red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Those onlookers, those gloating gazes, those whispers, were all directed at her. She had just squatted on the ground crying publicly, grabbed a man's clothes in public refusing to let him leave, and shouted things like, cancel the contract, and, you are bullying me, in broad daylight. This scene falling into the eyes of outsiders. Ning Rongrong's earlobes burned up. Whether you want to refuse to be my disciple or want me to tell you the method to transform the 7 treasure into the 9 treasure. Yongxing's voice was very low, audible only to the two of them. Let's go to a place with fewer people to talk first, all right? He paused for a beat. Or should we continue making fools of ourselves together right here? Ning Rongrong bit her lips hard. Her gaze swept back and forth between Yongxing and the surrounding crowd several times. Those gazes were like fine needles, poking at her already scarce dignity. She struggled for 3 seconds, 5 seconds. She finally loosened her hand gripping Yongxing's clothes. Quote. Let's go. A single word was squeezed out from between her teeth. Her bright eyes still retained a hint of moisture from her earlier fake crying, coupled with an expression of gritting her teeth. She tossed her final sentence slowly to Yongxing. You had better not be thinking of doing anything untoward to this young lady. She stared into Yongxing's eyes. Otherwise you will regret it. Yongxing looked at the fierce yet spoiled little face before her, whose tear tracks had not yet dried but was already exuding a threatening aura. The string in his heart that had been tightly strung for a long time finally relaxed by half. He smiled slightly and lifted his foot to walk forward. Rest assured. I'm afraid of death, follow me. Ning Rongrong let out a cold hum, turned her head, flicked her white dress, and followed behind Yangqing like a little tail, but she always strictly maintained a distance of 5 to 6 meters, looking precisely like a rebellious young lady throwing a tantrum with her family. Chapter 8 Spirit Ability Selection. Next, Yangqing led Ning Rongrong through the winding streets and alleys of Soto City. The alleys of Soto City became narrower and narrower the further they walked. Ning Rongrong held up the hem of her skirt and followed behind Yangqing, passing through one unfamiliar alley after another, her expression growing increasingly unsightly. Where on earth are you taking me? Ning Rongrong maintained a safe distance of 5 or 6 meters behind Yangqing. The numerous large and small bags she was carrying had long since become such a nuisance that she just wanted to throw them by the roadside. However, the belongings of the young miss of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School could not be thrown away. Yangqing walked ahead, his pace unhurried and steady. I'm taking you to where I live. Without turning his head, Yangqing replied in an utterly matter-of-fact tone, there are few people there, which makes it convenient to talk. Ning Rongrong's footsteps came to a halt. They came to a complete halt. In that instant, the way she looked at Yangqing changed, as if she were looking at a piece of roadside scum. You. Her voice pitched up by a full octave. Could it be that seeing how naturally beautiful and clever this young miss is, you actually want to do something improper to me? With one hand on her hip and the other holding a bag while pointing at the back of Yangqing's head, Ning Rongrong's disdain was so thick it seemed it could drip from her brows and eyes. Are you out of your mind? Yangqing didn't stop walking. Hearing the bold and wild words coming from behind, a thought flashed through his mind. It was exactly the same as what was written in the novels before his transmigration. Don't look at Ning Rongrong is only 12 years old, her mouth was bolder than many adults. He wondered who she learned it from. Was this item included in the tutoring curriculum of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School? Miss Ning. Yangqing spoke indifferently, still without turning his head. Ever since we got to know each other, haven't you said R-rated things at least 7 or 8 times? He raised a finger and waved it in the air. Yet I haven't said a single one. If we're talking about impropriety, it should be you, young Miss Ning Rongrong, right? Ning Rongrong's lips moved, and the words that had reached her mouth were blocked back. A momentary speechlessness flashed across her face, but she quickly recovered her arrogant expression, letting out a cold snort from her nostrils. That's because this young miss is open and above board. She raised her chin. Who knows if you're the kind of gloomy, scheming person who hides their true intentions beneath the surface. Having finished, she looked at Yangqing's back as he strode forward without the slightest intention of stopping, paced back and forth in place for 2 steps, and still gritted her teeth to follow him. As the two went deeper into the urban area, the surrounding scenery began to change. It changed from the bustling main street to remote alleys, and from neat stone bricks to bumpy dirt roads. The buildings on both sides became increasingly dilapidated, with peeling wall plaster and crooked eaves, occasionally seeing a few stray cats darting through the broken walls and ruins. Ning Rongrong's footsteps began to become cautious. She stood on tiptoe, as if stepping on something unclean, her delicate little face scrunched up into a ball, and her thumb and forefinger pinching her nose. What kind of ghost place on earth do you live in? Her voice carried a heavy nasal tone. Why hasn't it arrived after walking so far? We're almost there. Yangqing's voice came from ahead, perfunctory to the extreme. We'll be there after turning 7 or 8 corners. 7 or 8 corners. Ning Rongrong was nearly tripped by a protruding piece of gravel on the ground, so angry that she wanted to smash the bags in her hand over. But what she didn't know was that Yangqing, who was walking ahead at this moment, had long since had his mind off this road. All his attention was immersed in the system panel floating in his field of vision that only he could see. Time waits for no one. Claiming the reward in such a broken alley was, on one hand, because Ning Rongrong might have hidden guards around her, so he had to grasp his strength in his hands before reaching the house, otherwise, in case those hidden guards made a move against him, he wouldn't even have the qualification to fight back. On the other hand, once he got to the house, he would need capital to persuade Ning Rongrong. Having bluffed with empty teeth for so long, if he didn't show some real things, he probably wouldn't be able to truly persuade Ning Rongrong. He needed strength. Immediately, right now. With a thought from Yangqing, he brought up the system inventory. Lying in the inventory was a ball of light, with a few large golden characters floating on it, rank 99 ultimate title Douluo cultivation suit. He clicked to claim it. Ding, do you wish to use it? Yes. The next moment, a blue translucent option screen emerged before his eyes. A line of words was written clearly on it. Please customize your spirit ability first, host, before proceeding to the next step of cultivation and fusion. Yangqing's mind moved slightly. Can I define this spirit ability however I want? Ding, yes, host, you can customize any form of spirit ability, including but not limited to any ability system, anime skill, or independent design known from your past life. The system will carry out adaptive transformation. Yangqing muttered mischievously. System, why are you still here? Didn't you say you would disappear once I completed the mission? He remembered clearly that the system intelligence had previously said it would disappear after taking the first disciple and completing the initial mission. Ning Rongrong had already signed the contract, so why hadn't this thing left yet? Ding, host, I will completely fulfill my mission and disappear after assisting you in fully using the mission reward for the first time. This is the last service. This was the last time. Yangqing's mind fell silent for a fleeting moment. Then he hypocritically squeezed out a heartbroken expression in his mind. Oh, now that you put it like that, I really feel a bit reluctant to part with you. After all, you've kept me company for 10 years. Leaving just like that is a bit too heartless. Ding, thank you very much for the host's reluctance to part. I have also been very happy during these 10 years of accompanying the host. I believe the host will surely grow stronger and stronger in the future, stepping onto the peak of life. Yangqing sneered contemptuously in his mind. Now that the time has come, you're suddenly getting all sentimental. But curse as he might, an indescribable melancholy did indeed well up from the bottom of his heart. 10 years. Although the system intelligence was both stupid and fond of bragging, it was truly the only existence in this world that knew all his past. His transmigration, his past life, and those heartfelt words he couldn't tell anyone, only the system had ever listened to them. From now on, he would truly be all alone. Melancholy aside. Yangqing's footsteps still didn't stop. 10 years of wind and frost had long since honed his personality to be much more resilient. Since the facts were already set in stone, what the hell was the use of mourning the spring and lamenting the autumn? Strength was everything. He withdrew his thoughts, and his mind pushed forward. What is my spirit ring configuration? Ding, the host's spirit ring configuration is the most perfect standard. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. A total of 9 rings. They are respectively, first spirit ring 999 years, second spirit ring 999 years, third spirit ring 9999 years, fourth spirit ring 9999 years, fifth spirit ring 99999 years, sixth spirit ring 99999 years, seventh spirit ring 99999 years, eighth spirit ring 99999 years, ninth spirit ring 19999 years. All with the limit years of their corresponding colors. Yangqing looked at this set of data. To be honest, compared to the protagonists in the novels he had read whose first spirit rings were casually 100,000-year-old and subsequent ones were hundreds of thousands or millions of years old, this really wasn't exaggerated. But it was enough. This was obtained for free. It was all profit with zero investment. Moreover, he clearly remembered that in this world of the Douluo continent, there were plenty of opportunities to improve the quality of spirit rings. Things like deep-sea sunken silver for titled Douluo, the ice and fire yin-yang well, and all kinds of heavenly treasures. He, Yangqing, had foresight, so he could just take his time. The most important thing was that placing this set of spirit ring configuration on the present Douluo continent, it was definitely a unique existence in its own tier. Without exception. What about my spirit? Still that little wooden stick? This was the question Yangqing cared about the most. As the dignified youngest titled Douluo of the continent in the future, if his spirit was still carrying a little wooden stick out to meet people, wouldn't he lose all his face? Ding, the spirit will undergo adaptive enhancement after the cultivation and fusion, and at that time its form will be automatically adjusted according to the spirit ability system chosen by the host. Adaptive enhancement. Fine. As long as it's not a little wooden stick, that's fine. Yangqing put his mind at ease and began to seriously consider the selection of his spirit ability. This was of the utmost importance. Among the 9 spirit rings, the 7th one was the spirit avatar, which was fixed and didn't need to be chosen. The remaining 8 spirit rings corresponded to 8 spirit abilities, and he had to choose a capability system that best suited him. A series of powerful skills from his past life memories flashed through his mind. 8 extraordinary techniques. 12 talismans. Devil fruits. Various heaven-defying abilities from domestic and Japanese anime. Yangqing struggled for a few seconds and finally locked his gaze on 2 options. The Outcast, 8 extraordinary techniques. Jackie Chan Adventures, 12 talismans. Chapter 9 8 extraordinary techniques. In terms of pure energy level performance, the 12 talismans crush the 8 extraordinary techniques. Every single one of the 12 talismans, when released, produces a visual effect with exaggerated destructive power. But this is another world. This is the Douluo continent. After abilities are transformed into a spirit ability, logic might be more important than performance. If I choose the 8 extraordinary techniques or the 12 talismans as a spirit ability, will they change correspondingly? Ding, yes, host, the system will adaptively transform the selected ability system to make it perfectly fit the spirit ability framework. Yangqing asked another crucial question. If I choose the 8 extraordinary techniques now, will I still have the opportunity to obtain the 12 talismans in the future? Ding, there is a chance, host. Afterwards, every time a qualified disciple is received, new mission rewards will be obtained, and there is a high probability that the items desired by the host will appear. At that time, it will no longer be in the form of a spirit ability, but in a physical form. However, the higher the quality of disciple recruitment, the higher the reward level. If the host wants a high-level reward, they must receive a correspondingly high-quality disciple. Yangqing felt a burst of joy in his heart. He originally thought this disciple recruitment system was a one-off deal. A 99 rank limit Douluo's cultivation slapped onto his body, the system accomplished its mission and retired, leaving everything else to personal ability afterwards. He didn't expect there to be continuous rewards afterward. Furthermore, these were random rewards that fluctuated based on the quality of the disciples received. Doesn't this mean that the more awesome the disciples he takes in, the stronger he himself becomes accordingly? Yangqing made up his mind. 8 extraordinary techniques. Choose it. There are 3 reasons. First, the 8 ability logic systems of the 8 extraordinary techniques are extremely rich. Origin of Chi manages infinite spirit power, transformation, and deprivation of spirit power. Spirit control and general dispatch manages spirit beast soul control, devouring, and growing stronger. 6 storehouses immortal thieves manages physical enhancement, pilfering nature, and immortality. Heavenly connecting talisman manages talismans and aggressive attacks. Divine machine 100 refinements manages artifact refining and forging. Complete hands manages bringing the dead back to life, restoring flesh to bones, and controlling souls in life. Fuho Kimen manages miraculous hiding and controls all things in the world. Douluo insight manages dimensional observation and destiny interference. The 8 abilities cover all dimensions of combat, support, daily life, and reconnaissance, and are much more comprehensive than the 12 talismans, purely energy output. Second, many skills in the 8 extraordinary techniques can be taught. Heavenly connecting talisman and Fuho Kimen have settings for inheritance. When he takes in disciples in the future, directly teaching them a hand of 8 extraordinary techniques works better than any titled Douluo's signboard. Third, save the 12 talismans to get physical objects when accepting disciples in the future. The core of the 12 talismans is energy level performance, made into physical objects. For example, 12 physical talismans can better exert their power than turning them into a spirit ability. Figuring this out, Yangqing decisively made his choice. Choose the 8 extraordinary techniques. The system panel flashed. Ding, please assign the 8 extraordinary techniques in order to the corresponding spirit ring slots. The 7th spirit ring is fixed as spirit avatar and cannot be assigned. Yangqing had almost no hesitation. First spirit ring, origin of Chi. Second spirit ring, spirit control and general dispatch. Third spirit ring, 6 storehouses immortal thieves. Fourth spirit ring, heavenly connecting talisman. Fifth spirit ring, divine machine 100 refinements. Sixth spirit ring, complete hands. Seventh spirit ring, spirit avatar. Eighth spirit ring, Fuho Kimen. Ninth spirit ring, Douluo insight. 8 abilities, perfectly embedded into 8 spirit ring slots. Ding, spirit ability allocation is complete. Cultivation and fusion is about to begin. Confirm. Confirm. The next moment, a wave of power surged into Yangqing's body. There was no lightning striking the body, no heaven and earth anomalies, and no boundless golden light. That power poured silently into all his limbs and bones, like a warm river filling a dried-up riverbed. Although Yangqing's body was merely an ordinary mortal body that had never been cultivated, at this moment it was like a tailor-made vessel, swallowing all that majestic power without the slightest discomfort. What remained was only a sense of satisfaction as it gradually filled up. Like a person who had been starving for 3 days finally getting a meal. 10 seconds. The power infusion was complete. There was no wind or waves in the outside world. The alley was still that alley, the broken wall was still that broken wall, and Rongrong's footsteps were still sounding rhythmically 5 meters behind. But the moment Yangqing opened his eyes, he knew he had changed. Deep in his eyes, his originally ordinary black pupils gained something slightly invisible. That was hard to describe in words. If one had to describe it, it was like the bottom of a pitch-black deep well suddenly reflecting a few distant stars. Inside his body, 9 spirit rings quietly coiled. He could clearly perceive their existence and feel that every spirit ability was like an innate instinct. As long as he was willing, he could summon and release them at any time. Origin of Qi, Spirit Control and General Dispatch, 6 Storehouses Immortal Thieves, Heavenly Connecting Talisman, Divine Machine 100 Refinements, Complete Hands, Spirit Avatar, Fuho Kimen, Douluo Insight. 8 Extraordinary Techniques from Another World. Now entirely in his grasp. Yangqing couldn't wait to try them out. He remembered that in his memory, a premise for spirit masters on the Douluo continent to cast a spirit ability was that they had to release their spirit rings. But he didn't have this feeling, as if now, as long as he wanted to, he could cast them casually. And it seemed he had discovered a blind spot. The 1-minute time limit for using limit Douluo cultivation. He seemed to be able to use it instant by instant through Douluo Insight and Fuho Kimen. Under normal circumstances, he was at normal titled Douluo cultivation. But at the exact moment of attack, using titled Douluo cultivation would suffice. This also meant that as long as his time control was exquisite, this 1 minute was enough for him to strike thousands of times. At this instant, that feeling was like a child getting a new toy, and Yangqing's hands were itching unbearably. But with Rongrong still following behind him, the effect would be halved if he used it now. He had to find the most suitable timing to give this eldest miss a wake-up call. Thinking of this, the corners of Yangqing's mouth curled up involuntarily, his eyebrows curved, and his body even swayed slightly twice. That was an irrepressible complacency. Hey. Rongrong's voice came from behind, filled with heavy disgust. What are you swaying for? You can't even walk properly. Yangqing didn't look back. Rongrong's gaze swept over his swaying back, and the corners of her mouth twitched. I knew you were a big liar. Her tone was firm, like making a final conclusion. If you were really as awesome as you bragged, how could you live in such a lousy place? A titled Douluo doesn't need any great accommodation, but at least it should be a decent courtyard, right? She pinched her nose and looked left and right. A place like this that even mice despise. At a glance, it's where poor ghosts who can't scam money live. Yangqing walked in the front, turning a deaf ear. He was now a rank 90 titled Douluo with a bigger picture in mind, so he wouldn't lower himself to bicker with a child. Seeing that he didn't answer, Rongrong fell silent for a few seconds before speaking again. There was a bit less aggressiveness in her tone and a bit more curiosity. Liar, how old are you? 18. Rongrong's footsteps paused for a moment. 18. She tilted her head and calculated. 6 years older than her. Only 18. There was surprise in her tone. How do you already have a wife and kids? You're way too young. The more she thought about it, the more wrong it felt, muttering in her mouth. Getting married and having children at 18. Are you in such a rush in that whatever village of yours? You really are an improper lecherous scoundrel. Yangqing's footsteps stopped. He turned around. Rongrong instinctively took half a step back, staring at him vigilantly. Then she saw Yangqing raise his right hand. That hand was clenched into a fist. Not a threatening fist. It was the shape of a cat's paw, with 5 fingers slightly curved in the back of the hand facing forward, like a cat holding up its claws. Yangqing faced Rongrong with this cat punch posture, speaking with an extremely serious expression. The thing I said before about having a wife and kids. He shook his cat paw. Just joking, don't take it seriously. Rongrong stared at that cat paw, staring at Yangqing's deadpan face. Her expression went blank for 2 seconds. Not because she was moved, but because she was thunderstruck. This person. As a dignified 18-year-old big man, he used this cute act to tell her, I was just kidding with you. A layer of frost rose on Rongrong's face. She wasn't angry about being lied to. In fact, at this moment she had already calmed down, no longer in the state of being stimulated back-to-back outside the stall and losing control of her emotions. Usually, Rongrong was always calm and astute. She just furrowed her brows, staring at Yangqing with a scrutinizing gaze. You say it's fake, how do I know if it's true or false? The corners of her mouth drooped with disdain. I think most likely you felt that this young lady was very resistant to you having a wife and kids and wouldn't want to be your disciple, so you temporarily changed your words to say it was fake, right? Wasn't your purpose to make this young lady give up, so you can continue being your whatever bullshit disciple? Yangqing looked at her and smiled slightly, without explaining too much. Rongrong waited for 2 seconds without waiting for a rebuttal, then gave a disdainful snort and stopped dwelling on the topic. Whether to believe it or not didn't matter anymore. Anyway, she didn't plan to really be this liar's disciple. Yangqing turned back and continued walking. This time they didn't walk far. A minute later, the two stopped in front of a single-story wooden bungalow. Calling it a bungalow was flattering it. A 1-story old wooden house, the cracks on the door panel could fit 3 fingers, and the holes on the window looked like they had been hit by a stone and left unrepaired. The whole house exuded a shaky, dilapidated vibe that it could fall apart at any moment. Chapter 10. Then what if I really am a titled Douluo? Yangqing pushed open the dilapidated wooden door full of cracks, as casual as if he were returning to his own home. Well, in fact, this was his home. Come in, sit wherever you like. He walked inside without even looking back. I will pour you a cup of tea. Ningrong stood at the doorway, not moving. Her gaze swept from the cracks on the door panel to the crooked door frame, and then to the wooden plank on the roof that looked like it could fall off at any second. Her entire expression looked as though someone was holding her head and shoving it into a cesspit. You, live here. She pinched her nose, her voice muffled. There was no response. Yangqing had already gone inside. Ningrong stood at the doorway for another 3 seconds before finally taking a deep breath. She immediately regretted it, because the air she inhaled carried a stale scent of aging, rotted wood. Then, walking on tiptoe as if stepping on landmines, she stepped into the house step by step. The first thing she did upon entering was cautiously release her grip on her pinched nose. She sniffed. To her surprise, there was no strange odor. There was none of the stench of a man living alone that she had imagined, no moldy or rotting smells, and even the scent of dust was very faint. Although the house was wretchedly dilapidated, the interior was clean. Ningrong's expression eased slightly. This point is all right at least. She evaluated with that condescending tone, like a little princess inspecting her territory and grading her servants. At least you didn't live in a place like a pigsty, just like those stinky boys this young lady has seen in Heaven Do City. Yangqing was rummaging inside for a teacup and didn't take up the conversation. Ning Rongrong looked around. The house was not big, and the furnishings were extremely minimalist. A wooden plank bed, a table missing a leg propped up with a stone, and 2 benches. A bundle cloth was piled in the corner of the wall, and the signboard reading, Omniscient, was placed next to it. That was all. It was thoroughly impoverished. Ning Rongrong chose one of the benches that looked slightly cleaner, wiped it left and right with her sleeve for about 7 or 8 times, and then reluctantly sat down. Her buttocks only touched a third of the stool's surface, her back was held straight, and her legs were pressed together, as dignified as if she were sitting on a carved rosewood chair in the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Yangqing walked over holding a chipped coarse pottery cup, with steam rising from it, plain boiled water. Seeing Ning Rongrong's appearance of wiping and wiping again before reluctantly taking a seat, he rolled his eyes. It is truly my great honor for my pathetic little shack to be able to have Miss Ning Rongrong condescend to walk in and even sit on my bench. Ning Rongrong heard the sarcasm in his words. But she didn't feel at all that this was mocking her. That's right. She lifted her chin, taking it completely for granted. This young lady being willing to enter your broken house and sit on your broken bench is already your greatest fortune and blessing. After saying this, she folded her arms. Yangqing handed the coarse pottery cup in front of her. Ning Rongrong glanced at the chipped rim of the cup and reached out to push the cup away. Not drinking. Her tone was crisp and decisive, going straight to the point. Swindler, stop dawdling. Lift the master-disciple contract. Yangqing put the push back up on the table, picked it up himself, and took a sip. He looked at Ning Rongrong with a smile. What's the rush? Who is rushing? The contract has already been signed anyway. Yangqing's tone was leisurely, carrying the kind of composure that made Ning Rongrong want to hit him. Lifting it now is lifting it, and lifting it a little later is also lifting it. Does Miss Ning really not want to listen at all to the method I deduced for turning the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda? He tilted his head. Or, see what benefits there are in taking me as your master. He raised a finger. Just listen to it, you won't lose out, it won't be too late for you to decide whether to lift it after listening. Ning Rongrong let out a scoff. That laugh carried absolute disdain. Even if you tell me, I won't believe it. She stared into Yangqing's eyes, her tone certain. Our 7 treasure glazed tile school has searched for a method for 1,000 years, 8,000 years. It is something countless generations of spirit masters have exhausted their life's efforts without achieving. She reached out and pointed at Yangqing. And you, a nameless fortune teller on the roadside, deduced it. She tilted her head, her gaze carrying a condescending scrutiny. What is your cultivation level? Yangqing didn't take up the conversation. Ning Rongrong answered herself, could you possibly be a titled Douluo? Her gaze swept across this broken house, and she scoffed. This young lady sees that you live in a place like this, and I'm afraid you aren't even a spirit master. No matter how down and out a spirit master is, they wouldn't live in a dilapidated house that leaks wine and rain. She shook her head, and the disgust in her tone gradually transformed into something resembling pity. Forget it, this young lady sees that you don't seem to be a very bad person either. Although you swindled me, but... She waved her hand, as magnanimous as an aristocrat bestowing charity. Take out that master-disciple contract and tear it up in front of this young lady. I won't pursue this matter. We'll pretend it never happened. After saying that, she waved her hand urgently. Hurry up, hurry up. This young lady still has to rush to sign up at Shrek Academy. If I go late, I'll have to wait until tomorrow. How troublesome. Yangqing looked at the arrogant and self-righteous little face before him. The posture of the 12-year-old girl at this moment was extremely reminiscent of those noble women he had seen in the market. Clearly she was bestowing charity upon you, yet she still expected you to be filled with boundless gratitude. He wasn't angry. He even found it a bit amusing. Then what if I really am a titled Douluo? Yangqing said calmly. Ning Rongrong was stunned for a split second. Then she laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh, but the kind of laugh where she genuinely found it funny and couldn't help holding it back. You. She laughed so hard her waist bent, one hand clutching her stomach. You just said yourself that you're only 18 years old, an 18-year-old titled Douluo. She finally stopped laughing and looked at Yangqing with the gaze one would use for looking at a mentally disabled person. Do you think this young lady is stupid? You're using words that even a 3-year-old child wouldn't believe to cheat me. She extended a finger and shook it from side to side. This young lady read a book called Historical Records of Douluo Continent in the scripture pavilion of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. It clearly records that throughout the history of the entire continent, there has never been an 18-year-old spirit saint. She stared at Yangqing. Even a spirit saint can't achieve that, and you're telling me you're a titled Douluo. After listening, Yangqing's expression changed. He raised his hand to wipe his eye sockets, his actions extremely on point, vividly portraying the look of suppressing grievance after being wrongly accused. You saying that to me makes me so sad. Ning Rongrong's expression turned cold. She had already seen this person's speed at changing faces. She wasn't buying this routine. Stop acting. Yangqing wiped twice and found that Ning Rongrong was staring at him expressionlessly, her eyes writing, if you pretend again, I'll leave immediately. His hand paused for a moment. Then his expression returned to seriousness. It returned to seriousness with extreme rapidity. Like a switch had been pressed. The previous second he was still pitifully aggrieved, and the next second his eyebrows and eyes relaxed, a trace of a smile hung on the corners of his mouth, and his entire aura instantly switched from a bullied little pitiful one to a kind of confidence that Ning Rongrong couldn't quite name. That kind of confidence wasn't put on. Or rather, even if it were fake, it was fake to look more real than anyone she had ever seen. All right. Yangqing spoke, his tone carefree. Miss Ning Rongrong, don't be in such a hurry to leave. He looked at her, his gaze carrying a strange certainty. Do you want to see what I, as your master, can teach you? He leaned forward slightly. Perhaps after you look, you won't want to lift this contract anymore. Ning Rongrong's brow furrowed. Did you forget what status this young lady has? She said word by word. The 7 treasure glazed tile school, one of the 3 great sects of the continent, the wealthiest sect. She raised 2 fingers. Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, 2 titled Douluos, my dearest grandfathers. She put her hand down, her gaze revealing undisguised contempt. Do you think those skills of yours with unknown origins can compare to this young lady's 7 treasure glazed tile school? Can they compare to the methods of my 2 titled Douluo grandfathers? She tilted her head. Don't you think you are overestimating your own capabilities? After listening, Yangqing smiled. He didn't refute. He merely raised his right hand. Extending his index finger, he gently tapped Ning Rongrong on the head. Ning Rongrong was stunned. This swindler actually dared to touch her. Just as she was about to flare up. Bang! Yangqing in front of her vanished. It wasn't invisibility, nor was it dodging. His entire person vanished out of thin air. Ning Rongrong's pupils abruptly dilated. Before she had time to react, an extremely subtle weight came from above her head. It was so light she could barely feel it. Like a feather falling onto her hair strands. Ning Rongrong froze. She slowly raised her hand, touching the top of her head. Her fingertips made contact with a small, warm, soft thing with the texture of feathers. Chirp. A crisp bird chirp came from above her head. Ning Rongrong's hand froze midair. She slowly lowered her head, looking at the empty, dilapidated house in front of her. Then she slowly raised her head, her gaze moving upward with difficulty. A little bird was squatting right on top of her hair, tilting its head, looking down at her with a pair of round eyes like black beans. Chapter 11. Your spirit ability is just a bit peculiar. How is it, Rongrong, what do you think of this spirit ability of your master? The voice came from overhead. A clear, somewhat smug human voice came out from the beak of a thumb-sized bird. Ning Rongrong froze completely for about 2 seconds. Her brain went through a complete logical chain in those 2 seconds. The person disappeared, a bird appeared, the bird spoke human words, the bird's voice was that swindler's voice, so the swindler turned into a bird. Turned into a bird. A person turned into a bird. Ning Rongrong's pupils gradually focused. But the emotion welling up in the depths of her eyes was not shock. Not fear. It was a pure, almost uncontainable pleasant surprise. Along with the surging curiosity of a 12-year-old girl that made her whole being light up. This is your spirit ability. Her voice pitched higher, but this time it wasn't an angry pitch, it was an excited pitch. Like a child who discovered a new toy in a treasure trove. The little bird overhead proudly lifted its head, puffed out its round chest, and its black bean-like eyes were filled with condescending superiority. That's right. The bird's voice carried an unbridled nonchalance. Just these 2 words, it admitted it neatly and cleanly, without even the slightest trace of modesty. Ning Rongrong's gaze changed. That pair of apricot-shaped eyes flickered with a nearly bright, pellucid glow, like the moonlight shining on the surface of a lake. The next moment, her hand moved. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. With one clutch, she grabbed the little bird overhead into the palm of her hand. Yangqing hadn't expected this move at all. He had already prepared his lines, intending to deliver an unfathomable speech when Ning Rongrong was too shocked to speak, pushing the atmosphere to its peak. As a result, before his lines even left his mouth, the entire bird was plucked down by a pair of fair and tender hands. Ning Rongrong cupped him in her palm, brought him close to her face, looked left and right, her gaze as focused as if she were appraising a rare, peerless treasure. Her fingers gently flipped open his wings, pinched his bird claws, and then poked the downy feathers on the bird's belly. It really is a bird, she muttered to herself, her brows slightly furrowed, the feathers are real, the claws are real, and the body temperature is real too. She turned the little bird over again and stared at its belly for 2 seconds. Even the belly is soft. Yangqing's internal state at this moment could probably be described in 4 words. Unable to laugh or cry. As a dignified 99th rank titled Douluo whose level was restricted, even though he had turned into a thumb-sized bird, the spirit power within his body was still at the titled Douluo level. For Ning Rongrong, a spirit master in her 20s, breaking free from her hands would be easier than flipping a book. But he didn't struggle. Firstly, Ning Rongrong was his disciple. Although the other party was still in the stage of stubbornly refusing to admit defeat, the contract had already been signed in black and white with fingerprints pressed. Since his good disciple showed such intense interest in the matter of him turning into a little bird, as her master, he naturally had to magnanimously cooperate. Secondly, he needed to let Ning Rongrong fully verify the authenticity of this transformation. The more thoroughly she verified it, the faster the defense line in her heart that this is a scam would collapse. Therefore, Yangqing quietly shrank into Ning Rongrong's palm, letting her observe, knead, and study him back and forth. Occasionally cooperating with a cooperative chirp. His acting skills were on point. After tinkering for about half a minute, Ning Rongrong finally reached a conclusion. She lifted the little bird up to her eyes and locked gazes with those black bean-like eyes. It's real. Her tone was laced with certainty. It's not an illusion. It's not a trick of the eye. It really turned into a bird. Yangqing felt that Ning Rongrong had seen enough. The next second, with a swish sound, the docile little bird in Ning Rongrong's hand instantly expanded, elongated, and deformed. The feathers receded, replaced by a layer of cold skin covered in fine scales. A huge triangular head slowly rose from between her palms. A snake. A python-thick, triangular-headed, tongue-flickering, large snake. Right in her hands. The scales brushed past the pads of her fingers. Icy, slippery and smooth. Whoosh, that forked snake tongue flicked right in front of the tip of her nose. Ah! Ning Rongrong's scream almost blew off the roof. She instinctively threw the icy thing in her hand outward, using all her strength. Yangqing's snake body drew an arc in the air, slapping against the opposite earthen wall with a snap, knocking down a cloud of dust. Ning Rongrong retreated to the corner of the wall, goosebumps erupting all over her body, her face turning pale. You this. Her trembling finger pointed at the wall. However, the snake on the wall didn't give her a chance to curse at all. Yangqing was unbefittingly flexible in his snake body state. The snake body that had been smashed against the wall flipped over to straighten its posture, sliding smoothly down along the base of the wall. Then it slithered toward Ning Rongrong. The speed was not fast, but that silent, meandering, approaching visual oppression made one's scalp tingle even more than a sprint. Don't come over. Ning Rongrong hopped back a step. The snake body continued to slide. I said don't come over. Are you deaf? She hopped another step. The snake's head slightly rose, and its tongue flicked out once more. Ning Rongrong turned around and ran. Yangqing chased behind. A person in a snake staged a chaotic, uproarious chase in this dilapidated room. Benches were kicked over, tables were knocked crooked, and that chipped coarse pottery cup rolled off the edge of the table, shattering into 3 pieces on the ground. You damn swindler, change me back. You pervert, I'm going to kill you. Ning Rongrong ran and cursed at the same time, her voice sharp and shrill, reverberating back and forth in the dilapidated room. Then she saw the kitchen knife on the cutting board. Her footsteps paused. She rushed over and grabbed the knife handle. Turned around. A 12-year-old girl holding a rusted kitchen knife, facing a large snake slowly approaching, had not a shred of retreat in her eyes. Another step closer. Her voice steadied, cold and resolute. I'll chop you up. That look in her eyes was serious. Yang Xing's snake pupils met that pair of completely fearless apricot eyes, and a thought flashed through his mind. This last, fine, if he provoked her anymore, she really wouldn't be coaxed back. Fine then. Swish. The snake's body shrank, swelled, and rounded. The cold scales turned into soft fur. The triangular head turned into a furry round head. A gray-white rabbit hopped backward with a whoosh and landed steadily on the tabletop. That rabbit flipped over, its hind legs crossed and propped forward in a cross-leg posture. Its front paws pillowing the back of its head, a pair of red rabbit eyes half squinting at Ning Rongrong, the corners of its mouth, if a rabbit had corners of its mouth, slightly upturned. Good disciple. The rabbit spoke, Yang Xing's voice coming out from that split-lip mouth, lazy and languid. What do you think of this spirit ability of your master? Ning Rongrong stared at the rabbit crossing its legs. The hand holding the kitchen knife was trembling. Not out of fear. Out of anger. Snap. The cutting board flew out. It accurately smashed onto the tabletop beside Yang Xing's rabbit body, jarring him into a bounce. Your conduct is truly vile. Ning Rongrong squeezed out word by word from between her teeth, her cheeks flushed bright red. Your personality is awful. Just based on your, such, perverted bad taste. She slammed the kitchen knife onto the cutting board. I wouldn't be your disciple even if I died. Ning Rongrong took a few deep breaths, the rise and fall of her chest gradually calming down. Regaining her composure. Regaining the astute, rational little demon Ning Rongrong of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. She tilted her head, her gaze sweeping past the rabbit brushing off dust behind the overturned table. Besides, your spirit ability is just a little quirky. Chapter 12, The Inexpressible Formidable Power of Fu Hokiman. Ning Rongrong delivered her verdict in a resolute tone. Making a living on the Douluo continent relies on strength and background. What does it matter if you can turn into a little bird, a snake, or a rabbit? Are you going to perform as a street act for people, a monkey in a circus? She scoffed. As the dignified young miss of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, I take a street performing actor as my master. If word gets out, wouldn't people laugh their teeth off? It was quiet behind the table for a moment. Then Yang Xing stood up. Human form. A complete human form, looking like an 18-year-old youth. He had somehow already transformed back from a rabbit into his original appearance. His clothes and hair were completely undisturbed, as if the one who had been chased, slammed into the wall, and smashed onto the cutting board just moments ago wasn't him at all. He didn't speak. He simply spread open both hands. Palms facing upward. Ning Rongrong instinctively looked over. Then her pupils constricted slightly. In the palm of Yang Xing's left hand, an orange-red flame was dancing. It was not an illusion, she could feel the wave of heat brushing against her face. The flame flickered twice and abruptly went out, replaced by a fist-sized droplet of water floating above his palm, smooth as a mirror. The water droplet shattered, transforming into a sharply angled ice crystal. The ice crystal melted. A clump of yellowish-brown soil condensed out of thin air. The soil dissipated. A cluster of blinding blue-white electric arcs burst at his fingertips, crackling audibly. Simultaneously, his right hand mirrored the action. A visible cluster of wind spun in his right palm, stirring up the surrounding dust and debris. The wind dispersed. A pure white sphere of light emerged, as soft as a small sun. The light extinguished. A pitch-black ball of light that devoured all illumination finally appeared, hanging silently in his palm. The entire process took less than 10 seconds. Fire, water, ice, earth, lightning, wind, light, darkness. 8 completely different elements took turns appearing between his two palms, as smooth and natural as breathing. Ning Rongrong's lips parted slightly. Yang Xing looked at her expression and spoke unhurriedly. The name of this spirit ability is Fu Hokiman. He withdrew both hands, his tone flat, as if he were speaking of a commonplace matter. It is the pinnacle of Kimin. Ning Rongrong probably didn't know what Kimin was, nor did Yang Xing intend to act unfathomably profound. He spoke directly in the most colloquial terms. Simply put, I can set a boundary beneath my feet. Within the coverage of this boundary, all changes of everything are determined by me. The generation and restriction of the 5 elements, the speed of time, spatial positions, and material forms all obey me. He looked at Ning Rongrong. Just now, the reason I could turn into a bird, a snake, and a rabbit was because within this space, I can freely alter even the form of my own body. Ning Rongrong's brows were furrowed, her gaze sweeping back and forth between Yang Xing's face and the hands he had just used to change elements, with disbelief written all over her face. How can there be such an exaggerated spirit ability? Yang Xing smiled. The next moment, his body turned into a ball of flame. It wasn't the fist-sized little flame in his palm, it was his entire person, from head to toe, transformed into a humanoid, dancing roaring flame. The surging heat wave forced Ning Rongrong to take a step back. The flame extinguished. A humanoid body of water appeared in place, the outline of the transparent water person clearly visible, the water surface reflecting the dim light inside the room. The body of water collapsed. Yang Xing recovered his human form, but it only lasted for half a second. His body changed once more, his bones stretched, his wings spread, and a huge avian spirit beast appeared right in the center of the room. The bird's beak opened. With a whoosh, a sharp wind blade shot out from its mouth, heading straight up and piercing through the wooden boards of the roof. Crash. Splintered wood flew everywhere, a pillar of light poured down from the hole, shining upon Yang Xing, who had transformed back into human form. He stood there, above him being the hole cut open by the wind blade, with wood fragments still drifting downward. The corners of his clothes fluttered gently in the airflow. His expression was calm. As if nothing had happened at all. Fu Hokiman. The lifelong enlightenment of Zhou Shang from under one person. Everything in the world in all its myriad forms cannot escape the 2 words, change. Whoever can control change controls everything. Establishing the central palace in the heart, using the Shantian primordial chi to command the 72 earthly nodes of the heavenly cycle, turning oneself into a marquee king. Freely turning the 4 discs, the myriad phenomena within the boundary follow one's heart. After this power was transformed into a spirit ability of the Douluo continent, it still retained its most core essence. Doing as one pleases. Moreover, the system automatically endowed him with the state of mind to resist the price of Fu Hokiman. Although he himself didn't feel much about this state of mind. Ning Rongrong's mouth could no longer close. She looked at the hole above, then at Yang Xing, and then at the remaining water stains and scorch marks on the ground. Within 10 seconds, her expression completed a triple jump from disbelief to semi-belief to completely dumbfounded. Her voice drifted, is this a single spirit ability? She shook her head, as if denying what she had just heard. How can a single spirit ability have so many capabilities? Transformation, fire control, water control, lightning control, wind blades. Are all of these from a single spirit ability? Yang Xing nodded. Quite calmly. One spirit ability. He held up a finger. Just one. Ning Rongrong glared at him, the expression on her face extremely complicated. Shock, incomprehension, disbelief, and the blankness of a brain crashing after being repeatedly bombarded. Yangqing looked at her appearance and felt the timing was right. He withdrew his finger, and his tone suddenly changed. From the flatness during his demonstration, it turned into a casualness carrying a hint of self-mockery. However, no matter how powerful this spirit ability is, after all, it has nothing to do with you. Ning Rongrong's blank expression paused for a second. What do you mean? Yangqing tilted his head, spread his hands, and put on an expression that said, it means precisely what it sounds like. I mean, no matter how much my spirit ability can change the heavens and the earth, it's still my spirit ability. Young Miss Ning, you can't use it anyway, and knowing about it is useless, right? Just treat it as watching a street performance. After he finished speaking, he even sighed. That sigh was extremely deliberate. Ning Rongrong stared at him. The emotions in those apricot-shaped eyes were rapidly changing, from blankness to confusion, and from confusion to vigilance. She had already somewhat figured out the routine of the swindler in front of her. First show you a good thing, and then say it has nothing to do with you. This was blatantly whetting one's appetite. But she didn't expose it verbally. Because a thought had indeed been hooked in her heart. A spirit ability that can transform, control the 5 elements, and manipulate space. If she could also learn this kind of thing. No. Calm down. She couldn't follow this swindler's train of thought. What on earth do you want to say? Ning Rongrong crossed her arms tightly, her tone cold. Spit it out. Yangqing glanced at her. Then he spoke the most important line of today's show. What I want to say is. His pace was very slow, every single word pronounced with absolute clarity. This spirit ability of mine, as a master, I can impart it to you, my disciple. Chapter 13, like playing with a monkey. The air fell silent. Ning Rongrong's brain stopped working for about 3 seconds. Can be taught. These 4 words echoed in her mind. In her 12 years of life experience and cognition, a spirit master's spirit ability was tied to the spirit ring. Whatever spirit ring you obtained determined what spirit ability you possessed. Everyone's spirit ability was unique, just like a fingerprint, unreproducible and untransferable. This was common sense. It was an ironclad law across the entire Douluo continent that had never been broken for thousands of years. But immediately afterwards, a word floated up from the depths of her memory. Self-created spirit ability. Her father, Ning Fengji, had once mentioned this concept to her late one night. That was something Ning Rongrong had accidentally overheard when she was pestering her father to tell stories. A self-created spirit ability was something that only a tiny fraction of spirit masters with supreme talent could comprehend. It did not rely on the spirit ring, but rather on the spirit master's own unique understanding of power. Furthermore, because a self-created spirit ability was created by oneself, theoretically it could be taught to others. Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up for a split second. A self-created spirit ability, she blurted out, unable to suppress the trace of excitement in her voice. Is this a self-created spirit ability of yours? That's why you can pass it on to others. Yangqing shook his head. Ning Rongrong's excitement visibly faded by a few fractions. This is not a self-created spirit ability, Yangqing corrected her. This is simply my legitimate spirit ring ability. Ning Rongrong frowned. Then what did you mean just now when you said it could be taught? How can a spirit ring ability be taught? Yangqing did not answer immediately. His expression changed into a different look. His brows were slightly knitted, his gaze was distant, and the corners of his mouth curved upward with an ambiguous arc. His entire demeanor abruptly switched from his previous cheeky playfulness into something indescribably unfathomable. He was putting on an act. 200% acting. But she had to admit, he acted extremely well. To put it simply and understandably, Yangqing lowered his voice by half a notch and slowly began. The core of this Fuhokimen lies in the understanding of change. It is not a fixed move, but a method. He looked at Ning Rongrong. Things like methods can naturally be taught to others. He raised a single finger. As long as you learn this way of understanding change, you can use it yourself. You don't need my spirit ring, nor do you need my spirit. Using your own spirit power and following the path I teach you, you can achieve the exact same thing. Ning Rongrong stared at his raised finger, her brain running at top speed. Yangqing suddenly tilted his head, putting on a puzzled look. Oh, that's right, his tone sounded as if he had inadvertently recalled something. Miss Ning Rongrong, haven't you always wanted to be an attack system spirit master? Ning Rongrong's breathing paused for half a beat. Controlling fire, controlling lightning, wind blades, transformation. Yangqing counted on his fingers, his tone light. If you learn all these, do you think you can still be considered purely a support system? Furthermore, if you use them well, it's completely possible to be much stronger than those specialized attack system spirit masters, right? He put his hand down. His gaze calmly landed on Ning Rongrong's face. Or rather, do you not like it? Ning Rongrong's lips moved slightly. Her breathing grew hurried. The obsession buried deep in her chest ever since she awakened the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda at the age of 6 was now yanked out by someone, laid bare right in front of her. She wanted to be an offensive spirit master. She had wanted to since she was 6 years old. On the day the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was awakened, everyone was cheering. Her father held her and spun her around 3 times, while Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Jiyu smiled at the same time for the very first time. The entire 7 treasure glazed tile school was boiling with excitement, calling her a once-in-a-century genius with innate level 9 spirit power who was destined to push the 7 treasure glazed tile school to new heights. Yet 6-year-old Ning Rongrong, standing in the middle of the crowd, only felt that while the glazed tile pagoda floating behind her was pretty enough, it wasn't what she wanted. What she wanted was a spirit that could beat people up. The kind that could throw fireballs, hurl lightning, and smash bad guys flying with a single punch. Not the kind that stood in the back buffing others. She had never told anyone about this thought. Although she had been pampered and spoiled since childhood, she knew that saying anything about matters involving her father and the sex bottom line was useless. The 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was a support system spirit, that was an unchangeable fact. Thousands of people throughout the entire sect counted on her to carry forward the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. No one cared whether she wanted to be an attack type or not. Therefore, this thought was pressed down into the deepest recesses of her heart. Ning Rongrong stared hard at Yangqing. Her face was full of struggle. Reason told her that this person was a liar. A liar from beginning to end. Fortune-telling in public was a scam, the apprenticeship contract was a trap, and everything displayed before her eyes might just be some kind of illusion. But another voice was saying. Those flames, streams of water, lightning, and wind blades were real. The ragged hole overhead that had been cut through by a wind blade was real. The little bird she had touched with her own hands was real. If all of these were real, If she could really learn it. Ning Rongrong's throat moved. She found that she couldn't say the 3 words, I don't like it. Yangqing looked at her expression and said nothing. He didn't even curl the corners of his mouth. He just stood there, hands naturally hanging by his sides, his gaze calm. No urging, no coaxing, no questioning further. He just waited. This kind of attitude was more lethal than any sweet-talking words. Because if he said one more word at this moment, Ning Rongrong would instinctively refuse. Her personality was just like that. The more you forced her, the less she would submit. But you didn't speak. You handed the choice completely over to her. She had no way to shift the reason for refusal onto someone else. Ning Rongrong clenched the hem of her skirt. The silence lasted for about 5 seconds. Then she spoke. Her voice was very soft, so soft it was almost like talking to herself. Can you really teach me? Hearing this, Yangqing did not reply directly. He merely looked at Ning Rongrong with an ambiguous smile hanging on the corners of his mouth and first slowly nodded. A trace of brightness had just flashed across the depths of Ning Rongrong's eyes. Then he shook his head again. That brightness froze. Ning Rongrong's brows instantly knitted together. The slightly loosened, nearly expectant soft expression on her face cooled down at a visible speed. She clenched her back teeth. What did this mean? She, Ning Rongrong, the dignified young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, how could she have blurted out those words just now? That was practically the first time in her life she had used such a low posture and such a soft tone to confirm something with someone. And the response the other person gave her was both nodding and shaking his head. Treating her like a monkey in a show. A fire suddenly surged in Ning Rongrong's chest. The humiliation of being played for a fool mixed with the frustration of putting down her pride only to be rejected went straight to her head. What on earth do you mean? Her voice pitched up, her delicate little face tightened until it turned pale, and her almond eyes were full of displeasure. If you can teach, then teach. If you can't, then don't. What's the deal with nodding and shaking your head? Can you not teach, or do you not want to teach? She took a step forward, her finger almost poking Yangxing's chest. Then why did you spout so much nonsense with me? Turning into a bird, turning into a snake, burning fire and controlling lightning, putting on a show for so long. Just to watch me make a fool of myself, right? Yangqing looked at the flushed little face in front of him, not panicked in the least. He had long figured out Ning Rongrong's ready to explode temper. It came and went quickly, just like June weather, flipping her face faster than turning a book. He slowly opened his mouth. I didn't say I wouldn't teach. Ning Rongrong's anger stalled for a second. Nor did I say I would teach, Yangqing added, his tone carrying a composure that made people want to punch him. Ning Rongrong's fists clenched tightly. Yangqing waved his hand and continued unhurriedly. That Fu Hokiman I demonstrated just now is only one of my 8 teachable spirit abilities. He raised a single finger. Just one. Ning Rongrong's anger was diverted by these words for a split second. Yangqing watched the changes in her expression, the arc at the corners of his mouth deepening by half a fraction. I have 7 other spirit abilities. Every single one is no worse than Fu Hokiman. Is the young miss of the Ning family certain she doesn't want to see them all? It's not too late to make a choice after watching them all. Chapter 14. This can be taught too. Ning Rongrong's pupils dilated slightly for a fraction of a second. 8. She had seen quite a few spirit masters in her life. Grandpa's sword had 9 spirit rings and 9 spirit abilities, and Grandpa Gu did too. But most of those spirit abilities were extensions within the same system, essentially following the same path. As for the Fu Hokiman just demonstrated by the person in front of her, a single spirit ability alone encompassed transformation, 5 elements control, and spatial shifting. If his other 7 spirit abilities were also of this scale. Impossible. Ning Rongrong shook her head, casting the thought away. Keep bragging. She crossed her arms, lifted her chin, and resumed her condescending, scrutinizing posture. I'll admit to one Fu Hokiman, it really has some substance. But if you say you have 8 more identical spirit abilities, leaving aside whether you even have that many spirit abilities. Just the fact that they're all so outrageous, I simply don't believe it. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze revealing a critical air. Besides, if the rest are just ordinary spirit abilities, this young lady won't think much of them. Yangqing smiled. That smile carried a certainty that Ning Rongrong couldn't describe, as if he had long anticipated she would say that. I guarantee every single one is extraordinary. His tone was excessively open and magnanimous. As your teacher, I wouldn't do anything to disappoint Miss Ning. Who's your disciple? Who are you calling your teacher? Yangqing acted as if he didn't hear her. He raised his right hand, extended his index finger, and gestured in the air. Ning Rongrong subconsciously took half a step back. The last time this person extended his finger, he flicked her on the head and then turned her into a bird. But this time was different. The trajectory of Yangxing's fingertip cutting through the air left a faint trace of golden light. That trace of light hovered in the air without dispersing. Ning Rongrong's gaze was instantly drawn to it. The golden trace of light bent and extended in the air, Yangxing's finger moving as if holding an invisible brush, writing something in the void. 3 strokes, 5 strokes, 7 strokes. A complete, bizarre symbol she had never seen before took shape. The entire symbol rippled with golden light, suspended mid-air, exuding an indescribable archaic aura. This is. Ning Rongrong's lips moved. Before she could finish speaking, Yangqing flicked his finger, and the golden symbol broke away from its suspended position, shooting straight towards Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong's pupils constricted. She instinctively wanted to dodge, but the symbol was too fast, sticking to her body in the blink of an eye. Hum. A low tremor came from the soles of her feet. Before Ning Rongrong could react to what was happening, her vision darkened. A layer of earthy yellow light barrier rose from the ground, enveloping her entirely within it. Like an inverted bell, sealed tight without a gap. She reached out to push the light barrier. Her fingertips touched an earthen wall as hard as iron. Hey. Ning Rongrong's voice came out from inside the earthen barrier, muffled. What are you doing? Let me out. The earthen barrier dissipated. It came and went quickly, taking no more than 3 seconds in total. Ning Rongrong's hair was a bit messy from being confined, and her face was filled with annoyance. Just as she was about to curse, out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Yangxing's finger moving again. This time what he drew was a blue talisman. Faster than before, with fewer strokes. The moment the talisman was completed, Yangqing casually tossed it upward. Ning Rongrong raised her head. A dark cloud appeared out of thin air 3 feet above her head. It was only the size of a wash basin. A small, pitch-black mass, precisely suspended directly above her. Then, it rained. Not a drizzle, but the kind of torrential downpour that poured down in sheets. Outrageously precise, drenching only her alone, not a single drop splashing anywhere nearby. Ah! Ning Rongrong shrieked, holding her head with both hands. But it was useless. That cloud seemed to have grown eyes as it clung to her. When she ran left, it drifted left, and when she dodged right, it moved right. In the span of 3 seconds, Ning Rongrong was soaked through from head to toe. Her white dress clung to her body, her short hair dripped with water, water droplets hung from her eyelashes, and she looked as disheveled as a drowned kitten. Yangqing, you just wait for me. Her voice was a shrill scream squeezed almost from the bottom of her throat. Stepping on the pedals, she rushed towards Yangqing, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. Yangqing's finger moved again. A crimson-red talisman flew out, precisely attaching itself a foot in front of Ning Rongrong. A gentle wave of heat instantly hit her face. Ning Rongrong's steps paused. Hot, but not scalding. That temperature was just right, like the warmth of basking by a stove during winter. Her soaked hair and the white dress clinging to her body evaporated their moisture at a visible speed in this heat wave. 2 seconds. Her clothes were dry. Her hair was dry. Even the stray hairs that had clung to her cheeks from being drenched fluffed back up. Ning Rongrong stood frozen in place, looking down at her sleeves, which were as dry as before. Her momentum rushing towards Yangqing was interrupted. Her fists were still clenched, but she couldn't take another step forward. Because she didn't know whether to punch him first or ask what this was first. Yangqing didn't give her time to struggle. His fingers continuously rode in the air, and glowing runes flew out one after another. A pale purple talisman drifted in front of Ning Rongrong and attached itself to the center of her forehead. A cooling sensation spread from the center of her eyebrows, like drinking a cup of iced plum soup. The anger that had flared up just now from being rained on subsided uncontrollably by a few points. Mind-clearing talisman. Yangqing's voice was lazy. Used to calm your temper. Ning Rongrong's eyelid twitched. A white talisman circled around her, and after a flash of white light, all the marks left on her clothes from previously rolling on the ground, getting dusted, and brushing against the stool completely vanished. Her white dress was as pristine as new, and even the wrinkles were smoothed out. Garment cleansing talisman. Another golden-red talisman attached itself to the back of her hand. A sense of power spread from her arm to her whole body, and Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up instantly. She could clearly feel as if her spirit power had been lifted up by a notch. Power-boosting talisman, lasts for a quarter of an hour. Yangqing withdrew his hand, crossed his fingers in front of him, and looked at Ning Rongrong with a smile. Ning Rongrong stood in place. Her brain was spinning at high speed. Earth escaping, rainfall, high temperature evaporation, mind clearing, garment cleansing, power boosting. 6 completely different effects, corresponding to 6 completely different runes. Each one was hand-drawn by Yangqing on the spot in the air, used right after drawing, with immediate results. This was different from Fu Hokimen. Fu Hokimen achieved various effects by manipulating changes through oneself. Essentially, it was a direct control over space and matter. But this one released different abilities by drawing different symbols. The symbols themselves were the medium, the weapon, and the carrier. The systems were completely different. One went from the inside out. The other used talismans as catalysts. Ning Rongrong completely forgot the grudge of being drenched into a drowned kitten just moments ago. She stared at Yangqing with glowing eyes, her lips slightly parted, the words spilling out carrying an uncontrollable eagerness. What kind of spirit ability is this again? She took 2 steps forward. Can this be taught too? Chapter 15, More Showcases. Yangqing looked at her eyes, which were so bright they were practically sparkling, and smiled. There was a hint of imperceptible shrewdness in the arc of his lips. Got her, 80%. This is called the Heavenly Connecting Talisman. He spoke with a chuckle, his tone naturally carrying that familiar intimacy that made Ning Rongrong want to roll her eyes the moment she heard it. Good disciple, of course I can teach you. Ning Rongrong did not roll her eyes. That fact alone spoke volumes. Yangqing continued, his tone utterly punchable. If I couldn't teach you, why would I show it to you? Just to mess with you. Indeed, wasn't he just messing with her when he soaked her with the rain talisman earlier? But Ning Rongrong selectively ignored that fact. As long as my good disciple doesn't talk about breaking our agreement, Yangqing added the final sentence, spreading his hands open with the casual openness of someone stating that 1 + 1 = 2. Your master will teach you everything I know and hold nothing back. Ning Rongrong's lips moved. Her eyes were already filled with the light of wanting to agree. The Heavenly Connecting Talisman plus Fu Hokimen, 2 abilities from completely different systems, either of which could single-handedly subvert all her understanding of spirit abilities. If she could learn both. But after opening her lips a few times, that single word, good, simply wouldn't come out. Her face flushed red. As the proud young miss of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, she had sworn just moments ago that, I'd rather die than be your disciple. Now she was supposed to go back on her word. Where was she supposed to put her face? Watching her blush down to the roots of her ears, her mouth opening and closing like a goldfish, Yangqing wasn't in a hurry at all. No rush, no rush. He waved his hand. My good disciple, don't rush to make a decision. Appreciate some of your master's other spirit abilities a bit more. As if grabbing onto a straw to save her life, Ning Rongrong immediately nodded. Ahem, she cleared her throat, lifted her chin back up, and tried hard to restore the haughty tone in her voice. Since you're willing to show off, then go ahead and show off. This young miss is feeling magnanimous and is willing to waste a bit more time watching. She crossed her arms, turned her face away, and slightly raised her chin. It was the picture of charity. But the red at the roots of her ears had not yet faded. Yangqing looked at that delicate little face. Tsunere was Tsunere, but when the plump collagen on a 12-year-old girl's face was paired with her bright eyes and sparkling teeth, no matter what expression she made, it was impossible to stay mad at her. It was even somewhat pleasing to the eye. What a pity. He was her master, the other party was only 12 years old. Yangqing spat at himself a few times in his heart, cleared away those messy thoughts, fixed his expression, walked over to the overturned table, and flipped it upright in one go. He picked up a piece of wood from beside the table. It was just ordinary wood, about the size of a palm, irregular in shape, probably scraps left over from when he chopped firewood earlier. Yangqing placed the wood on the table and pressed both hands over it. Ning Rongrong tilted her head to look at him. 10 seconds. Yangqing removed his hands. There was a rhinoceros on the table. A wooden rhinoceros, palm-sized, with thick limbs, a sharp horn, and intricate textures visible down to the finest hair on its body. The direction of every muscle and the wrinkles of every surface were carved vividly. Ning Rongrong leaned in closer to look. The workmanship was indeed exquisite, but it was just a wood carving after all. It wasn't like she had never seen one before. The wooden rhinoceros moved. It lifted its front hooves and took a step across the table surface. Clack. The sound of the hooves was crisp as it struck the wooden table. Then the second and third steps. The little wooden rhinoceros started running across the table, its four hooves flying as it dashed from one end of the table to the other, even knowing to turn when it reached the edge. Ning Rongrong's mouth fell open. Yangqing picked up a few more pieces of scrap wood from the floor. He rubbed them between his hands and let go. A wooden hawk fluttered its wings and flew up, circling the room. A wooden horse carrying a miniature wooden figure galloped across the table surface. A wooden fish swam through the air, the swaying amplitude of its caudal fin identical to that of a real fish. The whole room was filled with living wooden creatures, running and flying. Ning Rongrong's gaze chased the wooden hawk around twice before shifting to look at the racing rhinoceros and wooden horse on the table, her mouth unable to close. Divine Machine 100 Refinements. Yangqing's voice came from beside her. Creation and infusion of spirit. Ning Rongrong hadn't had time to digest these words yet. Yangqing pulled a small knife of unknown origin from his waist and calmly slashed a cut across the back of his left hand. What are you doing? Ning Rongrong was startled. Fresh blood welled out. Yangqing raised his right hand, palm facing down over the wound. A layer of pale golden light seeped from his palm, enveloping the wound. 2 seconds. He removed his hand. Ning Rongrong stared at the back of his left hand. Clean, not even a trace of blood. That knife wound from just moments ago, which was at least half an inch deep, had vanished as if it had never existed. Complete hands. Yangqing casually tossed the knife away. It can bring the dead back to life and flesh out bones. Of course, there are other abilities too, but I won't go into detail for now. Ning Rongrong swallowed hard. Watching her glued to the spot expression, afraid of missing any detail, Yangqing mentally gave himself a thumbs up of satisfaction. He leaned back against the chair back, crossing his legs. There are a few others that aren't very convenient to demonstrate on the spot, so I'll just tell you about them verbally. Ning Rongrong's body leaned forward a few inches unconsciously. Origin of Qi. Yangqing held up a finger. After learning it, your body can automatically absorb various spiritual energies and auras in the air, continuously converting them into your own spirit power. Simply put, you will never lack spirit power again. No matter how long a fight lasts, your spirit power will always be full. Ning Rongrong's breathing noticeably quickened. As a support-type spirit master, what was her biggest problem? It was spirit power consumption. The stronger the support effect of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, the greater the spirit power consumption. After a high-intensity battle, she was often the first one to run dry. If her spirit power was always full. Spirit control and general dispatch. Yangqing extended his second finger. After hunting a spirit beast, you can directly enslave the resentful soul left behind by the spirit beast in the spirit ring after its death. Ning Rongrong's brows slightly knitted together. There are 2 uses after enslaving them. Yangqing wagged his finger. First, eat it. Absorb its power to increase your own spirit power. Second, keep it. Make it obey your commands and attack enemies for you. It's equivalent to having a bunch of combat-capable ghost underlings under your command. Ning Rongrong's eyes were terrifyingly bright. There is also an incidental effect. Yangqing added, his tone breezy. Because you can directly process the resentful remnant souls of spirit beasts inside spirit rings, you will never have to worry about backlash when absorbing spirit rings in the future. You can absorb them all perfectly. Ning Rongrong's lips trembled slightly. Perfect absorption of spirit rings. She knew all too well what these 4 words meant across the entire Douluo continent. How many genius spirit masters had died from the backlash of absorbing spirit rings? How many people had been forced to compromise because they couldn't find a suitable spirit ring, wasting their potential? If she could perfectly absorb any spirit ring. Ning Rongrong's face had flushed all the way to the root of her neck. It wasn't shyness, it was excitement. It was that flesh look where grievance and desire intertwined, like seeing a room full of gold coins but being told you couldn't take them. Chapter 16 Master Tilda. She opened her mouth, about to press further. Yangqing withdrew his fingers. Let's leave the introductions at that for now. Ning Rongrong's expression stiffened. We'll talk about the rest later. Yangqing's tone was as casual as chatting about what to eat for dinner. These few are enough for you to use for the time being. Ning Rongrong pouted somewhat unwillingly, glancing at him sideways. TCH, don't tell me you only have these few spirit abilities. Are you putting up a false front with this young lady here? Yangqing looked at her, smiling without a word. That unfathomable yet somewhat playful appearance instead made Ning Rongrong feel even less certain inside. Ning Rongrong stared at him. Those apricot eyes clearly wrote out the regret and frustration of, keep talking, why did you stop? Yangqing ignored her gaze. He tilted his head, looked at Ning Rongrong, and smiled. That smile was clean and open, carrying a kind of natural composure. So, Miss Ning Rongrong. His voice softened. Are you still going to refuse this teacher as your master? The room fell silent. Ning Rongrong's lips pressed into a thin line. Fu Hokiman, Heavenly Connecting Talisman, Divine Machine 100 Refinements, Complete Hands, Origin of Qi, Spirit Control and General Dispatch. 6 kinds of spirit abilities. Taking out any single one of them was an existence she had never heard of before. Moreover, this meant that the person in front of her was at least a 6-ring spirit emperor. An 18-year-old 6-ring spirit emperor was definitely an extremely genius existence. If she said she was unwilling right now, then she would be a fool. But if she readily said she was willing right now. Ning Rongrong felt that her pride was burning. Her lips moved a few times, her voice stuck in her throat, unable to go up or down. This young lady can. You. 3 beginnings were changed 3 times, without a single sentence taking form. Her face was red enough to drip blood, her ear tips felt like they had been scalded, and even the skin on her neck was suffused with pink. Her fingers clutching her skirt hem were twisted so hard her knuckles turned white, her whole stammering appearance completely unlike the usual bossy young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Yangqing looked at her and did not rush her. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, those apricot eyes still retained a trace of struggle, but more of it was a desperate, fatalistic resolution. This young lady can agree. The voice was as small as a mosquito's buzz. She abruptly raised her chin and sped up her pace. But these spirit abilities you showed me and what you said you could impart to me, you'd better make sure they are all true. She glared at Yangqing. Otherwise, this young lady will make you suffer. Yangqing narrowed his eyes and smiled. Guaranteed true, guaranteed true. The tone was as brisk as humming a tune. Ning Rongrong looked at that smiling face of his, and the string in her chest that had been taut all day finally relaxed. The very moment it loosened, the nature of a 12-year-old girl returned. Really? She darted in front of Yangqing like a completely different person, slapping both hands onto his arms, her pair of eyes bright like stars. Then hurry up and teach me. Teach me quickly. I want to learn all of it. I want to learn the heavenly connecting talisman. I want to learn Fuhokimen, and I also want to learn the thing that can build wood and animals. And also that endless spirit power thing. All of it, not a single one is allowed to be left out. The frequency of her patting Yongxing's arm grew faster and faster, just like beating a drum. Then she suddenly stopped. Raising her face, she blinked. The light in those apricot eyes shifted from eagerness into a deliberate, acted-out softness. Her lips were slightly pursed, her chin slightly retracted, her eyelashes fluttering twice. Master Tilda. The voice was so sweet it could pull threads. Standard Ningrongrong style act of spoiling, the kind that worked 100 times out of 100 in the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Hurry up and teach me, won't you Tilda? Is it okay Tilda? Yongxing shivered all over from being called master. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was too comfortable. This last acting spoiled was truly a foul. With that exquisite face matched with those watery eyes, who could possibly withstand it? He cleared his throat and couldn't help reaching out to stroke Ningrongrong's head. Just like that casual stroke, from the top of her head to the back of her head, the feel was extremely good. Ningrongrong's expression stiffened for an instant. A tiny crack appeared on that sweetly smiling face. Being patted on the head. From her birth until now, no one except her father Ning Fengji had ever done it. Now her head had been patted by a man she had known for less than 2 hours. The fine hairs on her back stood up for a second. But she swallowed it down. The smile at the corners of her mouth stiffened for less than half a second before pulling itself back up. Although the arc was a bit stiffer than before, at least it was still hanging on her face. She gave a vague response, the amusement and urge coexisting in her eyes. Master, hurry up and tell me, which one shall we start teaching from? Yongxing looked at her small face that was smiling somewhat reluctantly yet still trying hard to maintain it, blooming with joy inside. That's right, a good disciple, how nice. He enjoyed about 3 seconds of this thrill of, the master being looked up to by the disciple, then withdrew his hand resting on top of Ningrongrong's head. No rush, small problem, small problem. He waved his hand, his expression as relaxed as agreeing to a trivial matter. I can teach you all of them, not a single one missed. But. He suddenly tilted his head and looked at Ningrongrong. Their gazes met. Ningrongrong's spoiled gaze met Yongxing's face, which had suddenly turned a bit more serious, and she froze for a moment. Good disciple, did you forget something? Ningrongrong tilted her head. Yongxing smiled, his tone leisurely. What this teacher promised you before, the deduction method for transforming the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Ningrongrong's expression changed. A faint layer of hesitation rose in her eyes that had just been sparkling. She frowned, sized up Yongxing's face, and her mouth drooped. You aren't actually going to be serious about this, are you? In her tone wasn't anticipation, but a subtle dismissiveness. It was as if she was afraid the other party would ruin a good hand of cards. Forget it. Ningrongrong waved her hand, her attitude as casual as driving away in an interesting fly. As long as you are willing to teach this young lady those 2 spirit abilities from just now, this young lady is already willing to acknowledge you as master. She looked at Yongxing, her tone rarely softening by a few points, even carrying a trace of sincere admonition. There's no need to make up those false things anymore. Instead, it might make this young lady's impression of you worse. This was Ningrongrong's sense of decency. She didn't say, you can't make it up, she said, stop making it up. She was offering a way out. After hearing these words, Yongxing reached out and scratched the back of his head. His expression was somewhat pensive, yet somewhat lazy, as if weighing a matter of minor importance. His fingers scratched the back of his head twice, and his gaze drifted toward the hole on the roof cut out by the wind blade. Sunlight spilled down from the hole, shining on half of his face. A few seconds later, he let out a breath as if resigning himself to his fate. All right. Yongxing withdrew his hand, looked at Ningrongrong, and the corners of his mouth carried a trace of an indifferent smile. But believe it or not, since I promised, I have to fulfill it. I'll just do a simple deduction and tell you, my good disciple. He paused. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Hearing these words, a layer of helplessness rose on Ningrongrong's face, intermingled with a bit of disdain. Her lips moved, wanting to say something, but she swallowed it back down. Forget it. She was still counting on this newly acknowledged chief master to teach her those miraculous spirit abilities. Fuhokimen, heavenly connecting talisman, and those messy fire controlling, lightning controlling, and transformation techniques. If she learned all of them, who would ever dare to say when Ningrongrong went out in the future that she was just a support system base who could only stand in the back row? At the mere thought of that picture, that scene of slaughtering all directions on the battlefield and making everyone dumbfounded, the corners of Ningrongrong's mouth curled up uncontrollably. Her eyebrows and eyes curved. Her expression completely collapsed. Smiling completely without any young lady's restraint. Yongxing was watching her right then. Perceiving that gaze, Ningrongrong pulled her face back straight all of a sudden. She cleared her throat and coughed twice. Ahem ahem. She put on that reluctant posture once again, lifting her chin slightly, her gaze glancing sideways at Yongxing from above the bridge of her nose. Then go ahead and deduce. After a pause of a beat. This young lady will reluctantly listen. Chapter 17, The Douluo Tulip. Yongxing's mouth split into a wide grin. He beamed with joy, making no effort to hide it. All right. He turned and brought a stool from the corner, placed it opposite the one he was sitting on, and patted the seat twice. Come, sit here, sit opposite me. Ningrong looked at the stool. She walked over reluctantly and sat down on the stool. As before, she sat with only a third of her bottom on the seat, her back held perfectly straight. The two sat facing each other. Yongxing took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. He raised his right hand, pressing his index and middle fingers together to form a light hand seal in front of him. His left hand rested on his knee, his thumb moving back and forth across the knuckles of his other 4 fingers at varying speeds. His lips moved slightly, as if he were chanting something silently. The room suddenly fell silent. A complete silence. Ningrong was still a bit unaccustomed to it. 1 second they were bickering back and forth, and the next, the entire world was left with only the subtle sound of Yongxing's fingers moving and the occasional bird call from far outside the window. She propped her chin on one hand, her large, crystal-clear eyes blinking as she watched the posturing Yongxing across from her. His brow was slightly furrowed, and his eyelashes cast a small shadow beneath his eyes. To be honest, the way he looked when he was serious did seem quite convincing. Even though she was 100% certain he was faking it. A minute passed. Ningrong let out a yawn. 2 minutes. She yawned again. She was truly exhausted, from leaving the city to being tricked into signing the contract, to chasing Yangqing all over the streets, to being chased by the snake he transformed into, and then the repeated spirit ability bombardments and psychological tug-of-war. Her energy from the entire afternoon had been sucked dry by this swindler master. Ning Rongrong yawned again, covering her mouth with the back of her hand as tears pricked the corners of her eyes. She rubbed her eyes and tried to focus her gaze on Yangqing's face. Her thoughts began to wander. Could he really figure it out? It was impossible. 1,000 years, a problem that dozens of generations in the entire sect had failed to solve. But that old farmer really did find the gold coin. That honest man's wife really was pregnant, and he really had accurately stated all of her information. What if he really could figure it out? As soon as this thought surfaced, Ning Rongrong shook her head as if trying to shake the water out of her brain. Unrealistic. Absolutely unrealistic. She propped her chin back up and continued to stare at Yangqing. But her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. The quiet room felt like a gentle cocoon. A faint scent of wood mixed with sunlight drifted from Yangqing, and the afternoon light shone diagonally through the holes in the wall, falling warmly on her face. Ning Rongrong's head drooped lower and lower. Her elbow slipped from her knee, and she jerked her head up. She stayed awake for 2 seconds before her eyelids drooped again. After repeating this 3 times, her delicate little head finally came to rest on her propped-up palm. Her breathing became long and steady. Her eyelashes closed, casting a soft, fan-shaped shadow on her cheeks. Her lips pouted slightly, her breath even and gentle, and her ear-length short hair hung by her face, revealing an earlobe so fair it seemed translucent. She was fast asleep. Quietly, she lacked the sharp, prickly aura she had during the day. At this moment, Ning Rongrong looked like an ordinary, beautiful 12-year-old girl, well-behaved, peaceful, and even showing a hint of the innocent childishness appropriate for her age. Yangqing opened his eyes. He glanced at Ning Rongrong. Today really had drained too much of this girl's energy. He shook his head, raised his right index finger, and casually drew a talisman in the air. It had very few strokes and took shape in an instant. A light green glowing talisman appeared. With a push of Yangqing's fingertip, the talisman floated silently to Ning Rongrong and sank into her brow. Spirit rhyming talisman. After the heavenly connecting talisman was converted into a spirit ability, this was a little trick from the encyclopedia of 1008 basic talismans that the system had instilled in him. It was meant to calm the mind and restore one's spirit. These basic talismans weren't very powerful. Their effect was simply proportional to his cultivation level, but they were versatile and had many uses, even more varied than the minor tricks he could perform with Fu Hokiman. Having done this, Yangqing picked up a piece of wood from the table and rubbed it with his fingers. A long wooden stick took shape. Holding the wooden stick, he tapped Ning Rongrong on the head without hesitation. Not too hard, not too soft. Smack. Huh. Ning Rongrong woke up with a start. The moment her eyes opened, they were still misty. Her pupils were unfocused, and she was in a daze, caught between dreaming and waking. Who? What? Yangqing spoke. Douluo tulip. Ning Rongrong blinked. The method to evolve the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Yangqing's speaking speed was neither fast nor slow, as if he were reading a list. Find the immortal herb, the Douluo tulip, and consume it. It can directly improve your aptitude and upgrade the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda to the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. He finished speaking. Ning Rongrong's brain was still booting up. She stared blankly at Yangqing, her lips parting slightly. A tuft of hair on her short head was sticking up, flattened from her nap. Yangqing had already stood up. He patted his robe, gave a long stretch, and let out an unabashed yawn. There, I've given you the method to evolve the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda as promised. As he spoke, he was already walking toward the bed in the right corner of the room. Pick one from the spirit abilities I introduced earlier, and I'll teach you. Then go and register for that Shrek Academy of yours. Another yawn. Master is going to rest now. With that, Yangqing reached the bedside. He flopped onto the simple wooden bed, his back to Ning Rongrong. He curled up under his long robe, finding a comfortable position. Ning Rongrong stared at his back and bottom. She muttered unconsciously. Douluo tulip, Douluo tulip. Immortal herb, what is that? Is it for real? Then another piece of information suddenly exploded in her mind. Ning Rongrong's eyes widened. She suddenly catapulted off the stool and rushed to Yangqing's bedside in 3 steps. Hands on her hips, her brows arched, she leaned forward. What do you mean, letting this young lady pick just one spirit ability? Her voice was sharp enough to pierce through walls. What do you mean by that? Yangqing lay on the bed. He didn't even turn around. His upward-facing hand waved lazily in the air, exactly like he was shooing away mosquitoes. I mean exactly what I said. Pick one, and I'll teach you. Ning Rong's voice cracked in the next second. Weren't you going to teach me all of them? This time, Yangqing didn't even wave his hand. His voice came muffled from the direction of the pillow, as flat as if he were stating something perfectly natural. One is enough for you to master. My spirit abilities are very powerful, each with its own requirements. If you can perfectly master one, that would be quite an achievement. He paused. Don't aim too high. He yawned, his voice becoming slurred. Are all of these spirit abilities of mine very strong? Make your choice quickly. Shifu is sleepy, you should go register too. Ning Rong was stunned. She stood in front of the bed, her chest rising and falling more and more violently. The emotions in her apricot-shaped eyes shifted from disbelief to anger, and then from anger to an indescribable shame and annoyance. This appearance was extremely similar to that kind of scum man who showed his true colors after getting what he wanted. Dumping her after using her up. And chasing away the guest. How can you be like this? Ning Rongrong's voice raised, carrying grievance and anger. You can't be like this. Big liar, you promised me. Yangqing didn't move at all. Ning Rongrong took action. She grabbed Yangqing's shoulders and shook him hard. You said you'd teach me everything. She dragged Yangqing's body from left to right. The heavenly connecting talisman must be taught. And then pushed him from right to left. Fu Hokiman must be taught. Yangqing was shaken by her like a dead fish, his head wobbling from side to side, and his entire body was almost twisted into a maggot. Yet his face was completely lifeless, letting Ning Rongrong pull him back and forth. Big liar Shifu, no way, you must teach this young lady everything. Ning Rongrong shouted angrily while pushing and pulling. And what right do you have to chase this young lady away? Since you are already this young lady's Shifu, then what is yours is this young lady's? What is this young lady's is still this young lady's? She pointed at the 4 walls inside the room. Your house is naturally this young lady's house too. This young lady will stay as long as she wants. Yangqing was shaken until his head felt like it was about to break off. But his response was still that utterly unfazed tone. Fine, stay as long as you want, anything is fine. He paused. But we are still only teaching one spirit ability. Ning Rongrong's hand stopped. She stood in place, her slender and tender fists clenching so hard her knuckles cracked, her little face flushed red. This detestable big liar Shifu, Yongqing. Today, he had already made her angry I don't know how many times. In the past few years, no one had ever made her this angry. She was beyond furious. You damn big liar Shifu. After cursing this sentence, Ning Rong didn't care that she was wearing a dress and leapt directly onto Yongxing's bed. Her knees accurately landed on Yongxing's waist, her legs clamped inward, and her entire body straddled Yongxing's sideways lying waist, looking down from above. Take that for lying. Take that for only teaching one. Take that for chasing this young lady away. Her hands alternated kneading and beating, venting on Yongxing's body like kneading dough. Her feet weren't idle either, her heels patting against Yongxing's thighs. Yongqing initially endured it. To be honest, it didn't hurt. With a titled Douluo's body, a spirit master's fists in the 20s smashing down felt just like an itch being scratched. But she happened to find an exquisite angle, straddling tighter and tighter. 2 minutes later. Alright, Yongxing's voice finally carried a bit of helplessness, get down. You get down first, everything is negotiable. Ning Rongrong panted. Her fists were still suspended in midair, ready to deliver another blow at any time. Really, you get down first. Only then did Ning Rongrong give a satisfied huff. She flipped over and got off the bed, her 2 feet landing on the ground as her white skirt hem fluttered up and down. She gathered her short hair that had become messy from the fight, and walked back to that broken table with her head held high, sitting down properly. Her arms were crossed over her chest. Her chin was lifted high. With a victorious posture, full of arrogance. Yongqing crawled up from the bed with his waist bent, and walked back to sit opposite the table with a somewhat tough face. The two sat facing each other once again. The roles of offense and defense had shifted. Speak, Ning Rongrong looked down at him from above. How are you going to teach me? Yongqing rubbed his lower back, his expression carrying a bit of resigned helplessness. Let's take a step back. He raised a finger. I'll teach you one spirit ability first. After you've learned it well and mastered it, I'll teach you the next one. Ning Rongrong's brows immediately furrowed. Yongqing quickly added another sentence. You haven't even learned a single one well, learning more is useless. Even worse, think about it yourself, if you simultaneously cultivate several completely different systems of techniques, your energy will be split among each of them, and you'll be a half-baked amateur at all of them. He looked at Ning Rongrong. Can this fulfill your idea of becoming a spirit master with offensive means? Don't tell me you just want something symbolic, like being a vase for decoration. These words poked right at Ning Rongrong's weak spot. Her lips moved twice, and the wrinkles between her brows relaxed slightly. Yongxing's mind churned, wanting to slack off a bit, he added another condition. I'll give you an extra path to learn more spirit abilities. He extended his second finger. You help me scout out talents as outstanding as you, and bring them to take me as their master. For everyone I deem qualified, I'll teach you an extra spirit ability. Ning Rongrong narrowed her eyes. Can't you find them yourself? I'm lazy, Yongqing replied righteously. Ning Rongrong looked at his deadpan appearance. She pondered for quite a while. To be honest, learning one by one was indeed more reliable than cramming everything in all at once. She had hated cultivation since she was a child, and making her cultivate several different techniques simultaneously made her head hurt just thinking about it. Moreover, that extra condition wasn't a loss either. What was Ning Rongrong's identity? The young lady of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Finding a genius wouldn't be a piece of cake. Finally, Ning Rongrong pursed her lips and reluctantly nodded. Fine then. She glanced at Yongqing. Then which spirit ability should we choose? Yongqing spread his hands. You choose. Ning Rongrong was conflicted. Fu Hokimin was truly strong, with countless variations, balancing both offense and defense. The heavenly connecting talisman had diverse methods and countless tricks. That complete hands could heal injuries, and divine machine 100 refinements could create objects. She hesitated for a moment, then raised her head to look at Yongqing. Which one suits me better? Yongqing thought about it. Fu Hokimin. The answer was given straightforwardly. Why? Your spirit is of the support system, and your spirit power attribute tends to be diverse and mixed. The core of Fu Hokimin is precisely the myriad variations returning to one, which fits your foundation the best. Moreover, it integrates offense and defense. Once you learn it, you won't have to fear anyone when going out alone. Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up. Then Fu Hokimin it is. The speed at which she made her decision was extremely fast, and after finishing, she added a follow-up question. How are you going to teach me? Dictate the techniques to me orally, and then after I enroll in Shrek, I'll come here every day to learn from you. Yongqing looked at her. An arc curved up at the corner of his mouth. That smile was excessively unfathomable, and the corners of his eyes even carried 3 parts of smugness. He slowly shook his head. No need. Ning Rongrong had a blank look on her face. What do you mean no need? Before she finished speaking, Yongxing's finger reached out. His index finger pressed against Ning Rongrong's forehead. A gentle tap. The touch of the fingertips was warm. Ning Rongrong was about to open her mouth and ask, what are you doing? Boom. There was no sound, no light, but that feeling could only be described with boom. A massive, vast stream of information that could not be described with words surged out within Ning Rongrong's mind. It was not text, not images, but a more direct inheritance that seemed carved into the depths of the soul. Innate chi. Palace center positioning. The 4 discs rotating, the 72 pentats cycling. All things returning to one. Every single concept was something language could not carry, yet at this instant, it was branded into her consciousness with utmost clarity. It was like someone had shoved a mountain directly into her brain, yet without cracking her skull open. A few seconds. Only a few seconds. That torrent receded. Ning Rongrong's pupils refocused. She blinked once, then blinked again. The whole person seemed to have floated up from deep water, taking a heavy gasp of air. She looked at Yongqing in front of her. But what she saw was already different. Everything Yongqing had just performed in front of her, turning into birds and snakes, controlling fire and lightning, and wind blades slicing through the roof, seemed to her at this moment to be merely the most superficial and crude applications of Fu Hokimin. The true Fu Hokimin was 10,000 times more vast than those. Setting the central palace in the heart and using oneself as the eye of the formation, everything around was brought into the board. The flow of time could be fine-tuned, the folds of space could be kneaded, and the form of matter could be reshaped at will. This was not a spirit ability. This was an entire system of methods for perceiving and controlling the world. Ning Rongrong's lips were tightly pursed. Yangqing looked at her eyes, which still retained deep shock, and an excessively smug smile appeared on his face. All of my spirit abilities are of the inherited type. He crossed his legs, his tone infuriatingly cheeky. No need to learn. Once I teach it to you, just slowly figure out how to use it yourself later. What level you can ultimately reach depends on your own fortune. Ning Rongrong's head nodded like a rattled drum. Nodding hard. Nodding frantically. Her expression at this moment completely lacked the condescending scrutiny from before, replaced instead by pure excitement and awe after being completely subdued. But as she nodded, her movement slowed down. A strange light flashed in the depths of her eyes. Inherited type spirit abilities. Learned instantly. Requiring no learning process. Wouldn't this thing be able to be passed on to others then? Ning Rongrong's brain spun rapidly. With this kind of inherited spirit ability being so formidable and usable by any spirit, wouldn't it be the most suitable sect-protecting method that the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School had been searching for thousands of years? If she were to pass Fu Hokim into her father, to the core disciples in the sect. Right. Yangxing's voice chimed in just at the right moment, his tone casual, as if mentioning it in passing. I've set restrictions on this inherited spirit ability of mine. You cannot orally dictate it to others, nor can you impart it to anyone else. Ning Rongrong's face soured. Soured instantly. Like eating a gallbladder wrapped in sugar. She puckered her lips, pouting them high. You're so stingy. Yet she didn't doubt the truth in Yangxing's words in the slightest, because Fu Hokiman had already made her realize the fact that the scammer master in front of her was indeed not simple. Yangqing waved his hand indifferently. Then he stretched lazily again, letting out who knows how many yawns for the day. Alright, if there's nothing else, hurry up and go register for that Shrek Academy of yours. He got up and strolled swaying back toward the bed. If you don't go anymore, you might not even be able to register. Stop disturbing master from sleeping. As he spoke, he had already collapsed onto the bed. Lying down on his side, back-facing Ning Rongrong, he found a comfortable position. Watching Yangxing's attitude of completely not taking her, the little princess disciple of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, seriously, Ning Rongrong felt her teeth itch with anger again. She got up and walked to the bedside. Bang. She kicked the edge of the bed. Bang. And followed up with 2 more kicks. Yangqing was kicked until he swayed, without even letting out a single hum. Ning Rongrong deflated, shook her foot, and stood in place thinking for 2 seconds. She really had to go register. She had inquired before coming, Shrek Academy only accepted entrance examinations at specific times, and if she dawdled any longer, she really wouldn't make it. She bent down and leaned close to Yangxing's ear. This young lady will be back soon, scammer master, you better not run away. Yangqing let out a grunt on the bed, vague and blurry, carrying heavy sleepiness. Ning Rongrong waited another 2 seconds. Confirming that this person had no intention of responding further, she curled her lips, turned around, and walked toward the door. Her hand had just touched the dilapidated wooden door. Whoosh. A streak of white light flew from behind, landing with absolute precision into her palm. It was warm, carrying a trace of faint spirit power fluctuations. Ning Rongrong looked down. There was an extra fingernail-sized white talisman imprint in her palm. Its luster was soft, and fine patterns vaguely flowed across its surface. She clutched the talisman and turned around. What is this? Yangxing's voice came from the bed, lazy to the extreme, every word dragging out a long tail end. Master's talisman. He rolled over, still not opening his eyes. If you encounter a truly fatal life or death crisis, pour spirit power into it to activate it, and then shout, Master, 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 3 times. I will be able to instantly appear before you and save you, my cute disciple. Ning Rongrong gripped the talisman imprint. She felt no touch of emotion. Her first reaction was to cover her chest. Then, with the gaze of looking at a sewer rat, she cast her eyes across the entire room toward that lump of human shape lying sideways on the bed. Could this be because you saw this young lady was naturally gifted and breathtakingly beautiful, and specifically made it to monitor and peep at this young lady? Her voice was full of disgust and vigilance. To satisfy that perverted, ugly desire of yours as a master. The bed fell silent for 2 seconds. Then Yangxing's flat voice drifted over. If you don't want it, I'll take it back. Ning Rongrong's hand tightened around the talisman imprint, concealing it behind her back like a conditioned reflex. TCH. She turned her face away, an unnatural pink flush floating on her cheek. This young lady doesn't trust you, this scamming stinky master, all that much either. She pinched the talisman imprint, her fingertips rubbing against the patterns on it. I'll just reluctantly believe you this once. She lifted her chin toward the direction of the bed. You better not have put a peeping function in it. Otherwise, if this young lady finds out, I'll have Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Gu beat you to death. 3 completely insincere nasal sounds came from the direction of the pillow. Ning Rongrong glared one last time at the back facing her. HMPH. She pulled open the door and stepped out. With a creak, the door closed. The light inside the room dimmed by more than half. Yangqing lay on the bed, listening to the sound of those footsteps outside stepping on the gravel ground gradually fading away. Becoming lighter and lighter. Further and further. Until they could no longer be heard at all. His breathing evened out. The strain in his body that had been taut all afternoon completely relaxed at this moment. 10 years. From 8 years old to 18. From inside the village to outside the village, from one city to another, from being driven away as a lunatic to being sent out of the house by his parents. Attempted obedient disciple number 365. Innumerable failures, innumerable rejections, innumerable times of being treated as mentally ill. Today. Finally received one. He closed his eyes, the corners of his mouth curling up. Not 2 seconds later, his breathing became steady and long. The sunlight outside the door pierced through the gaps in the door panels, casting a few crooked rays of light on the ground. The scent of wood in the room quietly drifted. Yangqing fell asleep. After who knows how long. Yangqing woke up. To be precise, he was jolted awake by the sound of his own snoring. The moment he opened his eyes, the room was pitch black, to the point where one couldn't see their own fingers. Moonlight leaked in a little from the hole in that dilapidated window outside, illuminating a patch of dusty ground. How many hours had passed? Yangqing flipped over and sat up, his mind absurdly clear. That feeling of complete transparency after just waking up, where every pore seemed to be breathing, pierced from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. No. It wasn't just that he had slept his fill. That power within his body was still there. The presence of the 9 spirit rings clearly hovered in his meridians, like 9 stable stars each suspended in their established orbits. Origin of Chi was silently operating, and the invisible spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the surrounding air was being continuously devoured and absorbed by his body. It wasn't a dream. Yangqing bounced off the bed, and the instant his feet touched the ground, his right fist tightly clenched. The spirit power in his palm surged out, roaringly flooding his entire arm. That sense of fullness made his blood boil. Ah, ah! Yangqing threw his head back and let out a roar bursting from the depths of his soul. That sound penetrated the wooden plank walls of the dilapidated house, penetrated the alley, and pierced the night sky of the entire shantytown. What are you howling for in the middle of the night? Are you sick in the head? I have a stall to set up tomorrow. Shout again and I'll smash your teeth out. Curses from all directions poured over like splashing water. Yangqing shut his mouth. Chapter 20 Testing of Abilities. It wasn't out of fear. To be honest, with his current strength, a casual silencing talisman using the heavenly connecting talisman could render everyone within a 100-meter radius mute until dawn. But he didn't do that. The moral cultivation from 9 years of compulsory education in the 21st century still gave him a basic sense of public morality. Yangqing pursed his lips, suppressed the remaining excitement in his throat, and instead silently threw a combination of punches in the dark using whispered breath. That feeling of suffocation from getting a new toy but not being allowed to shout was like being a monkey locked in a cage. No. He had to find a place where no one was around, and by the way, test his own strength. His gaze moved overhead. That hole was still there. It was a masterpiece left by the wind blade he cut out when he transformed into a bird shape in the afternoon. At this moment, moonlight was pouring down from that breach, spilling onto him. Yangqing kicked off with his legs. His body, like an arrow shot out by a bowstring, silently darted out from that hole. The night wind poured into his robes. The panoramic view of Soto City rapidly shrank beneath his feet. Those dimly lit streets and alleys, the rows of densely packed rooftops, and the torches in the hands of the patrolling soldiers on the city wall all turned into tiny specks of light. Yangqing did not stop. He continued to ascend. 100 meters, 300 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters. Until the entire Soto City became a palm-sized chessboard beneath his feet, and until the pitch-black soul-hunting forest outside the city, stretching to the edge of his vision, unfolded completely beneath his gaze. Yangqing hovered 1,000 meters high in the sky. The moonlight shone on him, and the night wind blew his hem. Beneath his feet was the void, and above his head was the river of stars. 18 years. He had always looked up at the sky. Now the sky was under his feet. He took a deep breath, leaned his body forward, and flew rapidly toward the direction of the soul-hunting forest. The mastery over space granted by Fu Hokiman made his flight speed far exceed the limit of a spirit master of the same rank. Diving down from a height of 1,000 meters, the restricted wall on the periphery of that forest was nothing more than a thin line in his eyes. Within a few breaths, the wall flashed past beneath his feet, and he had already penetrated deep into the central area of the forest. Landing. The moment his feet touched the earth, Yangqing did not hesitate. He waved his right hand. Whoosh. A visible arc-shaped wind blade swept outward with him as the center. Wherever it passed, ancient trees as thick as a waist were chopped off from the roots by an invisible giant blade, collapsing with a bang. Closely following was a crimson wave of fire, instantly incinerating the fallen trees into ashes. Within 2 breaths, a clearing within a radius of 200 meters was swept clean. The ground was as flat as a mirror, and not even grass roots were left. Yangqing stood in the center and stretched his neck. Fine, the venue was big enough. What he tested first was the origin of Chi. This ability hanging in the first spirit ring slot was the foundation of all his abilities. If its spirit power supply had an upper limit, everything behind it would be castles in the air. Yangqing began to output spirit power. It was not a trickle-style output. It was opening all floodgates and pouring it out without reservation. With both palms facing the sky, 2 pillars of energy mixed with wind, fire, thunder, and ice soared into the sky, bursting into a sky full of light rain in the night sky. That light illuminated the forest crowns for hundreds of miles around, continuously tearing the dark night into daylight. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Such continuous pouring of spirit power would have bottomed out any spirit master of the same rank long ago. But the spirit power reserves in Yangqing's body did not decrease by a shred. The origin of Chi was devouring the spiritual Chi between heaven and earth at a terrifying efficiency, transforming, filling, and cycling it. Endless. It was as if his body was connected to an invisible ocean. No matter how he drew from it, the sea level would not drop by a fraction. Yangqing pulled back his hands. He nodded with satisfaction. Infinite mana bar. Confirmed. Next was another core ability of the origin of Chi, deconstruction. He wasn't in a hurry to find a spirit beast. He first sensed the breath fluctuations around him and locked onto a tyrannical spirit power fluctuation about 3 kilometers away to the northeast. Millennium level. Raptor type. Yangqing's figure flashed, and the spatial displacement of Fu Hokiman sent him directly in front of the target. That was a pitch-black giant eagle with a wingspan of 7 or 8 meters, resting on top of a surviving ancient tree. Yangqing's sudden appearance made it alert instantly. A fierce light flashed in its sharp eagle eyes, and it opened its beak to emit a harsh screech. The next instant, black wind blades shot out from the flapping of its wings, carrying sharp spirit power enough to cut steel, heading straight for Yangqing's face. Yangqing stood still. The moment the wind blade touched the surface of his body, it was like a drop of ink falling into clear water. The black wind blade began to decompose the moment it contacted him. Visible in rapid decomposition. The condensed aggressive spirit power was stripped away layer by layer, restored to the most basic, non-aggressive dissipated spirit power, like a breeze brushing across his cheeks. It didn't even lift his hem. The thin film of spirit power constantly covering Yangqing's entire body from the origin of Chi would automatically perform underlying deconstruction on all energy-based attacks that touched it, returning them to their most primitive state. The Black Eagle continuously fired 7 or 8 wind blades, each of which silently dissipated an inch in front of Yangqing. Yangqing stretched lazily. All right, go home and sleep. With a casual wave of his hand, mental suppression from spirit control and general dispatch enveloped the Black Eagle. Under this pressure, the soul of the Millennium Level Spirit Beast instantly collapsed its will to resist, let out a miserable wail, and fled in panic flapping its wings. Yangqing didn't chase. As long as the goal was achieved, it was fine. The following 2 hours were the most exhilarating 2 hours in Yangqing's 18 years of life. He used spirit control and general dispatch to pull out the remnant soul from the spirit ring of a Millennium Level Spirit Beast he had just killed. Under the control of his will, that wisp of remnant soul condensed into a translucent spiritual wolf, crouching at his feet, as docilely as a dog. He used complete hands to cut a gash on his left arm, where broken bones were visible. Then he placed his right hand over it, a pale golden light flashed, and flesh and bones grew and healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. 2 seconds later, the arm was as good as new. He even cut off his entire left hand. At the instant blood spurted out, there was not the slightest panic. The light of complete hands enveloped the stump, and a new palm grew out from the cross-section. Muscles, bones, blood vessels, skin, layer by layer regeneration. It was no more than 5 seconds from start to finish. Reviving the dead and fleshing bones. Literally speaking. As long as he wasn't obliterated into dust by a single blow, under the infinite spirit power blessing provided by the origin of Chi, he could achieve near infinite self-repair through complete hands. Needless to say, the attack tests of Fu Hokumin and the heavenly connecting talisman were even more so. Seas of fire burning forests, thunder splitting the ground, spatial tearing, fine-tuning of time. He even tried to use the time ability of Fu Hokumin to reverse a tree he had burned down back to its growing state. The scene of tender buds pulling out from the ashes made even Yongqing himself stare in a daze for half a second. He also tested the physical body enhanced by the 6 storehouses of mortal thieves. With one punch slamming into the ground, the surface within a radius of 10 meters directly shattered and collapsed. That pure physical strength made him feel as if his fists were wrapped in a layer of steel. Moreover, the 6 storehouses of mortal thieves also brought him a clear perception. He could feel that his vitality was almost locked the moment he acquired this ability. The speed of cellular aging slowed down to an almost imperceptible degree, and the body almost stopped degenerating. A flawless body of longevity. Without accident, even if he didn't become a god, he could live for thousands or tens of thousands of years. What did this mean? Yang Xing's mind suddenly turned to a critical question. In the worldview of the Douluo continent, gods could not directly descend to the lower realm. True gods interfering in the mortal world required paying a huge price, and their strength would also be affected, not as strong as in the god realm, and they might even be backlashed by the rules of the god realm. In other words, if he just gave up and didn't become a god, lingering on the Douluo continent and refusing to leave. On the entire surface of the continent, no entity could threaten him. As soon as this thought popped up, the corners of Yang Xing's mouth couldn't help but curl upwards. Lastly was Douluo insight. This ability had always been the one he was most curious about before transmigrating. In the original work, Ji Yuqiting used it to tamper with his own causal threads to escape pursuit, but the specific principles were always vague. Now possessing it personally, Yongqing finally understood its essence. Dimensional observation and intervention. Chapter 21, Your Excellency, Your Eminence. In short, he could see a person's line of fate. What happened in the past and where the future would lead were all presented in his perception in the form of an abstract flow of information. Not just seeing. He could alter it. Of course, altering it required a price. At his current level, casting Douluo insight with all his might to interfere with the fate line of an entity of the same tier as himself would probably consume more than half of his energy and spirit power in his normal state. But with the endless spirit power of origin of Chi as his backing and the recovery of complete hands as his guarantee, this consumption became almost negligible. Even if he pushed Douluo insight to its limit, theoretically he could shuttle through the past and future along the timeline. 8 extraordinary techniques. 8 abilities. Taking out any single one of them had obvious shortcomings. Origin of Chi could deconstruct energy but could not defend against physical attacks, spirit control and general dispatch could control souls but had no offensive power of its own, and Douluo insight could alter fate but consumed a massive amount. But once the 8 abilities cooperated with each other and made up for each other's shortcomings, the resulting effect would soar by geometric multiples. Just like a precision machine, each part looked powerful enough on its own, but when assembled together, it became even more like a nuclear reactor. Yongqing estimated his current comprehensive combat power. The basic strength of a normal level 90 titled Douluo, coupled with the all-around blessing of the 8 extraordinary techniques. Fighting a level 99 version of himself without the blessing of the 8 extraordinary techniques might not necessarily result in a win, as that was the ultimate state where the system only unlocked it for 1 minute per month. But he had the strength for a battle. He could save his life and contend against it. For Yongqing, who had been a level 0 trash for 18 years, this conclusion had already made him feel exhilarated to the point of scalp tingling. He just wanted to point at the sky and shout, under the same tier 1 I'm invincible, above the same tier 1 can trade 1 for a group. The test lasting over 2 hours ended. The central area of the soul hunting forest, within a radius of more than 10 miles, had been turned into a ruin by his tossing about. Scorched earth, deep pits, solidified magma, bizarre vegetation half reversed by time, and translucent spiritual body spirit beasts wandered among them. The entire area exuded a terrifying aura that made all living creatures instinctively want to stay away. In fact, from the very first moment Yongqing began his test, the spirit masters hunting in the entire soul hunting forest had already discovered the abnormality. Those pillars of energy soaring into the sky, the continuous explosions, and the suffocating spirit power fluctuations coming from the central area made everyone make the same judgment. A terrifying high-tier spirit beast had been born. Run. Run outside the forest. Yongqing had long noticed the commotion around him. After the test ended, his Douluo insight had been in a state of passive perception, and the positions and movements of all living creatures within a radius of several miles were completely under his control. He didn't care about those fleeing spirit masters. But a group of people came in the opposite direction. They stopped at the periphery of his test range, watching from afar. The spirit power fluctuation of the person at the head was stable and heavy, above level 60, surrounded by more than a dozen guards exuding a metallic aura. Yongqing gathered back the spirit power fluctuations that had leaked during the test and tidied his hair blown messy by the wind. His figure stepped forward. Fu Hokumin's spatial displacement had no warning at all. 1 second ago he was still in the center of the ruins 1,000 meters away, and the next second he had already appeared 5 meters in front of that group of people. Whoosh. The air wave coming with his appearance whipped up a violent gale, blowing the clothing and armor of the black armored guards opposite him to wrestle loudly. All the guards drew their weapons at the exact same instant. Sabers, swords, long spears, more than a dozen weapons pointed at Yongqing in unison, the sound of metal friction being particularly piercing in the night. The spirit rings of the guards appeared beneath their feet, 2 rings, 3 rings, and the highest one being no more than 4 rings. But their hands were shaking. Because the oppression exuding from the youth standing in front of them, who looked only 17 or 18 years old, made it difficult for them even to breathe. That feeling couldn't be described by levels. It was the instinctive fear of a living creature facing its natural predator. The middle-aged man at the head did not draw his weapon. He wore a set of dark patterned gorgeous robes, with a square face, slightly white sideburns, and a neatly trimmed short beard under his jaw. A pair of eyes appeared particularly sharp under the moonlight, but at this moment that sharpness was mixed with heavy solemnity. He looked at Yangqing. Young. Too young. But he had lived for more than 50 years, and he had seen quite a few powerhouses who maintained their youth. However, one who looked young in appearance wasn't necessarily truly young. It was also possible they were one of those old freaks who maintained their youth, and the more terrifying their strength was. Being able to fly. At least spirit saint level. That kind of unheralded spatial displacement just now. And that oppression that made even him, a level 69 spirit emperor, feel breathless. It was highly possible he was a spirit Douluo higher than a spirit saint. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and raised his hand to press downward. Put away your weapons. The guards hesitated for a split second, but still obeyed the order and slowly lowered their weapons. The middle-aged man stepped forward, cupped his fists, and bent his waist and back by 15 degrees. His posture was respectful but not humble, which was the standard etiquette when a person of status faced an entity of a higher tier. I am the Lord of Soto City, Barak Horn, level 69 Spirit Emperor, Spirit Lion patterned battle shield. He raised his head, looking at Yangqing with sincere eyes. May I ask your esteemed name, Your Excellency? Do you have any important matters upon visiting Soto City? If needed, Horn is willing to render service for Your Excellency. Yangqing looked at the Lord of the city in front of him. To be honest, he originally just wanted to find someone to ask where the Spirit Hall in Soto City was, go there to show his identity and borrow some money to spend. As a result, they delivered themselves to his door. Saves trouble. The corners of Yangqing's mouth twitched upward. He had no superfluous nonsense. He raised his right hand, palm facing upward. 9 spirit rings emerged from beneath his feet. 2 yellow, 2 purple, 4 black, 1 red. All 9 rings came out together, blooming with a dazzling, blinding light in the night. That light illuminated the expression on every face around. Barak Horn's face turned pale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 spirit rings. Titled Douluo. And he was a terrifying grade titled Douluo with 4 10,000-year spirit rings and 100,000-year spirit ring. A dry swallowing sound came from his throat, his legs felt as if their strength had been sucked away, and his knees heavily smashed onto the ground. Those dozen or so black-armored guards behind him reacted even faster than him. The sound of weapons falling out of their hands merged into one piece, followed by the uniform dull sound of knees hitting the ground. Titled Douluo, Your Eminence. Barak's forehead pressed against the ground, the trembling in his voice completely unable to be suppressed. Pardon Horn for being blind, not knowing Your Eminence visited Soto City, failing to welcome you from afar. I earnestly beg for your forgiveness. Yangqing looked at this crowd of prostrating people in front of him. To be honest, this feeling was indeed quite exhilarating. But on the surface, he just faintly waved his hand. Get up, there's no need for such grand courtesy. Barak stood up trembling, his knees stained with mud, but he couldn't care about patting them off. His entire posture was lower than before by 3 points, his back hunched, his eyes not daring to look straight at Yangqing, only staring at his chin. Yangqing put away his spirit rings. City Lord Barak, right. His tone was as casual as chatting with a neighbor. It's like this, I have just arrived in Soto City, encountered some things on the way, and lost the soul coins on my body. He spread both hands. Can you arrange a place for me to live, and lend me some soul coins to use? Barak's brain turned twice. Titled Douluo, no money on him, borrowing from him. What concept was this? This was equivalent to a humanoid nuclear bomb that could raise the entire Soto City to the ground at any time, saying politely to you, hey, lend me some pocket change. Would you dare to say no? Your Eminence is joking. Barak's face was piled with a smile uglier than crying, the amplitude of his bowing increasing by a few more points. Your Eminence visiting Soto City is the greatest honor of Soto City. Accommodations, wealth, as long as Your Eminence speaks, Horn will not hesitate to exhaust everything. Yangqing nodded in satisfaction. Then I'll have to trouble City Lord Barak. Chapter 22, Report. Half an hour later. Yangqing stood in the main hall of a 3-entry courtyard mansion in the center of Soto City, looking around. Carved redwood pillars stood tall, silk curtains hung down from the roof beams, underfoot lay a thick animal skin carpet. On the long table directly opposite sat a jasper vase holding several sprigs of unknown fragrant flowers, filling the room with a quiet elegance. It was better than his rundown shack, by about 10,000 times. Barak personally presented a golden soul coin card to him with both hands. Your Eminence, this is a limit card for 10,000 gold coins, accepted in all shops within Soto City. If it's not enough later, just tell the guard next to you at any time, and he will withdraw enough gold coins for you. Yangqing took it and casually stuffed it into his pocket. 10,000 gold coins, converted to bronze coins, that was 100 million of them. His entire net worth before this was only 10 bronze coins. Yangqing felt the corners of his mouth twitching, desperately trying to maintain an indifferent expression of, I don't care about this pocket change. Also, Barak clapped his hands. The curtains on both sides of the main hall were lifted. A group of young girls dressed in matching light-colored gauze dresses filed in, lining up in front of Yangqing and curtsying in unison. 16 of them, all 16 girls were 17 or 18 years old, with lovely faces and slender, exquisite figures. These are the finest maids in Horn's mansion, arranged to serve Your Eminence's daily needs. Barak bowed even lower. If Your Eminence has any dissatisfaction, Horn will replace them at any time. Yangqing looked at the row of 16 beautiful, flower-like young maids in front of him. He had originally planned to go out and wander around the night markets of Soto City after settling in, to experience the local customs of this other world. Now, he didn't want to go anymore. Nor did he need to. City Lord Barak, Yangqing turned around, a highly sincere smile appearing on his face. You really know how to get things done. Hearing this, Barak's face lit up with joy, and he bowed as he retreated. The moment the door closed behind him, the cold sweat on his back finally poured down. The room fell quiet. The 16 young maids stood in a row with lowered eyes and submissive postures, their gauze dresses shimmering softly in the candlelight. The girl at the very front, her hair styled in a low bun, looked up and spoke timidly, Your Eminence, do you need me to prepare hot water for your bath? Yangqing glanced at her. She was around 18, with delicate features and a soft, gentle voice. The ones behind her were similar, each beautiful in her own way, some gentle, some bright, some charming. 16 of them. In his heart, Yangqing silently gave the Soto City Lord's capability a perfect score. Prepare it, he said, his tone as calm as if he were saying, pour me a glass of water. 10 years. A whole 10 years. From 8 to 18, what kind of life had he lived on the Douluo continent? Trying to take disciples only to get rejected, kicked out of villages, run out of cities, with only 10 bronze coins to his name, living in a rundown shack so cramped even mice would find it crowded. And now, a grand mansion, 10,000 gold coins handed over on a whim. 16 beautiful young maids. Ah, life. Next, Yongqing put his arms around the 16 maids and headed straight into the bedroom, beginning a life of pure indulgence, losing all track of time. Meanwhile, at the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, 300 miles west of the imperial capital of the Heavendo Empire. The atmosphere inside the sect master's grand hall was as heavy as a layer of winter ice. 3 grand armchairs were arranged with the main seat in the center and 2 on the sides. The 3 people seated in them each had their own thoughts, yet all were staring toward the hall's entrance. Ning Fengji sat right in the center. His dark purple shoulder-length hair fell neatly, his gaze as calm as water, and his violet-colored luxurious robes were ironed without a single wrinkle. His fingers tapped the armrest rhythmically, neither too fast nor too slow, a patience unique to waiting. He was waiting for news of his daughter. In the armchair to the left, Chen Qin, clad in a snow-white robe, sat with his eyes closed, resting his mind. His silver hair was neatly combed back, and his face was as smooth and delicate as a baby's, forming a bizarre contrast with his piercing, chilling aura. He sat bolt upright like a sheathed sword, quiet but sharp. The person sitting in the chair on the right was far more dramatic. Ji Yurong's nearly 2.5 meter tall frame made the gold inlaid armchair creak loudly. His withered face, deep sunken eye sockets, and the few sparse white hairs on his head made him look like a dried corpse dragged straight out of a coffin. His sitting posture was highly unrefined, leaning lopsidedly against the back of the chair with his astonishingly bony, long legs stretched far out. None of the 3 spoke. A hurried set of footsteps sounded outside the hall. Report. A young spirit master wearing the standard tight-fitting uniform of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School quickly arrived at the entrance of the hall, kneeling on one knee with his forehead pressed against the floor. Ning Fengji's fingers stopped tapping. Rise and speak. The young spirit master stood up, not daring to let his gaze wander. The 3 gazes inside the hall fell upon him almost simultaneously. The pressure of being watched by 2 titled Douluos and a rank 79 spirit saint caused sweat to instantly drench his back. Tell us about Rongrong's enrollment, Ning Fengji said in a warm, almost casual tone. But everyone knew what lay beneath that casualness. Reporting to the sect master, the young spirit master took a deep breath. The young mistress arrived safely in Soto City today and has successfully passed the Shrek Academy entrance exam. As those words landed, the tense atmosphere in the hall eased. Chen Qin's closed eyelids fluttered open a fraction before closing again. Ji Yurong's slouched body finally straightened up slightly, his mouth stretching into a grin that revealed a row of rather unsightly teeth. Ning Fengji's gaze softened slightly, and his fingers resumed tapping the armrest, this time with a lighter, quicker rhythm. He nodded, just about to say something. However, the young spirit master's voice suddenly caught. It was as if a bone were lodged in his throat. The moment that, however, left his mouth, the newly relaxed atmosphere in the hall froze once more. Ning Fengji's fingers stopped. Chen Qin's eyes flew open. With a creak, Ji Yurong sat bolt upright. However what, Ning Fengji's tone remained steady, but his furrowed brows already betrayed his anxiety. Did something else happen to Rongrong? The young spirit master's lips trembled. He made no sound. Bang. Ji Yurong's 2.5 meter frame launched up from his chair, and his undisguised, ferocious aura slammed toward the young spirit master like a solid wall. Just spit it out, why are you hesitating? Ji Yurong's voice, raspy like wind blowing through fallen leaves, echoed through the grand hall, carrying absolute impatience and irritation. Do you know the consequences of making this old man worry about Rongrong? The young spirit master's knees buckled, and he almost fell back to his knees. Old bone, Chen Qin's voice came from the side, as light as a gentle breeze. He remained seated in his chair, his silver hair reflecting a cold glow in the candlelight. His tone was casual, as if he were speaking of an incredibly boring, trivial matter. Keep your temper in check, you're scaring the junior. He lifted his eyelids slightly, casting a glance at Ji Yurong. There was a faint, almost imperceptible sense of superiority in his eyes. Ji Yurong glared back at him. Chen Qin had already withdrawn his gaze, his eyes resting on the young spirit master, his face completely unperturbed. Since he came to report and said Rongrong enrolled smoothly, it shouldn't be anything major, Chen Qin said in a calm, logical tone. If something had truly happened, he wouldn't be acting like this. It's likely just that girl Rongrong being mischievous on the way and causing some sort of commotion. He nodded slightly to the young spirit master. Speak with peace of mind. With us here, even if Rongrong turns the heavens upside down, what trouble is there that we cannot settle? Ning Fengji also spoke up at the right moment, his tone returning to a gentle warmth. Do not be afraid, speak. The young spirit master swallowed hard. Under the watchful eyes of the 3 heavyweights, his voice trembled slightly, but he finally managed to squeeze the words out. It isn't that the young mistress caused any trouble. He paused. It's that after entering Soto City, the young mistress took a master. Chapter 23. Someone is plotting against us. The grand hall fell silent for a moment. A brief silence, filled only with the sound of breathing. Then, all 3 of them spoke almost simultaneously. What? Ning Fengji half stood from his seat. Taking a master, Chen Qin's silver eyebrows furrowed. Whoosh. A white afterimage flashed. Chen Qin's figure appeared in front of the young spirit master in the blink of an eye. Before the hem of his snow-white robe could even settle, his hand had already grabbed the young spirit master's collar, lifting him clean off the ground. Explain, in detail. Chen Qin's voice was as soft as a breeze drifting from afar. But the chill in his eyes made the young spirit master being held feel as if his very blood was freezing. She took a master. What master? Who is it? What happened? Ji Yurong's voice boomed from behind. How on earth were you looking after Rongrong? She went to enroll in a school, so how did she end up with a master? His tone was as cold as a draft rising from the depths of the earth. Ning Fengji's brow also furrowed deeply, but he did not move. He remained seated, his fingers pressing against the armrest as his calm gaze fixed on the young spirit master dangling in midair from Chen Qin's grip. Set him down, let him explain clearly. Chen Qin released his grip. The moment the young spirit master's feet hit the ground, he stumbled. His Adam's apple bobbed twice before he finally found his voice. The eldest miss entered Soto City, and near the south gate, she was drawn to a fortune-telling stall. He began to recount the events from the very beginning. From the middle-aged man who claimed the fortune-teller correctly predicted his wife's pregnancy posture, to the old farmer who found a gold coin in the corner of his back gate. From Ning Rongrong stepping forward to speak out against the fraud, to her being tag-teamed by the 2 men who accused her of being a busybody. By this point, Ning Fengji's brow was deeply furrowed. Chen Qin and Ji Yurong exchanged a glance. Isn't that just a con artist? Ji Yurong's voice rose a few pitches. Hiring 2 shills to put on a show. Child's play. Chen Shin didn't reply, but the curve of his lips grew cold. The young spirit master continued. The eldest miss has a competitive nature, so she got into an argument with the fortune teller. In the end, the two of them made a bet, challenging him to answer questions she posed. And then, Ning Fengji asked. The young spirit master took a deep breath. That fortune teller got every single one right. The air in the hall suddenly grew icy cold. The eldest miss's name, age, identity, hobbies, background, and her purpose for coming to Soto City. The young spirit master's voice grew quieter and quieter. Even your name and identity, sect master, everything, without a single word out of place. Ji Yurong's face darkened completely. Someone is plotting against Rongrong. He slammed a palm against a nearby pillar, sending a dull boom echoing through the hall. To think someone would dare set a trap for our 7 treasure glazed tile school. He turned back to Ning Fengji and Chen Shin, his deeply sunken eyes filled with absolute certainty. I refuse to believe this is just a coincidence. Chen Shin remained silent, but as he stood there, the temperature around him plummeted below freezing. The bone-deep killing intent radiating from him made the young spirit master feel as if an invisible sword were pressed against his throat. Ning Fengji's expression had gone completely flat. It wasn't calmness, it was a blankness born from all emotions being tightly reined in and compressed. He spoke, his voice completely devoid of inflection. And this is the person Rongrong ended up taking as her master. The young spirit master nodded. Yes. Ning Fengji closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his gaze drifted past the grand hall, looking toward somewhere very, very far away. Why didn't you make a move at the time? The question wasn't loud, but everyone present could hear the underlying weight packed beneath it. Cold sweat began to bead on the young spirit master's forehead. The sect master's order before departure was, we must only intervene if the eldest miss's life is in actual danger. At the time, we judged that the fortune teller was an ordinary person with no spirit power. An ordinary person? Ji Yurong instantly exploded. How could an ordinary person know about our 7 treasure glazed tile school? How could he know Rongrong's hobbies? He took a step forward, looming over the young spirit master. His towering height, combined with his terrifying, gaunt face, was enough to make someone faint on the spot. That person's cultivation must be higher than yours. You simply couldn't perceive it. The young spirit master shrank back. But he only looked to be in his teens. In his teens? Chen Shin's eyes narrowed. In those eyes, which were usually so detached they seemed almost emotionless, a trace of amusement suddenly flickered. Interesting. Ning Fengji fell silent for a few seconds. An ordinary young man. He tapped his fingers twice against the armrest. The light in his eyes flickered, making it impossible to tell what he was calculating. Continue, he said, his tone softening once more. Since you saw him as an ordinary person and Rongrong also thought he was a fraud, how did she end up successfully taking him as her master? The young spirit master swallowed hard. After the fortune teller revealed the eldest miss's information, she didn't believe him either. She accused him of being a thief who had planned this all along. But his voice began to tremble again. But then, the fortune teller said something. 3 gazes instantly locked onto him. What did he say? Ning Fengji asked. Spit it out, Ji Yurong barked. Chen Shin didn't make a sound, but his entire aura was like an unsheathed sword, radiating a piercing, cold light. The young spirit master took a deep breath. Summoning every ounce of his strength under the intense gaze of the 3 powerhouses, he forced the words out of his throat. The fortune teller told the eldest miss that he knows how to evolve the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Bang. The gold inlaid, diamond-carved jade armchair beneath Ji Yurong instantly exploded into fine powder. It wasn't crushed under his weight. Rather, in that single instant, he had failed to control the violent surge of his spirit power, shattering the entire chair from the inside out into a flurry of airborne debris. As the fragments were still drifting in the air, a swirling tempest erupted around Chen Shin. His aura poured from his body like a physical blade, turning the air within 3 meters of him into a chaotic vortex. Under this immense pressure, the young spirit master was slammed directly to the floor. Sprawled flat and unable to move, his face pressed against the cold tiles, even breathing became a luxury. Meanwhile, on the sect master's throne, a surging blue spirit power spread from around Ning Fengji's body without warning. He stood up. In those eyes, which were always so gentle and refined, only a single emotion remained. What? Ning Fengji's voice echoed through the grand hall for several seconds. He then closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, his lapse in composure had already been forced back down into the depths of his chest. Standing tall, he pressed a hand to his collar, his movement slow and deliberate, as if smoothing out the creases caused by his sudden loss of control. Then, he stepped down from the sect master's throne. His leather shoes clicked against the jade floor tiles, each step measured and rhythmic. His face, usually so warm and scholarly, was now like a piece of flawless white jade, completely unreadable. Walking up to the young spirit master, Ning Fengji looked down at his prone subordinate. His voice was as flat as a still pool of water. Get up. Trembling all over, the young spirit master scrambled to his feet, his knees still shaking. Explain what happened next, word for word. Ning Fengji's tone held no hint of threat. It was so gentle he might have been chatting about everyday matters. Yet, everyone present could tell that the intent wrapped beneath this gentleness was far more terrifying than outright rage. Before his voice could even fade. Ha! A short, almost mocking laugh erupted from the right. Ji Yurong's massive 2.5 meter frame rose from the powdery remains of his armchair. A bizarre smile played across his face, which was so gaunt he looked like a dried corpse. Combined with his deeply sunken eyes, that smile made him look 10 times more terrifying than when he was expressionless. The 1,000-year quest of our 7 treasure glazed tile school. His voice was as raspy as sandpaper rubbing against dry bone. 1,000 years, an answer that countless generations have sought, pouring out their heart's blood, yet never finding. He slammed a hand against the pillar beside him, sending wood splinters flying. And it was effortlessly solved by some teenage brat running a crappy roadside stall. He turned back to Ning Fengji and Chen Shin. Isn't that hilarious? Ha, talk about an eye-opener. In my 90+ years of living, this is the biggest eye-opener I've ever had. There wasn't the slightest hint of mirth in his laughter. Fengji, Ji Yurong's expression darkened, and from the depths of his sunken sockets, his cloudy old eyes suddenly flashed with a hawk-like sharpness. Someone has targeted us. He swept his gaze toward Chen Shin. Old sword, his voice rose several pitches. You tell me, whose handiwork is this? The Heaven Do Imperial family, Spirit Hall, the Clear Sky sect, or the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon? He took a step forward, his massive skeletal frame leaning slightly forward with emotion. Or have these factions joined forces to plot against our sect? Chapter 24, a Spirit Emperor in his teens. On the left side of the hall, Chen Shin's silver hair gleamed with a cold white luster in the candlelight. He remained motionless in his armchair, but the temperature of the air within 3 feet of him had already plummeted below freezing. HMPH. A cold snort escaped from his thin lips. Arrogant. It was a single word evaluation, but when that word left his mouth, the young spirit master felt the clothes on his back instantly drenched in cold sweat. They really think our 7 treasure glazed tile skull is an easy target. Chen Shin's voice was as faint as a distant breeze, slow and deliberate, uttering each word one by one, to provoke us without even coming up with a decent excuse. He raised his eyelids, staring unfocused at a spot on the ceiling of the hall. It seems old bone and I haven't made a move in too long. We've lost our deterrent power. Ji Yurong's withered face turned toward Chen Shin. The two of them exchanged a glance. Hey. Haha. 2 cold chuckles sounded almost simultaneously. One was hoarse, like wind blowing through rotting wood, while the other was clear and sharp, like the hum of a sword. Standing in the gap between the 2 titled Douluos, the young spirit master felt like a pebble caught between 2 icebergs. Sweat poured down from his temples, and his lips twitched twice, unsure of whether he should continue speaking. Uncle Sword, Uncle Bone. Ning Fengji's voice drifted over, calm, steady, and unhurried. The eyes of the 2 titled Douluos turned toward him at the same time. Ning Fengji's eyes were as calm and deep as a dark pool. Don't jump to conclusions too quickly. He turned around and slowly walked back to the sect master's seat but did not sit down. Resting one hand on the armrest, he turned sideways to face Chen Shin and Ji Yurong. There's one key point in what this little guy reported that you two have overlooked. He raised a finger. Rongrong took that person as her master. He paused for a beat. Taking him as her master means Rongrong believed the words of that fortune-telling fraud. Ning Fengji's gaze darkened for a brief moment. He knew his daughter all too well. That girl had been as proud as a peacock displaying its feathers since childhood. For someone to make her bow and accept them as a master, they either truly possessed something that won her over, or they had deceived her to the absolute extreme. Regardless of which it was, that young man is no ordinary person. So, let's finish listening first. Ning Fengji tapped his index finger twice on the armrest. Who knows, maybe that really is a way to evolve the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Ji Yurong opened his mouth to speak. Ning Fengji raised his hand to cut him off. If it is real, so what if we are being schemed against? And if it isn't? The corners of his eyes curved slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Then we can show our might. There is no rush. Ji Yurong closed his mouth. Although he was hot-tempered, he was not stupid. Ning Fengji's logic was flawless. Chen Shin did not make another sound either. Furrowing his silver brows slightly, he closed his eyes once more. The main hall fell silent for 3 seconds. Ning Fengji's gaze fell back onto the young spirit master. Continue. The young spirit master swallowed hard, finally getting the opportunity to speak fully. The young mistress was lured by that person's claim of evolving the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, and she signed a handwritten master-disciple contract. His voice gradually stabilized, and he began to explain methodically in chronological order. After signing, the young mistress immediately regretted it. Feeling that he was untrustworthy, she demanded to terminate the contract. However, he refused. The two of them were at a standstill for a while, and in the end, he took the young mistress to his rented lodging. How run down was it? Ji Yurong's voice suddenly chimed in. The young spirit master looked up at him and answered honestly, extremely run down. A wooden shack deep in an alley. The gap in the door was wide enough to fit 3 fingers, and there was an unrepaired hole in the window. It looked to me like it could collapse at any moment. Hey, Chen Shin's voice drifted from the left, his eyes still closed. Would someone who was truly capable live in such a place? His words were few, but his meaning was clear, skepticism. Ning Fengji did not take the bait. He simply looked at the young spirit master and nodded. And then, in order to get the young mistress to recognize him as her master, he demonstrated his spirit abilities in the room, claiming he could teach them to her. Ning Fengji's tapping finger stopped. Spirit abilities that can be taught, he repeated, his brow furrowed imperceptibly. Self-created spirit abilities. It seems he really is a spirit master. Ji Yurong's expression changed, casting aside his previous mocking look. Not an ordinary person. Chen Shin's silver brows twitched slightly. Interesting. Ning Fengji waved his hand. Go on, what did he demonstrate? The young spirit master took a deep breath. I observed the entire process from the shadows. The man first demonstrated a spirit ability, which he called Fuhokimen. He began to describe it. As he spoke, his voice grew increasingly tense. That spirit ability can control the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It can unleash flames, summon water currents, condense ice, manipulate earth and stone, and discharge lightning. It can also control wind, emit light, and even condense dark attribute energy. He paused for a moment. And it's not just manipulation. The man himself can also transform. Right in front of the young mistress, he turned into a bird, a snake, a rabbit, and even turned his entire body into a humanoid flame, then into transparent water. Finally, he turned into a giant bird and spat a wind blade from his mouth, slicing a hole right through the roof. The air in the hall froze. 3 pairs of eyes stared intently at the young spirit master. Ji Yurong's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Chen Shin's eyes flew wide open. In those eyes, usually so indifferent they bordered on heartless, a rare gravity emerged. Ning Fengji's knuckles turned white as he gripped the armrest of his chair. Are you certain? Ning Fengji's voice dropped half an octave. All of this was from a single spirit ability. The young spirit master nodded vigorously. Absolutely certain. I verified it repeatedly. When that person unleashed all of the aforementioned abilities, there was only ever a single wave of spirit power fluctuation. It is indeed a single spirit ability. Impossible, Ji Yurong muttered under his breath. But his tone no longer held his previous certainty. Ning Fengji did not speak. His finger began tapping the armrest again, twice as fast as before. What else? The young spirit master's Adam's apple bobbed. After Fuhokimen, that person proceeded to demonstrate other spirit abilities one after another. He began to list them one by one. The second is called the Heavenly Connecting Talisman. It allows him to draw various runes in the air, with each rune having a different effect. What I observed included an earth escape shield, a rain cloud, high temperature evaporation, mind clearing calm, clothes cleansing purification, and strength boosting enhancement. 6 effects corresponding to 6 different symbols, usable immediately upon drawing. The third is called the Divine Machine 100 Refinements. It can mold ordinary wood into living creatures. I saw with my own eyes that he molded a wooden rhino, a wooden eagle, and a wooden horsefish, all of which could move independently as if they were alive. The fourth is called the Complete Hands. On the spot, he sliced open the back of his hand with a knife, exposing the bone. Then, he covered it with his palm, and it healed in 2 seconds, with even the bloodstains vanishing. As the young spirit master reached this point, his own voice began to tremble. Every single spirit ability, he claimed, could be taught to the young mistress. As his final words fell, No one in the hall spoke. A dead silence lasted for a full 5 seconds. Ji Yurong was the first to break the silence. Is what you said true? His voice was uncharacteristically low, stripped of his previous irritability. In its place was a sense of bewilderment, as if he had witnessed something completely beyond his comprehension. The young spirit master knelt down. I guarantee with my life that every single word is true. All of them can be taught. Chen Shin's voice drifted over from the side. His tone was flat, but his silver brows were knitted tighter than ever before. That person said so himself to the young mistress. Chen Shin fell silent. Ning Fengji finally spoke. His voice was very slow, as if he were chewing over every single word. A single person simultaneously possessing attack system spirit abilities, control system spirit abilities, and auxiliary healing system spirit abilities. Each spirit ability is so versatile that it defies imagination, and all of them can be taught. He turned his head to look at Chen Shin and Ji Yurong. Uncles, when did such a figure appear on the continent? Ji Yurong and Chen Shin exchanged a glance. The same expression was written in both pairs of eyes. They did not know. If those are indeed self-created spirit abilities, Chen Shin's voice carried a rare hint of solemnity, then this person's talent has likely exceeded the bounds of my comprehension. But if they aren't self-created spirit abilities, Ning Fengji picked up where he left off, then they must be his own spirit ring spirit abilities. He lowered his eyes slightly. To possess so many spirit ring spirit abilities, he must be at least a 5-ring spirit king or 6-ring spirit emperor. A spirit emperor in his teens. Ji Yurong's lip twitched. Chapter 25, Trial Period. Follow reads during the trial period are very important and affect promotion, so please keep reading. For these next few days, at the very least. Thank you everyone. Chapter 26, Bone Douluo's Russian Ning Rongrong's admission. The three fell silent once more. The same question was spinning in all of their minds. What kind of faction could cultivate such a monster? The Heavendo Empire's imperial family? Unlikely. Spirit Hall, they had never heard of such a person there. The Clear Sky sect had long since gone into seclusion. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan was even more impossible. Their style was completely mismatched with this. They couldn't figure it out. Ning Fengji was the first to snap out of his contemplation. Is there more? The young spirit master looked up. Yes. His voice began to tremble again. After being won over by those spirit ability demonstrations, the eldest miss agreed to continue being that person's disciple. Subsequently, that person calculated a method for the eldest miss to upgrade her 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into a 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. 3 gazes focused on him once more. The young spirit master's throat tightened. The result of his calculation was to find an immortal herb. He squeezed the name out of his mouth. The Douluo tulip. He paused for a beat. He said that after consuming it, one's aptitude can be directly improved, upgrading the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda to the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. He finished speaking. This time, the hall fell into a silence longer than any before. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. No one made a sound. Ning Fengji slowly raised his hand. You may leave. As if granted a grand reprieve, the young spirit master bowed and backed out of the hall. The heavy hall doors shut behind him with a low, dull thud. Only 3 people remained in the hall. Douluo tulip, Ning Fengji repeated the 4 words to himself. Have either of you heard of it? Ji Yurong shook his head. Chen Shin also shook his head. Nonsense, Ji Yurong was the first to express his opinion. Crossing his long, shockingly skeletal arms, his withered face was filled with disdain. What kind of immortal herb could upgrade a spirit? They're trying to play us. I've lived for over 90 years, and forget seeing it, I've never even heard of such a thing. Neither have I, Chen Shin agreed with Ji Yurong for once. His silver hair swayed slightly, his tone firm. There has never been any ancient record stating that an external object can cause a fundamental transformation in a spirit. If such a thing existed, it would have spread across the continent long ago. Ning Fengji did not reply immediately. His fingers tapped 3 times on the armrest. The rhythm was very slow. Douluo tulip, he murmured again. These 4 characters don't sound like a name made up on a whim. Ji Yurong frowned. You believe it? I didn't say I believe it. Ning Fengji narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze flickering in the candlelight. I said it doesn't sound made up. When ordinary people lie, they either speak vaguely without giving a specific name, or they use a known treasure to bluff. He gave an extremely specific name that no one has ever heard of. He tilted his head. Swindlers usually don't do that, because concrete things are the easiest to verify. Chen Shin's eyes narrowed slightly. Ning Fengji continued, I will look through the ancient texts later. The library of the 7 treasure glazed tile school has many remnant scrolls passed down from ancient times, perhaps I can find some clues. He shifted the topic. But that is not the most pressing matter. His gaze swept over Chen Shin and Ji Yurong. The most urgent issue right now is how to handle Rongrong's newly acknowledged master. Ji Yurong snorted coldly. What is there to handle? Just go and drag him over. Ask him clearly which faction sent him. If he doesn't talk, beat him until he does. Old Bone, you are too reckless, Chen Shin said calmly. Who are you calling reckless? Ji Yurong glared at him. Ignoring him, Chen Shin looked at Ning Fengji. What do you mean, Fengji? Ning Fengji's fingers stopped. That young man's background is unknown, but his abilities have already been proven to be not weak. He approached Rongrong on his own initiative, and his purpose is unclear. His voice lowered a bit. But one thing is certain, no matter his background, Rongrong now has a master-disciple relationship with him. If there really is a major faction backing him, acting rashly might alert the enemy. Then we just watch idly. Ji Yurong's voice rose again. Of course not. Ning Fengji tapped his index finger one last time. We must act quickly. Before he can react, we must find out his background in person. He turned to Ji Yurong. Uncle Bone, you go. An inscrutable smile appeared on Ji Yurong's withered face. Rush to Soto City overnight. Ning Fengji's voice was devoid of emotion. Meet the young man face to face. Test him if you can. See through him if you can. If you find any sinister forces behind him, eliminate them directly. He paused for a beat. Rongrong's safety is the top priority. Ji Yurong stretched. His 2.5 meter tall frame expanded, his joints emitting a series of crisp popping sounds. You should have said so earlier. He tilted his head to stretch his neck, a nearly bloodthirsty excitement rising on his withered face. Perfect. This old man's hands have been itching for a while. Don't hurt Rongrong, Chen Shin added with his eyes closed. Nonsense. Ji Yurong rolled his eyes at him and turned to walk toward the hall doors. His shockingly skeletal frame took the first step. Before his foot even touched the ground. Uncle Bone, Ning Fengji's voice came from behind. Ji Yurong's steps paused for a moment. He turned his head, revealing only half of his withered profile. Ning Fengji stood before the Secmaster's seat. The candlelight cast from behind him shrouded his face in the boundary between warm light and shadow. His eyes were so calm that their depth was unreadable. What if what that young man said is true? Ji Yurong was stunned for a moment. Then we have to understand him even more. He grinned. If a young person saw that smile, they would probably faint on the spot from fright. Someone who can turn the 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda into a 9-treasure one is either our friend. He pushed open the hall doors. The night wind rushed into the hall, causing the curtains to flutter wildly. Ji Yurong's 2.5-meter tall figure stood in the doorway, his back to the candlelight inside the hall. His voice was somewhat scattered by the wind. Or they shouldn't stay alive. The door closed behind him. Only Ning Fengji and Chen Qin remained in the hall. Chen Qin kept his eyes closed, a very faint curve hanging at the corner of his mouth. Fengji. Yes. Do you believe that matter about the immortal herb? Ning Fengji did not answer. He walked back to the Secmaster's seat and sat down, leaning back into the chair, crossing his hands in front of him, his fingers slowly tapping the armrest. The candlelight reflected on his face, making the deep-seated thoughts in his eyes even clearer. Uncle Sword, let me ask you something. Chen Qin lifted an eyelid. If it were you, and you wanted to trick a 12-year-old girl into acknowledging you as her master, what method would you use? Chen Qin did not make a sound. Showing her a few flashy spirit abilities would be enough. Ning Fengji answered his own question. I know Rongrong's personality best. As long as something is novel and strong enough, she will take the bait. There's absolutely no need to bring up turning 7-treasure into 9-treasure. Ning Fengji paused, his gaze becoming sharp. That young man had already won Rongrong over by demonstrating his spirit abilities. Yet, even after that, he still took the initiative to help Rongrong calculate a method to upgrade the 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda. Ning Fengji tapped his index finger on the armrest. It would be superfluous, unless he actually knows. Chen Qin's silver eyebrows twitched slightly. It could also be to bait you. That is possible, Ning Fengji admitted readily. But if it really is to bait me, then the thing he offers can't be fake. If the bait is too fake, you won't catch any fish. The hall fell quiet again. The candlelight flickered twice. Chen Qin suddenly chuckled softly. The laugh was extremely short, like the sound of thin ice cracking. Interesting. He stood up, his snow-white robe draped down, and his silver hair swayed slightly. Regardless of whether it's true or false, now that old bone is going, we will have an answer tomorrow. He walked toward the hall doors. As he passed by Ning Fengji's side, his steps paused for a brief moment. Don't worry, Rongrong will be fine. Ning Fengji looked up at Chen Qin's profile. The candlelight illuminated that baby's smooth face, casting it in half light and half shadow. Uncle Sword. Chen Qin tilted his head. What if Uncle Bone finds out that young man is not an enemy? Chen Qin did not turn back. Then we'll have to see if he is worthy of being Rongrong's master. His figure disappeared outside the hall doors. Only Ning Fengji remained in the grand hall. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze sweeping across the empty hall and landing on the painting hanging on the opposite wall. In the painting was a 7-story glazed pagoda, its body glowing with vibrant light, yet the top was left blank. That painting had been hanging there for 1,000 years. Every generation of Secmasters had looked at it, thinking about the exact same thing. Ning Fengji tapped his finger on the armrest one last time. Douluo tulip. He muttered the 4 words for the 3rd time, his voice so low that only he could hear it. Then he stood up and walked toward the library located behind the Secmaster's hall. His footsteps echoed in the empty hall for a long time before finally fading away. Meanwhile, in Soto City, thousands of miles away. Inside a bedroom of a 3-entry courtyard residence. Yangqing rolled over from the midst of 16 surrounding maids, the gold limit card under his pillow poking the back of his head. Drowsily, he pulled the card out, moved it to a different spot, and mumbled something incoherently. Then, he went back to sleep. Utterly unaware that at this very moment, a 2.5-meter tall, skeletal figure was stepping through the night, rushing towards Soto City at the extreme speed of a tidal Douluo. By the time Ning Rongrong arrived at Shrek Academy, the registration queue was already incredibly long. She really hadn't expected this so-called academy to actually be just a village. A dilapidated wooden fence surrounded a few crooked wooden houses. If there hadn't been a table at the entrance with an old man sitting behind it, she would have thought she had come to the wrong place. However, Ning Rongrong didn't look down on it for long. During the journey after leaving Yangxing's rundown house, she had been using Fu Hokim the entire time to figure out how to alter the friction of the ground beneath her feet and the air resistance. It was equivalent to stepping on an invisible slide and gliding across the ground, making her speed nearly twice as fast as an ordinary carriage. Although her control was still clumsy and the consumption was not small, the feeling of controlling the changes of all things was simply too exhilarating. Waiting in line, Ning Rongrong watched with her own eyes as the father of a boy in front of her wanted a refund because he thought the registration fee of 10 gold coins was too expensive. In the end, he was scared out of his wits when a tall, blonde youth with evil eyes released 3 spirit rings. She curled her lips. A dirt-poor academy, yet they scam people so hard for money. However, what happened next did pique her interest. The old man responsible for registration turned out to be a spirit emperor of over level 60, and the admission requirements he announced were ridiculously harsh, under 13 years old, and with a spirit power of level 21 or above. Only monsters, no ordinary people. Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up. Interesting. When it was her turn, the old man squeezed her hand and let out a soft gasp of surprise the moment he felt her spirit power fluctuations. Subsequently, she released her 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda. As 200-year spirit rings rose, a rare look of surprise appeared on the old man's face. Excuse me, may I pass the preliminary trial? Ning Rong smiled gently and properly. A standard lady persona, operating online. Everything went smoothly after that. The blonde youth named Daimubai led her into the academy. On the way, she met 3 other examinees who had also bypassed the 2nd and 3rd stages. A black-haired youth named Tang San, with a blue silver grass spirit, level 29. A girl named Xiao Wu, with a rabbit spirit, also level 29. And a young girl emitting a cold aura all over, Zhu Zuqing, with a hell civet spirit, level 27. 4 monsters, gathered at the 4th stage. Teacher Zhao, I've brought the candidates for the 4th stage assessment. Chapter 27, First Use of Fu Hokimen. Daimubai's voice pulled Ning Rongrong's attention back. The middle-aged man dozing in the chair in front of them opened his eyes and swept his gaze over the 4 of them. He wasn't tall, but his shoulders were as wide as a city wall, and his muscles looked as if they were cast in steel. Ning Rongrong's gaze lingered on him for a brief moment. Strong. Extremely strong. All 4 are over level 25. Not bad, not bad. Zhao Wuji stood up from his chair, cracking his wrists as a series of bone-popping sounds rang out. This is the final test. The 4 of you will team up to withstand my attacks for the duration of a single incense stick. As long as even one person can hold out until the end, you all pass. Daimubai's expression changed slightly. Teacher Zhao, this doesn't seem quite right. What's wrong with it? The dean isn't here, signed the boss. Zhao Wuji had already conjured an incense stick, rubbing his fingers over the tip to light it. I'll give you the time it takes for one incense stick to burn to discuss. Xiaobai, tell them about my strength. The incense stick was planted into the ground. Daimubai pulled the 4 of them aside, his expression grave. Teacher Zhao's spirit is the vigorous Vajra Bear, a level 76 spirit saint. He has absolutely no weaknesses, his defense is terrifying, and his attacking power is even more extreme. In the academy, he is nicknamed the immovable Bright King. Xiao Wu blurted out in shock, level 76. Tang San's pupils also contracted slightly. Ning Rongrong, however, didn't have much of a reaction. She tilted her head, quickly digesting this information. A level 76 spirit saint. A spirit ring configuration of 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 3 black. All 3 10,000-year spirit rings are for attack and defense. It was a step below her master Yongxing's level 90, but for the 4 of them, who were only level 20-something spirit grandmasters, it was still an insurmountable chasm. Introduce yourselves first, state your abilities, and see how you can coordinate, Daimubai urged. Tang San was the first to speak. Tang San, Tool Spirit Blue Silvergrass, level 29 Control System Battle Spirit Master. Xiao Wu followed immediately. Xiao Wu, Beast Spirit Rabbit, level 29 Attack System Battle Spirit Master. Zhu Zuqing coldly spat out a few words. Zhu Zuqing, Beast Spirit Hell Civet, level 27 Agility Attack System Battle Spirit Master. 3 gazes fell upon Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong smiled slightly, her voice soft and gentle. Ning Rongrong, Tool Spirit 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, level 26 Support System Tool Spirit Master. She paused. The expected shock appeared in the 4 gazes. Tang San was the first to speak. Your spirit is the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. Then you are from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Ning Rongrong stuck out her tongue. Stop staring, I'm no different from any ordinary person. I ran away from home. She changed the subject and lowered her voice. The 2 spirit rings of my 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda can boost everyone's strength and speed by about 30%. Sustaining it for the duration of an incense stick is not a problem. Saying this, her eyes curved into crescents, carrying a hint of mystery. In addition, this young lady has an extra ability. 3 pairs of eyes stared at her. It's not convenient to say exactly what it is for now. Ning Rongrong held up an index finger and wagged it in front of her lips. But rest assured, although I am of the support system, I have certain means of self-preservation. At critical moments, I can also provide some control and attack support. Seeing the slightly hesitant expressions on the 3 of them, she added another line. So you don't need to go out of your way to protect me. Just fight with everything you've got. Tang San looked at her for 2 seconds, then nodded. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School had deep foundations, so it wasn't surprising if she had some life-saving methods passed down secretly by her sect. Since they had just met, there was no reason to press for details. Alright, Tang San quickly adjusted their deployment. Then we'll change our tactics. Ning Rongrong will be responsible for support and boosting, while judging the timing herself to provide interference and support. Xiao Wu will take the main offense, I will handle control and containment, and Zhu Zuqing will harass from the flanks. Everyone nodded. On the other side of the field. Boss Dai, there are actually 3 girls among these new students, and they're all so beautiful. Oscar had sidled up to Daimubai at some point. His peach blossom eyes were practically glowing as his gaze swept back and forth across the 3 girls on the field. That Xiao Wu with the scorpion braid is both cute and wild, she must look amazing when she fights. His gaze then shifted to Ning Rongrong. This short-haired Ning Rongrong is gentle, intellectual, and the young miss of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Tisk tisk, what an aura. Moving his gaze again. And that Zhu Zuqing, so icy, but her figure is really... Thud, asterisk. A heavy punch landed on the back of Oscar's head. Ow, Oscar crouched down clutching his head, letting out a wail. Daimubai withdrew his fist, his double-pupiled evil eyes full of warning. Zhu Zuqing is mine, keep your hands off her. Oscar was so aggrieved his tears almost came out, protesting weakly, how was I supposed to know, Boss Dai? You didn't tell me beforehand. Rubbing the back of his head, he stood up. His peach blossom eyes darted around, and he quickly analyzed the situation from their positioning on the field. The distance between Tang San and Xiao Wu was clearly closer than with the others, and the eye contact between them when they spoke showed extreme tacit understanding. Right, taken. Then only Ning Rongrong was left. Oscar puffed out his chest and declared solemnly to Boss Dai, that Ning Rongrong from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, I'm going to win her over. You already have Zhu Zuqing, so you're not allowed to compete with me. Daimubai glanced at him sideways. Fine, do as you please. His evil eyes looked back at the field. Zhao Wuji had already stood up. Have you finished discussing? Zhao Wuji's booming voice rang out. The incense stick had already burned to its end. We can begin, Tang San replied on behalf of the group. Zhao Wuji lit another incense stick and planted it into the ground. Ning Rongrong was the first to act. 7 treasures turned to glazed tile. Her body spun gracefully in a circle as a 7-colored light was released from within her. A 7-colored pagoda about a foot tall appeared in the palm of her right hand, and 2 yellow spirit rings rose from beneath her feet. 7 treasures have name, first is strength. 3 streaks of colored light flew out, enveloping Tang San, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zuqing respectively. 7 treasures have name, second is speed. Another 3 streaks of colored light were released. With both strength and speed boosted by 30%, Tang San immediately felt his spirit power surging like a boiling torrent, and his body felt significantly lighter. What a powerful support effect. Zhao Wuji also noticed Ning Rongrong immediately. Good grief, someone from the 7 treasure glazed tile school, he muttered to himself, a smile appearing on his face. Then, he moved. Instead of heading toward Tang San's group of 3, he half squatted and slammed both fists down toward the ground. An area of effect attack. His target was clear, first disrupt the support of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Not good, Tang San barked. Blue silver grass whipped out rapidly, wrapping around Xiao Wu's waist to lift her into the air. Zhu Zuqing darted out from the side, leaping over the ground tremors. As for Ning Rongrong, under everyone's watchful eyes, the ground beneath her feet suddenly glowed with an extremely faint light. In the next instant, her body vanished into thin air. It wasn't an evasion. It was a disappearance. With a soft whoosh, Ning Rongrong's figure appeared 5 meters away, landing steadily. Zhao Wuji's shockwave swept violently past where she had originally stood, kicking up a cloud of dust, yet she was completely unharmed. Off the field, Daimubai's eyes suddenly went wide. Oscar's large mouth gaped open in an O shape. Chapter 28, Pretty Junior, want a sausage? What is this? Didn't Ning Rongrong already use 2 spirit abilities? How is there a third? Could she be a spirit elder? Daimubai muttered. Ning Rongrong did not stop the moment she landed. Her right hand still supported the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda to maintain support, and her left hand pushed toward Zhao Wuji. A fist-sized water ball condensed out of thin air, shooting rapidly toward Zhao Wuji's face. Immediately following that, her left foot stomped on the ground, and an earth-yellow sharp cone pierced out from the ground beneath Zhao Wuji's feet, stabbing directly at his ankle. The power of the water ball and earth cone was negligible to Zhao Wuji, but the timing was calculated far too precisely. It happened precisely during the recovery gap when Zhao Wuji's double fist smashed the ground and his power dispersed. Zhao Wuji tilted his head to dodge the water ball and moved his feet to avoid the earth cone, but these 2 interruptions abruptly cut his forward charging rhythm by half a beat. Half a beat was enough. Xiao Wu had already leapt toward Zhao Wuji like an arrow using Tang San's push. Tang San's blue-silver grass coiled over from multiple directions. Zhu Zuqing's figure silently appeared on the flank. Zhao Wuji laughed heartily. Interesting. He did not chase Ning Rongrong first, choosing instead to face the 3 people lunging straight at him. Xiao Wu's feet stepped onto his shoulders, the blue-silver grass wrapped around his entire body, and Zhu Zuqing's nether 100 claws frantically slashed at his back. It was identical to the original combat flow. But Ning Rongrong's existence changed the rhythm. Whenever Zhao Wuji prepared to exert force to break free, a water screen or an earth spike would always appear at the edge of his vision at the most critical moment. Although the damage was almost 0, the interference effect was just right. Once, when Zhao Wuji was about to strike Tang San, who was trapped by the blue-silver grass, with a palm, the ground beneath his feet suddenly became as smooth as ice. His feet stumbled, and 30% of that palm's force was dissipated. Tang San keenly captured this opportunity, using controlling crane catching dragon to leverage strength against strength, throwing Zhao Wuji's center of gravity off. Xiao Wu's soft skill activated at the same time, her scorpion braid wrapping around Zhao Wuji's ankle, using her whole body's strength to flip over. Boom. Zhao Wuji's body was slammed toward the ground. Although with his strength he suffered almost no damage, this series of coordination had already made the smile on his face fade. That's enough. Zhao Wuji stood up from the ground, patting the dirt off his head. His gaze swept across the 4 of them, finally landing on Ning Rongrong. That girl from the 7 treasure glazed tile school, your abilities are not simple. His 7 spirit rings lit up simultaneously. 2 yellows, 2 purples, and 3 blacks, a terrifying aura poured out. Then I'll deal with you first. Zhao Wuji's body violently shot out in the direction of Ning Rongrong. This time he was serious. His speed was at least 3 times faster than before. Ning Rongrong's pupils constricted, and her left hand hurriedly cast Fu Ho Kim beneath her feet. Her body disappeared once more. It appeared 7 meters away. Zhao Wuji's steps paused for a split second, changing direction and charging over again. Ning Rongrong disappeared again. It appeared 10 meters away. But her face had already turned pale. The consumption of spatial displacement was far greater than she had imagined. Every single transfer felt like pulling a large chunk of spirit power out of her body. After the 3rd displacement, fine beads of sweat had already seeped out on her forehead. Zhao Wuji saw through the clues. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and his body accelerated once more to charge at Ning Rongrong. This time Ning Rongrong did not choose displacement. Gritting her teeth, she pushed her left hand forward, and a visible current of air condensed into a translucent barrier appearing before her. Wind wall. Zhao Wuji punched heavily against it. Bang. The wind wall shattered. Ning Rongrong's body was pushed back several meters by the impact force, her heels carving 2 deep marks on the ground. But she did not fall, her feet nailed in place like they had grown roots. Her teeth were clenched tightly, her left hand supporting her knees, while her right hand still maintained the auxiliary glow of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. The support hasn't broken. Zhao Wuji was slightly startled. He thought that when Ning Rongrong used those messy abilities, she shouldn't be able to simultaneously maintain the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. But the enhancement lights on Tang San and the other 2 on the field were indeed still there. This girl was fighting with 2 sets of abilities activated at the same time. One could only imagine the consumption. Zhao Wuji did not chase Ning Rongrong anymore. Because Tang San's blue-silver grass had coiled over once again, and Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuqing were also flanking from both sides. The battle continued. Under the support of Ning Rongrong's Fu Ho Kimen, the 4 of them relied on cooperation to hold out for nearly double the time compared to normal circumstances. But when Zhao Wuji began to use his first spirit ring skill, a movable bright king body, the gap immediately manifested. Golden light burst forth. Zhu Zuqing's nether 100 claws were bounced away, her arms dislocated, and she passed out directly. Xiao Wu was shaken to the point of spewing fresh blood, and Tang San's blue-silver grass roots shattered. Zhao Wuji strode forward, raising his huge golden palm. Right at this moment, a red light suddenly blazed in Xiao Wu's eyes, and her fascination spirit ability targeted Zhao Wuji. Zhao Wuji's brain grew dizzy. Xiao Wu's red light collided with the golden light in Zhao Wuji's eyes, and the backlash crushed her instantly. Blood overflowed from her mouth and nose, and she fainted directly into Tang San's arms. Tang San's eyes turned red. He laid Xiao Wu down on the ground, turning around to walk toward Zhao Wuji. Tang San. Ning Rongrong's voice came from behind him. Her face was pale, sweat beads on her forehead sliding down her cheeks, but her eyes were clear. Calm down. Tang San turned his head back to look at her. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath, barely standing straight. She's fine, she just fainted from spirit power backlash. If you rush up to fight him head on right now, you're just throwing your life away. Tang San clenched his fists tightly. I have hidden weapons. His voice was low. I can hold on. I know. Ning Rongrong took 2 steps toward him, her voice lowered. You fight your fight, I'll create space for you to maneuver. If he chases you, I'll help you swap positions. You just focus on finding an opportunity to strike. Tang San looked at the girl in front of him covered in sweat yet resolute in expression, remaining silent for 2 seconds. He nodded. The subsequent battle was a 2-person cooperation between Tang San and Ning Rongrong. Tang San's hidden weapons poured out. Bone-penetrating nails, willow leaf daggers, flying locust stones, and money darts, the scattering flowers like rain technique was brought to its absolute limit under the support of Ning Rongrong's Fu Ho Kimen. Whenever Zhao Wuji approached Tang San within a dangerous distance, Ning Rongrong would activate spatial displacement at the very last moment, pulling Tang San out of Zhao Wuji's attack range. The price was that her own face became paler and paler, and her legs were trembling. Zhao Wuji used gravity enhancement. Tang San's speed dropped sharply. Gritting her teeth, Ning Rongrong created a low friction area under Tang San's feet, allowing him to still slide and dodge under the influence of gravity. Zhao Wuji used positioning and tracking. The fourth spirit ring fell upon Tang San. The moment she saw Zhao Wuji leap up, Ning Rongrong used her last bit of strength to activate a displacement, pulling Tang San away from the landing spot. But she could no longer stand herself. Her knees went soft, and she knelt on the ground. The auxiliary light of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda finally extinguished. Tang San knew Ning Rongrong had reached her limit. He no longer retreated. Parasite activated. Powder shooting shadow spewed out. The tight-back flowered armored crossbow fired. The dragon beard needle flew out. In the end, Tang San used every means possible to make Zhao Wuji look battered and disheveled. And he himself was also sent flying by a palm under Zhao Wuji's counterattack, spewing a mouthful of fresh blood. The incense was extinguished. Consider you guys to have passed. Zhao Wuji rubbed his nosebleed and threw out those words in a bad mood. ... The battle ended. Dai Mubai shouted for Oscar to come over for treatment. Oscar scampered over happily, chanted the phrase, "Lousy has a big sausage," and handed over the recovery sausage. Although disgusted, Tang San ate it anyway. Zhu Zuqing was caught by Dai Mubai while unconscious. Xiao Wu lay on the ground fast asleep. Oscar held up a sausage and leaned in front of Ning Rongrong. Pretty Junior, want a sausage? The recovery effect is very good. Chapter 29, Running Lab Training. Ning Rongrong glanced at the thing in his hand, recalled the spirit curse from just now, and a thin layer of frost appeared on her face. No need, her voice was gentle, but her refusal was crisp and decisive. This young lady isn't hurt, I've only consumed some spirit power. She gently exhaled and activated the passive absorption function of the origin of Qi within Fu Hokiman. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the air poured into her body at a speed invisible to the naked eye, and her pale complexion surprisingly regained its rosy color at a visible rate. After a dozen breaths, Ning Rongrong stood there, her expression as calm as still water, her hair neatly arranged, without a single speck of dust on her white dress. Compared to the bruised and swollen Tang San, the unconscious Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zuqing beside her, her condition was so well preserved that she didn't look like she had just gone through a battle against a spirit saint. Zhao Wuji's action of wiping his bloody nose stopped. He turned his head and looked Ning Rongrong up and down. This last was clearly so exhausted just moments ago that she couldn't even stand steadily. How did she recover like this in such a short amount of time? You, Zhao Wuji's gaze turned scrutinizing, last of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Aren't you just a spirit grandmaster? What on earth are those messy abilities on you? Spatial displacement, water bullets, earth spikes, wind walls, and the icy slippery ground created for that kid Tang San. Aren't you a 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit? Since when did the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda have these effects? Dai Mubai also looked over, his eyes filled with doubt. Oscar had a completely blank expression. Tang San propped up his body and sat up, his gaze also falling on Ning Rongrong. In the battle just now, he had vaguely sensed that Ning Rongrong's abilities completely didn't match the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. That was clearly a power of another system. Everyone's gazes converged on Ning Rongrong alone. Ning Rongrong tilted her head. She had originally planned to keep some trump cards. But the battle just now had already exposed most of her abilities, and she couldn't hide them anymore. Besides, these people would be classmates in the future. More importantly, that desire deep in her bones to be seen, to prove that she wasn't just support, could no longer be suppressed at this moment. That is not an ability of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Ning Rongrong smiled, her tone relaxed. It's another spirit ability I learned. It's called Fu Hokiman. She raised her left hand, palm facing upward. A small, orange-red flame danced twice in her palm, then extinguished immediately. Replaced by an egg-sized water droplet floating above her palm, smooth and translucent. The water droplet shattered, turning into an angular ice crystal. The ice crystal melted, and a clump of yellowish-brown soil condensed out of thin air. The soil dissipated, and a tiny cluster of blue-white electric arcs crackled and burst at her fingertips. The 5 elements took turns appearing, taking less than 5 seconds in total. Everyone's breathing on the field stopped. Zhao Wuji's hand wiping his bloody nose froze midair. Dai Mubai's evil pupils widened to their maximum. The sausage in Oscar's hand dropped to the ground, and he didn't even notice it himself. Tang San sat on the ground, his brows deeply furrowed. Zhu Zuqing stood at the back, her cold face showing her eyes staring fixedly at this scene, her fingers behind her back quietly clenching at some unknown moment, not knowing what she was thinking in her heart. Ning Rongrong retracted her hand and gently stepped with her right foot again. Her body disappeared from where she was and appeared 3 meters away. With another step, she returned to her original position. Spatial displacement. It was displayed so casually and understated ly. Simply put, Ning Rongrong put her hands behind her back, her tone as if introducing a newly bought dessert. This spirit ability allows me to manipulate material changes within a certain range around me. The 5 elements, spatial shifting, and material form conversion can all be achieved. Deathly silence. Zhao Wuji was the first to speak. His voice was somewhat dry. You say this is a spirit ability? Ning Rongrong nodded. 1. A single spirit ability can control fire, control water, control lightning, control earth, displace, and create wind walls. Zhao Wuji looked at her for a long while, then looked at Dai Mubai beside him. He stiffly shook his head, indicating that he didn't know either. Impossible. Zhao Wuji's brows knitted tightly together. I've lived for so many years, and I've never heard of a single spirit ability having so many effects. Even spirit abilities bestowed by 10,000-year spirit rings can't cover so many attributes simultaneously. Unless it's a self-created soul skill, but a self-created soul skill couldn't possibly reach this level at your rank. Ning Rongrong tilted her head, her smile very sweet. Teacher Zhao, didn't you say it yourself, your place only recruits monsters? That night, Flender assigned dormitories, 2 rooms for girls and 2 rooms for boys. Ning Rongrong shared a room with Xiao Wu, while Zhu Zuqing lived alone in one. Ning Rongrong had no objection to this. Xiao Wu had a lively personality, and getting along with her wasn't tiring. Early the next morning, Ning Rongrong met the other 2 veteran students of Shrek Academy. One was Fatty Ma Hongjun, covered in fat with a mohawk of red hair, whose spirit was a phoenix, which carried a certain defect after mutation that people couldn't bear to dwell on. The other was Oscar, full of facial hair and forever gripping a sausage in his hand, a food system spirit master with innate full spirit power. Ma Hongjun's gaze staring at Ning Rongrong and Xiao Wu made Ning Rongrong feel thoroughly uncomfortable. But she maintained her smile. Lady Persona, operating online. After breakfast, Flender's bell summoned everyone to the playground. That dean with a horseshoe-shaped face stood right in the center, his gaze behind the black framed square glasses sweeping across the 7 people, finally stopping on Ningrong and Oscar. The 2 of you from the support system, today's lesson is physical training. Flander's voice carried a magnetic hoarseness. From now on, run 20 fast laps around the entire village. If you can't finish running before lunch at noon, you won't need to eat lunch. Oscar's complexion collapsed. Ningrong tilted her head. 20 laps. She quickly calculated the distance in her mind. 1 lap was at least 3 kilometers, and 20 laps would be 60 kilometers. For a support-type spirit master in their 20s, it was indeed a tortoise number. But for her, the corners of Ningrong's mouth curved slightly upward. The information flow of Fu Hokimin was steadily operating deep within her mind. Reducing air resistance on the surface of her body, changing the coefficient of friction between the soles of her feet and the ground, making every step like sliding on an ice surface. She had already tried these on the way to Soto City yesterday. Set off, Flander waved his hand. Oscar sighed and glanced at Ningrong. Follow me, lead the way. Ningrong smiled at him. That smile was gentle and appropriate, carrying a bit of shared misfortune. The 2 of them left the academy grounds. Oscar started running. The speed was neither fast nor slow, the most reasonable rhythm for support-type spirit master's long-distance running. Ningrong followed behind him. 3 steps. Only followed for 3 steps. Then her body suddenly accelerated. Chapter 30 Member Free Reading. It wasn't the explosive speed boost driven by spirit power. Instead, it was an extremely bizarre acceleration, as if the entire person was being pushed forward to glide by an invisible force. Her legs were still running, but the distance covered with each step taken was 3 to 4 times normal. Her skirt fluttered behind her, and her short hair blew backward in the wind. Oscar stared wide-eyed. Ningrong's back shrank in his field of vision at an unreasonable speed, and within 3 seconds, it had already turned into a small white dot in the distance. What kind of speed is this? Oscar's steps came to a halt, his mouth open wide enough to fit one of his own sausages. He was a support-type spirit master, and his perception of speed was very acute. Ningrong's acceleration just now could definitely not be achieved by pure spirit power propulsion alone. That sense of gliding, that high-speed movement which consumed almost no stamina, completely did not look like the performance a level 26 spirit grandmaster should have. But he didn't have time to think too much. Because Ningrong had already run out of sight. Lap 1. Lap 2. Lap 3. Ningrong maintained the support state of Fu Hokimin and flashed rapidly across the outer periphery of the village. The wind whistled past her ears, and the ground beneath her feet was like a smooth slide. She even had the leisure to appreciate the scenery along the way, counting how many colors the wildflowers on the roadside had. On the 5th lap, she caught up with Oscar, who was still running the first lap, for the first time. When flashing past him, Ningrong even waved at him. Oscar's expression looked as if he had seen a ghost. Lap 10. Ningrong stopped. It wasn't because she was tired. It was because she was bored. Running like this had lost all meaning for exercise to her. With Fu Hokimin reducing resistance and enhancing sliding states, her stamina consumption was negligible. Continuing to run was purely a waste of time. She stood by the roadside, waiting for Oscar to run over leisurely. Panting and drenched in sweat, Oscar saw Ningrong standing leisurely by the roadside waiting, and the expression on his face was extremely complicated. You're done running. 10 laps. Ningrong held up her fingers, smiling openly. 10 laps. Oscar's eyeballs almost popped out. I haven't even finished the 2nd lap yet. Ningrong tilted her head to look at him, and suddenly spoke. Oscar, want to go stroll around Soto City together? It's still early. Oscar's legs went soft. Are you crazy? The dean will kill us. Ningrong shrugged. Then help me keep a secret. I left after running only 10 laps. Don't tell the dean. Oscar looked at her smiling face. The 12-year-old girl's expression at this moment was gentle and harmless, but the content of her words was clearly making him an accomplice. You're not going to finish the remaining 10 laps. Not running anymore. Ningrong's reply was crisp and neat. It's meaningless. Oscar opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but under the gaze of Ningrong's pair of big, beautiful eyes, the words at the tip of his tongue took a turn. Fine. He waved his hand with resignation, but if you get caught, don't say I knew. Ningrong nodded in satisfaction, turning to run in the direction of Soto City. Fu Hokimin under her feet activated again, and the white figure disappeared at the end of the road in the blink of an eye. Oscar stood in place, looking at the direction of that disappearance, and muttered to himself. A support-type spirit master running like this, is there still any justice in heaven? He shook his head and continued his miserable long-distance run. After Ningrong entered Soto City, her first priority wasn't to go shopping. She turned into that familiar broken alley. The wooden shack rented by Yongqing was still there. The cracks on the door panel, the holes on the window, the crooked door frame. Everything remained as it was. Ningrong pushed open the door. Empty. The bed was empty, the fragments of the coarse pottery cup on the table were still on the ground, and that sign reading, knowing everything like a god, was also gone. Yongqing's bundle wrapper, his cattail leaf fan, the broken chair he had sat on, none of them were there anymore. Ningrong's heart suddenly sank. Ran away. That swindler master ran away. Took her as a disciple, taught her a Fu Hokimin, and then packed up and ran while she went to enroll. Ningrong's face turned livid in an instant. The fire in her chest suddenly surged up, and her hands clenched into fists. She knew it. She knew that swindler couldn't be trusted. What? Master Talisman, what? Shout Master 3 times, it was all deceiving people. Ningrong was so angry that she circled the room twice, her short hair almost standing on end. Then she saw a note pinned under something on the tabletop. The handwriting was sloppy, as if written casually. Moved house. The new residences in the central area of Soto City, the 3rd street next to the city lord's mansion, a 3-courtyard compound with 2 large locust trees at the entrance. Don't worry, didn't run. At the end, a crooked smile was also drawn. Ningrong stared at that smile for 3 seconds. Her temples twitched twice. Next to the city lord's mansion. A 3-courtyard compound. How did this swindler who was dirt poor suddenly move into a 3-courtyard compound next to the city lord's mansion? A few thoughts spun through Ningrong's mind. She wanted to go see, but that address was on the other side of Soto City, and going back and forth would take a lot of time again. She sneaked out, and had to hurry back. In case that soul-faced dean found out she wasn't at the academy, the gentle and elegant persona she painstakingly maintained would be completely ruined. Ningrong hesitated for a few seconds. Then she lowered her head to look at the palm of her right hand. That master talisman was still there. The fingernail-sized white talisman imprint was quietly embedded in the palm position, and the fine patterns on the surface still flowed with a faint luster. She tried inputting a trace of spirit power. The talisman imprint lit up. A soft white light bloomed and closed in her palm, as if responding to her touch. Ning Rongrong's heart fell back into her stomach. Being lit meant the person was still there. That swindler hadn't run. She withdrew her hand and glanced twice in the direction written on the note. Wait for it, she squeezed 2 words out from between her teeth. Tomorrow this young lady will definitely come find you, and then see how I deal with you. Moving house without even telling your disciple, what kind of master are you? After muttering, Ning Rongrong turned and left the rundown house. Her mood inexplicably improved. Since the swindler master hadn't run, then there was no rush for now. Over the next 2+ hours, Ning Rong practiced various micro-operations of Fuhokimen on the streets of Soto City while shopping and eating. She tried changing the elasticity of the ground beneath her feet to make herself jump higher, tried condensing a tiny airflow vortex at her fingertips to whip up fallen leaves on the roadside, and tried raising the temperature of the air within a 3-inch radius around her body by 2 degrees to resist the afternoon breeze. Every successful micro-operation made her so excited that her eyebrows danced with joy. By the way, she bought 3 large packages of various pastries and snacks, wrapped them carefully in oil paper, and tucked them inside her bosom. When returning to Shrek Academy, it was noon. Ning Rongrong pushed open the dormitory door. Xiao Wu was sitting cross-legged on the bed, braiding her scorpion braid listlessly. Seeing Ning Rongrong come in, those lively eyes immediately lit up. But what lit up wasn't because of Ning Rongrong. Rather, it was because of those 3 large, fragrant oil paper packages in her hands. Chapter 31, Master ran away. Rongrong, Xiao Wu bounced off the bed, her nostrils twitching like a little rabbit that had caught the scent of food. What smells so good? Ning Rongrong spread out the oil paper package on the table. Honey walnut crisps, osmanthus cakes, braised duck wings, candied chestnuts, and sesame flatbreads were dazzlingly laid out across the table. Xiao Wu could no longer control her drool on the spot. Where did these come from? Her eyes lit up, and her hand had already reached toward the plate of walnut crisps. I bought them in the city after finishing 20 laps. Ning Rongrong patted her chest, her tone confident and matter of course. I brought them specifically for you, and Zuqing's share as well. Xiao Wu's hand paused. You finished running? Her expression was filled with surprise. I went out and jogged around the academy just now and found that 1 lap is huge. How did you finish running so fast? She leaned closer to Ning Rongrong, her gaze filled with curiosity alongside surprise. What about Oscar? Ning Rongrong felt not a shred of guilt about only running half of it. She patted her chest, her apricot-shaped eyes curving into crescents, her tone unquestioningly resolute. Xiao Wu, surely you don't still not know about my Fuhokimen? How could Oscar keep up with me? She spread her hands with an innocent expression. I reduced wind resistance and increased smoothness, so by the time I finished 10 laps, he hadn't even finished his first lap. I'm not that close with him anyway, so this young lady couldn't just wait around for him there, could I? She pointed at the pile of food on the table. If it weren't for this young lady running fast and saving time to go to the city, how would you have these good things to eat? Xiao Wu pondered for a moment. It seemed to make sense. It truly made sense. She thought about that breakfast at Shrek Academy. Steamed buns paired with salted vegetables, the portion was enough, but the taste was just like chewing wood. As a soft-bones rabbit who had cultivated for 100,000 years and taken human form, she had a craving for delicacies carved deep into her genes. Looking again at the table full of pastries and snacks that appealed to color, aroma, and taste right before her. Rongrong, you're the best. Xiao Wu smiled, revealing her 2 little fangs, and her hand reached toward the walnut crisps once again. Wait. Ning Rongrong grabbed and held down her hand. Xiao Wu looked at her pitifully. Bring some for Zuqing to eat together. Ning Rongrong smiled gently. After all, everyone will be getting along for a long time in the future, we can't leave her out. Xiao Wu swallowed her saliva, looked at the plate of walnut crisps close at hand, and then looked at Ning Rongrong. All right. She nodded, but her eyes lingered longingly on the table for several circles before looking away. The 2 carried the food over to find Zhu Zuqing. Zhu Zuqing's room door was tightly shut. Ning Rongrong knocked 3 times. Who is it? The voice was cold. It's me and Xiao Wu. Ning Rongrong's voice carried a hint of playfulness. I brought you something to eat. Silence hung for a few seconds. No need. An expected response. Ning Rongrong was not in a rush. She had long since noticed Zhu Zuqing's traits. This cold young girl had an extremely strong self-esteem, rejecting others was her way of maintaining her personal space. But at the same time, she possessed a nearly paranoid pursuit of her own strength. Therefore, Ning Rongrong did not use words like, let's be friends, to persuade her. Zuqing, you've also eaten the academy's food. Ning Rongrong leaned against the doorframe, her tone casual. Eating that kind of stuff will cut the recovery speed of spirit power cultivation by at least 30%. There's still a training class tonight, and Principal Flender said it wouldn't be easy. Even if you refuse to eat with us, don't refuse nutritional supplements that can help you maintain your best state during training. It was quiet behind the door for a few seconds. Ning Rongrong continued, we will be together for a long time in the future. This young lady just hopes we can get along harmoniously, nothing more. Another few seconds of silence followed. Creak. The wooden door was pushed open a crack. Zhu Zuqing stood expressionlessly behind the door, her gaze sweeping from Ning Rongrong's face to the oil paper package in her hands, and then to Xiao Wu beside her who was hugging a plate of pastries with bright, sparkling eyes. Come in. The corners of Ning Rongrong's lips curled up. The 3 girls sat down inside Zhu Zuqing's room. Ning Rongrong spread out the food, and Xiao Wu grabbed a braised duck wing without a word and began gnawing on it, her mouth covered in grease as she squinted her eyes in happiness. Zhu Zuqing picked up a piece of osmanthus cake and ate it in small bites, although her expression remained cold, she did not refuse. Ning Rongrong ate while chatting idly back and forth with Xiao Wu, occasionally tossing 1 or 2 questions toward Zhu Zuqing. Most of them were harmless topics. Where did you cultivate before? Your health civet is truly fast, I noticed it during yesterday's assessment. Zhu Zuqing's answers were brief and stiff, but at least she was answering. Ning Rongrong was secretly satisfied. Of course she wasn't purely kind-hearted. Bringing food to win over Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuqing was because she had seen through these people's strengths during the entrance assessment. Xiao Wu, level 29, attack system, 12 years old. Zhu Zuqing, level 27, agility attack system, with extremely remarkable skills. Tang San, level 29, and that showdown with Zhao Wuji was even more astonishing. Daimubai, level 37, broke through to level 30 at age 13. Even the fatty Ma Hongjun's mutated phoenix spirit was top tier. Every single one of these people met the acceptance criteria of her chief, swindler master. But Ning Rongrong temporarily had no plans to introduce them to become apprentices. For one thing, she hadn't fully utilized Fu Hokiman herself yet. Good things must first satisfy oneself before anything else. Secondly, sharing her exclusive master with others gave her an inexplicable sense of resistance. Right now she was just cultivating relationships in advance. Just in case there was a need in the future, with this sentiment present, things would be much easier to handle. Ning Rongrong silently gave a thumbs up to her own deep foresight in her heart. Night fell. On the playground. Flender stood right in the center, his gaze behind his black-framed glasses sharp like an eagle's. Dai Mubai, Tang San, Xiao Wu, Ma Hongjun, and Zhu Zuqing stood neatly in a row, full of spirit. Oscar hurried back with a face so exhausted it was distorted, standing at the end of the formation. Ning Rongrong stood on the far right, wearing a smile, composed and unhurried. Flender's gaze swept across everyone. Then it stopped on Oscar and Ning Rongrong. Oscar. Oscar's body tightened slightly. Principal. Did you finish running 20 laps? Oscar coughed once and nodded. Principal, I finished running. Flender didn't reply, his gaze turned toward Ning Rongrong. I wasn't asking you. Flender's voice was unhurried. Ning Rongrong, did you finish running? Everyone's line of sight gathered onto Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong's expression didn't change at all. She still wore that gentle smile, her pair of pretty, large eyes clear and bright, looking at Flender with full innocence. I finished running. She spoke calmly. Flender looked at her. The expression on that shoe sole-like face made it impossible for people to read its depth. Is that so? He turned to Oscar. Oscar, did she finish running? Oscar turned his head to look at Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong was also looking at him, those apricot eyes carrying a smile, her expression pure and innocent. Oscar gritted his teeth. Yes, we both finished running. Flender smiled. That smile made Tang San think of two words, sinister. Very good. Flender pointed to the spot in front of him. Oscar, come over. Bitterness surfaced on Oscar's face, but he still walked in front of Flender. Flender's right hand patted his shoulder. I really appreciate your spirit of brotherly love. Go run another 20 laps. You don't get to eat until you finish running. I have already sealed your spirit power. Go. Oscar didn't argue, silently turned around, and ran outward. Flender's line of sight landed back on Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong, his tone was calm. Did you really finish 20 laps? The crowd's gazes converged once more. Ning Rongrong looked at Flender. She knew this principal already knew the answer. She didn't panic. She didn't even have a trace of tension. No, Ning Rongrong's tone was calm and unconcerned, the smile on her face withdrawing slightly, but she still remained composed. I ran 10 laps. Chapter 32, Reserve Disciples and Being Discovered in Question.